Chapter 1196. The Yin and Yang Tower Master's guess was indeed correct. Not long after the Green Fox retreated, a cultivator who was standing with the Yin and Yang Tower Master and the Three Talents Tower Master suddenly grunted and said, "Second brother guessed correctly. Someone really did sneak in and activated the warning formation in the mountain." Third brother Chang looked at this person in surprise and sighed, "Fifth brother's attainments and formations are becoming more and more astonishing. Second brother and I did not discover that someone sneaked in, but in the end, that person still could not escape from Lu Ping's formation detection." Fifth brother Chang shook his head and said, "That person's method of concealing his tracks is extremely brilliant. If it wasn't for the slight vibration of the ground when he walked and activating the formation, even I would not have known that this person had already sneaked in." The Yin and Yang Tower Master, who had been silent all this while, said, "This person must be Lu Tianping. Only this person could avoid our divine sense and sneak into Jiushuan Mountain." The Five Elements Tower Master said, "Should we surround him now?" The Yin and Yang Tower Master shook his head and said, "The three of us working together is enough to deal with him. It's just that this person's strength can defeat a great cultivator. Even if the three of us work together and defeat him, we won't be able to make him stay. Right now we only need to follow his tracks. This time the main goal is to figure out the location of the Five Elements hidden treasure. If we want to deal with Lu Tianping, we will have to wait until he comes out of the hidden treasure." Third brother Chang was startled and said, "This time we are going to kill Lu Tianping?" The Yin and Yang Tower Master said, "For the Thieving Heaven hidden treasure, we can't care so much. You all know that when Thieving Heaven Laozu came out of Spirit Luan Blessed Land, he was heavily injured. After that, there was no news of him in the cultivation world. Our sect's seniors have long suspected that Thieving Heaven Laozu left behind a hidden treasure near Jiushuan Tower. Thieving Heaven Laozu most likely died there. It is a pity that in the last 10,000 years many of our sect's ancestors Laozu had explored the area around our sect more than once, and this Nine Profound Mountain was an important area, but they could not find the inheritance left behind by Thieving Heaven Laozu. Who would have thought that a few thieves would find it and sneak in?" Thinking about the number of treasures found in the Thieving Heaven hidden treasure, Thieving Heaven Laozu must have made some arrangements before his death. These thieves only obtained some superficial things. This time the place where Thieving Heaven Laozu died will definitely have more treasures. This is also the reason why we are sure that they sneaked back again. The Yin and Yang Tower Master paused here and said, "With Lu Tianping's ability, as long as he enters the Thieving Heaven hidden treasure, his harvest will definitely surpass the Green Fox 9 bandits. But in order to find the entrance of the Thieving Heaven hidden treasure, we have no choice but to let him in, so we can only wait for him to come out and kill him. At that time, Boss Wei will also rush over, and Fifth Brother will also be able to set up a formation at the entrance. At that time Jiushuan Tower's direct lineage Yuan Tower, Yin and Yang Tower, Three Talents Tower, and Five Elements Tower will work together, and with the help of the formation, if we still can't take care of Lu Tianping, then we really can't be direct lineage cultivators, it will be embarrassing." However, as soon as the Yin and Yang Tower Master finished speaking, Five Elements Tower Master's expression became increasingly strange. Chang Sankai, who was at the side, quickly noticed Five Elements Tower Master's expression and quickly asked, "Fifth brother, what's wrong?" Five Elements Tower Master glanced at the two of them and said, "He's coming towards us." The Yin and Yang Tower Master was shocked. He stared at Five Elements Tower Master and said, "How did he find out?" "Fifth brother, didn't you say that this formation to hide our tracks was comprehended in the Nether Space Lost formation, and even our sect's great cultivators can't find it?" Five Elements Tower Master was obviously also stunned, but Chang Sankai, who was at the side, said, "Maybe he didn't find us." The Yin and Yang Tower Master and Five Elements Tower Master were stunned. Then Chang Sankai continued, "Why can't the entrance of the Thieving Heaven hidden treasure be on the hill where we are?" After sneaking into Nine Profound Mountain, Lu Ping traveled quickly, but he didn't use any flying techniques. He insisted on walking on the ground. He passed through several valleys, then he took a detour and headed towards the hill where the people of Nine Profound Mountain were at. Lu Ping was not proficient in formations, but he had a Dao companion who was proficient in formations. After being trapped in the Nether Space Lost formation for more than 20 years, he also obtained the 9 Debao Restrictions Formation Foundation from the Nether Space Lost formation, so Lu Ping's understanding of formations was not shallow. Right now he even had the large success stage 3 Pure True Pupils ability. After refining the Lone Eagle's bloodline, the power of the 3 Pure True Pupils had become even stronger. Not long after entering the Nine Profound Mountain, he had already discovered the set of concealment formations set up on the hill. The formation that the Five Elements Tower Master said was comprehended from the Nether Space Lost formation was a joke in Lu Ping's eyes. This concealment formation was simply an imitation of one of the formations in the 8th layer of the Nether Space Lost formation, and it was not a complete imitation. There were only some slight changes at the corners, making it look like it was the same, but it was actually not. Of course, the person who set up the formation was able to enter the 8th layer of the Nether Space Lost formation. At least it meant that this person's attainment in formations was above Deng Ming's, and he was an experienced formation master. If it was on a normal day, Lu Ping would naturally be cautious when he saw this person. However, since this formation was copied so well, Lu Ping, who already knew the answer, naturally would not be so polite. He went straight to the top of the hill, ready to meet the heirs of the 9 Profound Tower. On the top of the hill, Chang Sansai's words were greatly approved by the 2 Elements Tower Masters and the 5 Elements Tower Masters, especially the 5 Elements Tower Master, who was even more certain that Lu Ping definitely did not discover the formation at the top of the hill, and that the thieving heaven treasure was on this hill. The 2 Elements Tower Master nodded and said, "In that case, second brother, open the formation and let him move freely. We will retreat first, and when he finds the entrance to the treasure, we will come back and surround him." The 5 Elements Tower Master executed a few techniques, and under the astonished gaze of Lu Ping, the entire formation still existed, but it had lost the ability to obstruct people from entering the top of the hill. It only had the effect of concealing one's tracks. If not for Lu Ping's 3 pure true pupils, he might not even know that there was a formation at the top of the hill. Lu Ping's divine sense moved, and he saw 3 extremely weak auras retreating from the other side of the hill. If not for Lu Ping's extraordinary divine sense, he might only see these 3 auras as wild beasts that roamed the mountains at night. The 9 Profound Towers' actions made Lu Ping a little confused, but he immediately thought of something, and his lips curled into a smile. He really walked around the top of the hill, and then, as if he had tripped, he staggered and kicked a stone under his feet into a depression on the stone wall. Just as the stone smashed into the depression, the whole stone wall suddenly flashed with a spiritual light, and then the stone fell from the stone wall and disappeared again. The 5 Elements Tower Master, who was watching from afar, suddenly exclaimed, "Oh no, he has discovered us." Immediately after, he saw Lu Ping, who was at the top of the hill, look at the stone wall in shock. Then, as if he had realized something, there was a flash of light under his feet, and he quickly flew out of the 9 Shen Mountain. Chang Sankai was puzzled. How could things be so coincidental? How could a Dharma adept like Lu Ping trip and accidentally kick a stone? Furthermore, the stone had hit one of the nodes of the formation, causing the originally invisible formation to suddenly reveal itself. How could so many coincidences happen at the same time? At this moment, the anxious voice of the 5 Elements Tower Master rang out. Should we chase after him or not? If they did not chase after him, now that their tracks had been exposed, Lu Tianping would definitely not come after them. If they chased after him, not only would they not be able to catch up, even if they did, could the 3 of them work together to stop Lu Tianping? At least, Chang Sankai, who had seen Lu Ping's strength, did not think that they would be able to do so. As they spoke, Lu Ping's light had already disappeared into the sky, and the 3 of them could no longer track Lu Ping. How could he be so fast? The 2 Elements Tower Master sighed and said, "There is no need to chase after him. At least we have confirmed that the thieving heaven's inheritance is on this mountain. Even if we spend some effort, we will be able to find it." Outside the 9 Shen Mountain, Zhu Jilwan, the 7 Stars Tower Master, and the 8 Trigrams Tower Master stopped Green Fox. Zhu Jilwan said fiercely, "Bitch, let's see where you can run this time." Green Fox looked at the 3 people surrounding her and said with a smile, "I did not say that I will run." Zhu Jilwan was startled, then he saw a bright light under Green Fox's feet. Zhu Jilwan immediately shouted, "Quickly destroy the teleportation formation under her feet." However, the light disappeared in a flash and there was no trace of Green Fox. Zhu Jilwan and the other 2 rushed to where Green Fox was standing and saw that the teleportation runes on the simple teleportation formation that was covered by a thin layer of soil were gradually dissipating, leaving only the teleportation talisman at the center of the teleportation formation that was torn to quickly activate the formation. Teleportation arrays could be used for teleportation purposes, but the activation speed was slow. Teleportation arrays could be activated quickly, but the destination of teleportation was not precise enough. However, at this moment the 2 were perfectly combined. This was a directional teleportation array. Where did Green Fox go? Somewhere in the Nine Shen Mountain that Lu Ping had passed, Debao, who had shrunk his body as much as possible but was still as fat as a meatball, crawled out from the ground. The reason why Lu Ping had chosen to sneak into the Nine Shen Mountain was to cover for Debao, who was using the earth evasion technique along the way. In the middle of the mountain, Debao transformed back into his human form and chuckled. He tossed an item in his hand into the air. That item was none other than the secret key that Green Fox had used to enter the Thieving Heaven's inheritance, a small and exquisite axe-shaped magic tool. Debao walked half a circle around the mountain and found the boulder that Green Fox had mentioned. He saw Lu Ping take out the axe-shaped magic tool and it immediately transformed into a majestic giant axe, then fiercely chopped at the boulder. Dang! The boulder was split in two, and the entire Nine Shen Mountain sounded as if a huge gong had been smashed. Debao put away the magic tool in his hand and jumped into the two halves of the boulder. He disappeared into it and the two halves of the boulder instantly merged back together, becoming whole again. Chapter 1197. The shock from Debao's strike was not small, but the sudden loud noise caught the 9 mystical towers cultivators off guard. The master of the Yin and Yang building and the others suddenly realized that they had fallen into another trap. Not only Jianghu but Lu Tianping was also just bait, luring them to focus all their attention on them. Unexpectedly, a third person had sneaked into Mount Jiushuan. However, the crux of the matter was how this third person had snuck in. Why hadn't the 9 mystical towers measures detected his presence? Not far away, Zhu Jilwan and the others had also rushed over to meet up with the master of the Yin and Yang building and the others. They had returned after being shaken off by Jianghu. What should we do? Everyone looked at the master of the Yin and Yang building. At this moment, the master of the Yin and Yang building's expression was frighteningly gloomy. Previously, he had thought that everything was under his control, but now he suddenly realized that he had been tricked by Lu Tianping. The heirs did not say anything. Only Zhu Jilwan had a gloating expression on her face. Let's search. What else can we do now? Circle up all the suspicious places in Mount Jiushuan and surround them as soon as possible when they come out. Chang Sankai saw that the master of the Yin and Yang building was not in his right mind, so he said this. Chang Sansai's words brought the master of the Yin and Yang building back to his senses. He continued, no one is allowed to act alone. Once you discover anything strange, you must immediately entangle the intruder. The others will then go and provide support. Zhu Jilwan casually looked at her hands and said, Mount Jiushuan is so big. How can we search all the way here with just the few of us? I don't think there's any need to keep up appearances. Let's go back to the sect and ask for help. Call a few of the second-generation cultivators and surround Mount Jiushuan so tightly that not even a drop of water can trickle through. I don't believe that he can fly into the sky. What a joke. Is one Lu Tianping worth alarming the entire 9 mystical tower? A voice suddenly sounded in everyone's ears, and almost everyone's spirit was shaken. Even Chang Sankai, who had always been sloppy, pulled out the grass stalk in his mouth, and Zhu Jilwan's sarcastic young mistemper also disappeared. Boss Wei, you're finally here. A pale-faced, young-looking cultivator suddenly appeared in front of the other cultivators of the 9 Profound Tower like a ghost. The important people of the 9 Profound Tower seemed to be familiar with the characteristics of this cultivator, so they didn't seem too surprised. Instead, they were extremely respectful. Even Zhu Jilwan put away all the emotions on her face. This pale young man was the #1 direct disciple of the 9 Profound House, Hall Lord Yuan. Because his surname was Wei, he was addressed as Boss Wei. Of course, cultivators from other sects called him Wei Yuan. Since Lu Tianping has created a diversion and sent someone else into the Thieving Heaven treasure trove after drawing all of you away, once that person comes out, Jianghu and Lu Tianping will definitely be waiting outside the 9 mysterious mountain to receive them. This is our chance, our only chance. Wei Yuan looked at everyone calmly. However, no one, including the master of the 2 rights building, dared to look him in the eye. Seeing that no one objected, Wei Yuan nodded slightly and said, in that case it's decided. After Debao jumped into the boulder, he felt his body sink first, then something tightened under his feet. With a dong sound, Debao felt his vision brighten. When he opened his eyes, he found himself in a man-made tunnel that was as tall as a person. Debao looked around and said, it really is our spirit-seeking mouse. No, it is the work of the treasure-seeking mouse clan. The Thieving Heaven ancestor is really powerful. With that, Debao's fat palm pressed against the stone wall. An earthen yellow vital energy entered the stone wall, and a formation restriction rune appeared on the stone wall. This formation restriction was obviously for the outside and not the inside. Therefore, even a person like DeBeo, who did not have much knowledge about formations, could easily find one or two nodes on the formation. At the instant the node lit up, a crystalline stone the size of a finger appeared in DeBeo's hand. He then pressed the small stone into one of the nodes that had lit up. Then, under DeBeo's astonished gaze, these lit-up runes were like tadpoles that had come to life and began to slowly move on the stone wall. For some reason, the movement of these spirit runes did not affect the operation of the formation restriction. When these runes moved and formed a new formation, DeBeo immediately said with joy, "It's done. This space underworld essence is really extraordinary. It can actually form a simple teleportation formation so easily." As soon as he said that, the newly formed teleportation formation shone brightly. In the blink of an eye, the light faded, and Lu Ping had already arrived at the tunnel. This simple teleportation formation was formed by using the space underworld essence to reorganize the formation runes in the Thieving Heaven inheritance. But it was a simple teleportation formation after all, and could only teleport one person at a time. The teleportation formation flickered continuously. Samling, Green Phoenix, Tiger, Black Tortoise, Lu Taohua, and even Purple Crystal Bee King entered the Thieving Heaven inheritance. "How is this place the same as the last time you entered?" Everyone looked at Lu Ping's followers in surprise. Lu Ping asked Green Fox and the rest while plucking the space underworld essence from the stone wall. Even though Green Fox and the rest were curious about the stone in Lu Ping's hand, they still looked around. Green Fox said with joy, "That's right, this is the place. I did not expect to return so easily." Lu Ping nodded and said, "The entrance should have been mostly searched by you. Let's go to the furthest point and start from there." As soon as Lu Ping said that, DeBeo called out from the side, "Don't, wait a minute." Lu Ping looked at DeBeo and asked, "What is it?" DeBeo smiled. "Why is it said that the treasures in the Thieving Heaven inheritance need to be searched tens to hundreds of times before finding something that has never been discovered before? Because no one can search all of the treasures hidden by Thieving Heaven Laozu in one go. Even though Green Fox and the rest have searched this tunnel, there are still many things left behind." Green Tiger was a bit unhappy and said, "Hey, then why don't you find some for us to see?" DeBao let out a mischievous laugh. His large fat body unhurriedly spun around twice. A wave of earthen yellow smoke rose. After the smoke scattered, DeBao had already returned to his original form. A wild boar-sized rat appeared in front of everyone. The giant rat took 2 steps forward. It was exactly where Jianghu had been standing. The giant rat bustled about, and in the blink of an eye, a 2-foot-deep pit was created. Everyone then saw a palm-sized copper box lying at the bottom of the pit. Jianghu snorted and didn't say anything else. The giant rat at the bottom of the pit had already thrown the copper box into Lu Ping's hand. Lu Ping opened the copper box in front of everyone and smiled. "Good luck, a piece of lapis lazuli, a dual-attribute earth low-grade spirit item." Then he threw the copper box back to DeBeo. DeBeo's neck flashed and the copper box disappeared. Obviously, there was a storage artifact hanging on DeBeo's neck. DeBeo climbed out of the pit and started to backfill it. Green Tiger said, "It's just a pit, we need to hurry up, why are you backfilling it?" DeBeo said seriously, "This was left behind by Ancestor Thieving Heaven, it might even be the resting place of Ancestor Thieving Heaven after he died. Let's take the treasures inside and not disturb his rest." Green Tiger curled his lips, obviously disapproving, but in his opinion, there was no need to argue with a dead person. They walked along the tunnel for hundreds of feet. Along the way they could clearly see many traces left by the Cyan Fox 9 bandits when they came in last time. DeBeo tried his best to erase these traces and restore the original appearance of the secret treasure. At this moment, Big Bao, who had been leading the way, suddenly turned around to look at the wall beside him. Then he let out a cry of surprise. When he arrived in front of the stone wall, a hammer and chisel had appeared in his hands. Then he began to knock on the stone wall with clanging sounds. Green Tiger did not understand and said, "Isn't this just a stone wall? Other than being dug, everything else is naturally formed. Could it be that Thieving Heaven Laozu has the ability to hide things through the stone wall?" Everyone looked at DeBeo, even Lu Ping did not know what was behind this stone wall. This treasure was protected by a formation. His divine sense could not detect anything, and his eyes obviously could not see through the stone wall. At this moment, with a crisp sound of DeBeo knocking on the stone wall, a cloud of spiritual energy suddenly spurted out from the hole in the stone wall, and in the crystal light, a spirit stone appeared in front of everyone. "Isn't it just a top-grade spirit stone? Don't make a fuss about it." But this rat demon's nose is really good. He can even find the spirit stone behind a stone wall more than a foot thick. Green Tiger did not know why he was a bit talkative at this time. A slightly childish voice rang out. Jianghu glared at the source of the voice, only to see Lu Xiaohai say coldly, "Don't forget that most of the rat demon clan inherited the bloodline of Taoist who, which is the same origin as you. The bloodline of the spirit-seeking rat is thin and can only be regarded as a low-level demon clan, but its bloodline has never changed." Green Tiger glared at him and said angrily, "Boy, who gave you the right to speak?" Lu Xiaohai looked at Green Tiger with contempt and said, "You only have a quarter of the multicolored tiger bloodline. How dare you be arrogant in front of me?" Chapter 1198. The Cyan Fox 9 bandits had roamed the world of cultivation for many years, and their hearts were proud and unyielding. Although they acknowledged Lu Ping as their master, they also had their own stubbornness. However, this stubbornness was exposed by Jianghu, who had a slightly irascible temperament. As a result, their stubbornness was met with a powerful counterattack from Lu Xiaohai. The Northern Ice Plains multicolored tiger clan was also a top-grade demon clan left behind by Taoist whose bloodline. It was one of the three largest tiger clans along with the Western Desolation white-fronted tiger clan and the Endless Mountain Range tiger clan. Most of the Cyan Fox 9 bandits were mixed-blood humans and demons. Jianghu had a quarter of the multicolored tiger clan's bloodline flowing through his veins. He didn't expect that someone would be able to see through him with just a glance. Moreover, this person seemed to be a demon cultivator who had just advanced to the late core forging stage. How could Jianghu not be afraid of this person? He shouted, "Who are you?" Although Lu Xiaohai was now a late core forging stage cultivator, he looked like a 13 or 14-year-old in human form. He was only slightly stronger than his peers. Hearing Jianghu's question, Lu Xiaohai opened his mouth and let out a loud roar. Lu Ping's followers weren't affected by the pressure, but the remaining 6 of the Cyan Fox 9 bandits all carried the monster race's bloodline. They could clearly feel the pressure from their bloodline. Jianghu looked behind Lu Xiaohai with surprise in his eyes. He saw that the spirit qi behind Lu Xiaohai was surging, and it gradually condensed into the shadow of a huge white tiger with hanging eyes. The white-fronted tiger clan. Jianghu exclaimed, "You're actually from the white-fronted tiger clan." Lu Xiaohai snorted coldly and didn't say anything. Bang! Suddenly, a loud noise was heard. It was Debao who was laughing heartily at the side. When everyone looked over, they saw that Debao had pried out the high-grade spirit stone from the wall. Lu Ping had been watching the confrontation with cold eyes. Only now did he open his mouth and ask, "Did you find something?" Debao patted the stone wall and said, "Behind this stone wall is a spirit stone vein, a large spirit stone vein." What? Exclamations of shock rang out from the crowd. Jianghu exclaimed, "Impossible, the 9 Profound Mountain is so close to the 9 Profound Tower, it can be said to be the 9 Profound Tower's backyard. If there really is a large spirit stone vein here, how could the 9 Profound Tower not know about it?" Debao snickered, "When did Treasure Master say that this mine doesn't belong to the 9 Profound Tower?" Qing Lang furrowed his brows and asked, "If it's the 9 Profound Tower's spirit stone mine, then it's even more unreasonable. Why didn't the 9 Profound Tower seal the spirit stone mine with the vein suppression spirit lock formation? Sealed, they are naturally sealed, but it doesn't look like the meridian suppression spirit lock great array." Treasure Lord was naturally beside himself with joy at this moment. No matter what, Ancestor Thieving Heaven had already secretly opened a gap in this formation. As long as he was willing, he could use the instincts of the spirit-seeking Mouse clan to open this gap at any time. I'm afraid this is the inheritance that Ancestor Thieving Heaven left behind for our spirit-seeking Mouse clan. It is a pity that in the last 10,000 years, no spirit-seeking Mouse clan's younger generation was able to inherit any of his inheritance. Thieving Heaven Laozu had left an ingenious hole in the formation of the 9 Profound Tower's spirit stone mine, making it so that the 9 Profound Tower had not discovered it in the last 10,000 years. And this hole was not a hole, in fact, it was opened by the instinct of the spirit-seeking mice. Lu Ping quickly asked, "Can this spirit stone mine be closed after it is opened?" Debao said, "Of course it can be closed. Our mouse demon race is good at running small streams over a long period of time. We will not do something like killing the goose that lays the golden eggs to catch the fish." Lu Ping nodded, "That's good, let's go find the other treasures first, this spirit vein will come last." Everyone agreed, stealing the spirit stone mine was not something that could be completed in a short period of time. Moreover, the mine itself could not be left, so it was the same when they excavated it. At this time, it was more important to find the Thieving Heaven Divine Axe and Thieving Heaven Pill. Debeo placed the chiseled stones back into the wall one by one, and the broken stones reformed into a complete stone wall. The group moved forward for another 100 feet, and along the way, they could still see the traces left behind by Jianghu and the rest when they entered the inheritance, and Debeo also found more than 10 things in this distance. Although none of them were precious, the most precious were only 2 ordinary strange items. There was no lack of a mid-grade spirit stone, a low-grade magic tool, and other things that were dispensable in the eyes of the group. However, everyone could see that every item that Debeo found had been carefully hidden by someone, clearly the work of Laozu the Thieving Heaven. As a Dharma adept, why would he spend so much energy on these insignificant things? No one could figure out what this ancestor was thinking. Only Debao was happily looking around for them. It's here. Last time we were ultimately stopped here. Jianghu looked at the barrier in front of the tunnel entrance and turned to speak to Lu Ping. The light blue barrier was like an upright sea level, and Lu Ping's eyes flashed with green light, but he asked, "What method did you use to enter last time?" Azure Fox said, "Ninth Sister had some understanding of formations, and she was only a hair's breadth away from becoming a formation master. However, she was powerless against this barrier. It's a pity that Ninth Sister was severely injured when she tried to forcibly break through the formation. Otherwise she wouldn't have died. Forcibly broke the formation, no wonder." Lu Ping smiled bitterly. Thieving Heaven Ancestor created such a divine temple space in the inheritance, and the reason why it could be hidden in the Nine Shen Mountain is because this space is attached to the Nine Shen Mountain sect guarding array. When you two tried to break the array by force, you actually faced the backlash of the entire Nine Shen Mountain sect guarding array. You were lucky to only be injured and not killed. At this moment, Lu Ping finally understood the mysteries of the Thieving Heaven's treasure. The treasure was attached to the Nine Shen Mountain's array formation and created this space. No wonder the Nine Shen Tower didn't discover it. No wonder the large spirit stone mine discovered by Debeo wasn't protected by the vein suppression spirit lock array formation. The spirit stone mine was directly within the range of the Nine Shen Mountain's array formation, so there was no need for the array formation to protect it. Jianghu naturally knew what the sect protection formation meant, but to be able to find a loophole in the sect protection formation, how powerful was this Thieving Heaven Laozu? Hearing this, Jianghu immediately shouted, "What? The sect protection formation of the sacred land? Then let's quickly retreat. No one will be able to break this barrier." Lu Ping smiled faintly and said, "Although this barrier is an array formation drawn from one of the sect guarding arrays, it can only be considered as borrowing it. It's far from the 9 mystical pavilions sect guarding array formation." As soon as Lu Ping's voice faded, he opened his hands and 2 charms appeared on his palms. Rays of 5-colored light burst out from the charms. Then Lu Ping placed his palms on the blue barrier and the 5-colored light shone brightly. The 7th Jianghu of the Jianghu 9 bandits looked at the 5-colored light in Lu Ping's hands and exclaimed, "Ah, 5-colored restriction breaking talisman." As soon as he finished speaking, he saw that the wave-like blue shield in front of him was corroded by the 5-colored light, leaving 2 huge holes. Furthermore, the holes were constantly expanding. In the end, the blue shield completely turned into spiritual energy and dissipated in the air. "It's broken." Debeo excitedly ran towards the stone room behind the barrier, but before he could take 2 steps, he abruptly stopped. Then with a plop, he knelt on the ground, his head abruptly smashing into the ground. Lu Ping and the others also walked into the stone room, and when they saw Debeo's sudden action, they thought they had fallen into an ambush and stopped in their tracks. Lu Ping raised his head to look at where Debeo knelt, and saw a huge rat corpse that was 3 meters long in a corner of the stone room. This huge rat corpse only had a skeleton and a piece of rat skin left, and the abdomen of the corpse was clearly caved in, showing that it had suffered a heavy injury. Under the left front claw of the huge rat was a crescent-shaped axe that was 2 feet long, and the blade was half a foot long. Seeing that Debeo knelt on the ground without saying anything, Lu Ping asked softly, "Is this the remains of Laozu the thieving god?" Debeo nodded, "There's no mistake, it's the bloodline of the spirit-seeking mice." Then Debeo pointed at the axe that was pressed by the huge rat corpse and said, "That's almost the thieving god's axe." Jianghu and the others all looked at this famous spiritual treasure in the cultivation world, but Lu Ping only glanced at it, and then looked around the stone room. Seeing that Lu Ping did not pay attention to the axe, Jianghu walked up and wanted to take the spiritual treasure in her hand, but Lu Ping suddenly said, "Do you know that spiritual treasures have spirits?" Jianghu was stunned and she took 2 steps back. Then she heard Lu Ping's voice, "Come out, how long can you hide?" As soon as Lu Ping's voice fell, the axe that was pressed under the huge rat corpse suddenly broke free from the huge rat's claw, and a series of runes flashed on the surface of the axe. The axe flew up on its own, and then chopped in the direction of Lu Ping, and a blade light appeared in front of Lu Ping. Jianghu and the others were shocked. When the axe flew up on its own, they could see that it was indeed a first tribulation spiritual treasure, but the power of the axe was beyond their expectations. However, Lu Ping seemed to be prepared for this. Just before the axe chopped at him, he had already used the thin flowing water sword. When the blade light was about to touch him, the two sword lights from the flying revolving chain slash arrived one after the other, and neutralized the blade light. The power of the thin flowing water sword when combined could even compete with a second tribulation spiritual treasure, but this time, it did not gain the upper hand when it collided with the axe, which was also a first tribulation spiritual treasure. It should be known that the giant axe was not controlled by anyone, nor was it supported by spiritual ether. Under such circumstances, it was still able to withstand Lu Ping's great divine swordsmanship, which meant that the quality of the axe was better. Chapter 1199. Since there was no one controlling the axe, the body that was suspended in the air seemed to be swaying after the blow. Lu Ping looked at it and smiled, "Still not coming out? What? Do you still want to use the last blow to prepare for another attack?" Everyone seemed to be a little puzzled. Only Jianghu seemed to have realized something, but she did not find the expected hidden object with her divine sense. Then she heard Lu Ping said, "You have seen the effect of the blow just now. Now you should still have the power to make another attack. What else do you think you can do?" At this time, everyone had already followed Lu Ping's gaze to the giant rat corpse lying on the ground. They were shocked. Could it be that thieving Heaven Laozu was still alive? Or did he leave some tricks behind? Otherwise, how could he still control the axe to attack them? Just as everyone was thinking about it, they heard a sneaky voice suddenly sounded from the giant rat corpse. "Who are you? Why did you come to the old man's cave mansion?" The image of a short, shriveled, long-bearded, shifty-eyed old man immediately appeared in everyone's consciousness. Could it be that this person was really thieving Heaven Laozu? It had been so many years, yet he was still alive. Lu Ping smiled and said, "You really know how to play tricks." As expected of thieving Heaven Laozu's spiritual treasure. After saying that, Lu Ping stretched out his hand towards the direction of the giant rat. The axe that had fallen to the ground again rose into the air, but this time, it flew towards Lu Ping's hand. Suddenly, an invisible force rose from the back of the axe and pulled the axe flying towards Lu Ping from the opposite direction. Suddenly the axe was fixed in the air again. Lu Ping smiled slightly. He stretched out his palm and hooked his forefingers back. The axe slowly pulled towards Lu Ping again. Obviously, the strange force was not a match for Lu Ping at all. However, at this time, the voice that sounded from the giant rat corpse suddenly let out a smug sneer. Then, the surface of the axe suddenly lit up with a light that was more devastating than before. The force pulling the axe in the opposite direction suddenly disappeared, and the axe suddenly chopped towards Lu Ping at a speed faster than before. In an instant, the axe arrived before Lu Ping. However, the scene of Lu Ping panicking and closing his eyes to wait for death did not appear. Instead, a smile appeared on Lu Ping's face. He only had time to say one sentence. "After nearly 10,000 years, you can still maintain your spirituality to this extent. Not bad." Then 9 layers of light burst out from Lu Ping's palm. Each ray of light formed a large hand of spiritual energy that wrapped around the hand of spiritual energy in front of it. Then, the large hand of spiritual energy moved towards the axe that was coming towards him. However, each of the large hands of spiritual energy that clenched onto the axe was cut through layer by layer. Then, the bright light on the axe was constantly being worn away. After the 9th layer of the golden meteorite astral shield was cut through, the light on the axe had mostly dissipated. Next, it was time to face Lu Ping's body. The strange laughter rang out once more. Although the power of the axe had been reduced by more than half, it was still not something that a cultivator's body could block. However, Lu Ping just happened to block it. The index finger and thumb of his right hand happened to pass through the light and accurately pinched the axe's body. The axe could not move even half an inch forward in midair. The strange laughter stopped abruptly as if it was pinched by the neck. Not only that, but the people around Lu Ping were also stunned for a moment. Even if the power of the axe had mostly dissipated, it was still not something that a cultivator could block with their body. However, Lu Ping used his body to block the attack and forcibly grabbed the spiritual treasure in his hand. Just how strong was Lu Ping's body? In the end, a long and thin bloody mark was left on the web between Lu Ping's thumb and forefinger. Drops of blood seeped out and then a blue light flashed. After refining the Wonder Dew, Lu Ping's essential energy contained a powerful life force. It had a unique advantage when it came to healing injuries. For example, small wounds like these usually healed very quickly. Still not coming out? Lu Ping held the axe in his left hand. Then he stretched out his right hand and pointed it in the direction of the mummy. Don't, I surrender, I surrender. A black light flew out of the mummy's mouth and quickly hid behind Debeo. It turned into a humanoid shadow. It really was a shriveled old man. He timidly peeked out from behind Debeo and looked at Lu Ping. Jianghu hesitated for a moment, then asked, "Are you the weapon spirit of the heaven-stealing axe?" Among everyone present, the little old man seemed to feel a sense of familiarity from Debeo's aura. In the face of Jianghu's question, the little old man did not say a word. He just hid behind Debeo and did not dare to come out. However, his eyes would occasionally look at Lu Ping, who was not far away and no longer paying attention to him. Among everyone present, only Lu Ping made him feel a deep sense of fear. Otherwise he would not have concentrated his only 2 attacks on Lu Ping. Hey old man, I'm asking you a question. Why are you always hiding behind Treasure Master? Debeo turned around several times, but the old man's ability was much greater than his. No matter how he turned, the old man was always able to hide behind him. After a long time, Debeo felt an eerie feeling at the back of his neck, which made his hair stand on end. The old man's strange voice sounded behind Debeo. "What is the relationship between you and that dead mouse lying on the ground? I can feel that your auras are too similar." Debeo protested, "That is our spirit-seeking mouse clan's old senior, Laozu the thieving heaven he is." "Hey, that's not right." "Hey, aren't you the weapon spirit of the heaven-stealing axe? Shouldn't you know more about him than me?" The old man's eyes were suddenly at a loss. Although his figure was extremely illusory, Debeo's question just now had clearly puzzled him. He forcefully pulled his beard and said, "What do I know? What is the heaven-stealing axe that you are talking about? Is it the axe that was snatched by that person? If that is the case, then the old man is indeed the weapon spirit of that axe, but I don't know about that big mouse. But his corpse is very comfortable inside. I have always been inside all these years." Debeo asked again, "All these years? How long has it been?" "How long?" The old man was confused again. "A very long time. I have always been here. I can't remember clearly." At this time Lu Ping's voice suddenly sounded again. "Oh, so that's how it is." Once Lu Ping's voice sounded, the old man was immediately frightened and hid behind Debeo, not even daring to show his head. Debeo asked Lu Ping, "Boss, what's wrong?" Lu Ping smiled and said, "You have been following me around all these years and have seen a lot of rare treasures. How can you not know that without the nourishment of primeval essence, a weapon spirit's spirituality will dissipate and even return to being a spirit-nurturing treasure? Even if the weapon spirit's body doesn't dissipate, the weapon spirit's memory will slowly dissipate. The heaven-stealing divine axe behind you was able to persist for 10,000 years without dissipating. It is already very rare. Do you think it can remember anything?" Debeo said, "But the power of this guy's 2 attacks just now was not small. There is no trace of spirituality dissipating at all." Lu Ping said, "This is also what I was puzzled about just now. Now it seems that all the mysteries are under this thieving heaven Laozu's corpse and the heaven-stealing divine axe's spirituality. Although this heaven-stealing divine axe was only a first tribulation spirit treasure, its quality was obviously among the best among the first tribulation spirit treasures. It even had some of the characteristics of a second tribulation spirit treasure. Out of the weapon spirit's instinct, it could even absorb and refine a part of the spiritual energy and store it in the spirit treasure itself. This was the fundamental reason why the heaven-stealing divine axe could achieve 2 attacks before. It was just that the spiritual energy absorbed and stored by the body was not refined by the cultivator's primeval essence, so it had no use for the spirit treasure's weapon spirit. Therefore this weapon spirit looked so weak that only a thin shadow was left, and it could collapse at any time. And thieving heaven Laozu's method was even more brilliant. He clearly drew out a branch vein from the 9 mystical towers spirit vein to suppress this stone room. Originally it might have been to recuperate in this stone room, but when Lu Ping looked at the collapsed abdomen of the giant rat's corpse, he clearly did not wait for thieving heaven Laozu to heal and died because of his heavy injuries. On the other hand, due to its instinct to protect itself, the artifact spirit of the heaven-stealing divine axe hid itself in the corpse of the giant rat, which was why it could barely keep its spiritual body from dissipating after nearly 10,000 years. However, its memories and the like had all disappeared, leaving only its instinct to protect itself. Debeo did not give up and asked the old man behind him, "Heaven-stealing divine axe, thieving heaven Laozu, spirit-seeking rat, treasure-seeking rat, you don't remember any of them?" The old man shook his head and said, "They all sound familiar, but I can't remember anything." Lu Ping shook his head and said, "Don't talk nonsense, I'm sure you know your current situation better than anyone else. If you don't want to dissipate, quickly find someone to recognize as your master. With the nourishment of primeval essence, you can slowly recover your spirituality." The old man was extremely afraid of Lu Ping and did not dare to object to any of Lu Ping's orders, but he still asked timidly, "Then I'll recognize this little fatty as my master? This little fatty is so nice and kind." Debeo immediately beamed with joy, but Jianghu beside him was not the slightest bit annoyed. Lu Ping laughed coldly and said, "He only has a little bit of cultivation. Even if you break open his bone marrow and suck him dry, he won't be able to satisfy your needs. Don't even think about it before he enters the Dharma stage." The old man's eyes darted around 7 or 8 times and he said, Then can I follow you?" Lu Ping glared at him and pointed at Jianghu saying, "I don't need her. Stop talking nonsense and just follow her." The old man was slightly disappointed, but seeing that Jianghu seemed to be the most powerful person among them besides Lu Ping, and hearing from Lu Ping's tone, it seemed that the little fatty in front of him would still follow Debeo after he grew up. The old man could only nod. Then the old man turned into a streak of black light and flew toward the heaven-stealing divine axe in Lu Ping's hand. Lu Ping threw the axe in his hand, and the black light disappeared into it, then flew into Jianghu's hand. Jianghu suddenly spat out a stream of pure primeval essence into the axe in her hand, and the heaven-stealing divine axe immediately shone with a black light. Chapter 1200. Seeing that the thieving divine axe was gradually being refined by Jianghu, Lu Ping slowly walked forward and bowed to the giant rat's corpse, then turned to the others and said, "This stone room may be connected to other stone rooms and secret pavilions. Everyone, split up and search, see if you find any pill recipes, spirit pills or spirit herbs, please hand them over to me." Lu Ping's words were, in fact, a way to tell the crowd that whatever was found would belong to the person who found it. Naturally, the crowd was delighted. However, when they saw Lu Ping bowing to the giant rat's carcass, they also searched carefully and didn't destroy anything in the stone chamber. After all, Lu Ping was an extremely famous alchemy grandmaster, so Jianghu and the others naturally knew about him. They also understood that Lu Ping's main goal in entering the Thieving Heaven's inheritance was to obtain the various Thieving Heaven pills refined by Laozu. This stone chamber was extremely spacious. It was more than 10 zhang long and several zhang wide. There were many stone cabinets, stone cupboards and stone shelves around the stone walls. Everyone rummaged through them and from time to time, they would make a pleasant discovery. Only Jianghu did not search for treasures with the others. After refining the thieving divine axe, Jianghu was still nourishing it with true yuan. Although the weapon spirit of the thieving divine axe had been nourished by the spirit vein in the stone room for close to 10,000 years, its spirituality was still severely damaged. If not for everyone's discovery, the weapon spirit would probably disappear in a few decades. This was also the reason why the weapon spirit so easily followed Lu Ping's instructions and chose a new master after being defeated by Lu Ping. Jianghu naturally knew that if she wanted to dig deeper into the thieving divine axe's potential and make it more compatible with her, this was the most crucial moment, and Jianghu naturally would not let go of this opportunity. Moreover, the most precious item in the treasure trove was already in her hands. She had her own discerning eyes, so she wouldn't search for other treasures in the treasure trove with the others. Lu Ping turned to Debeo and said, "What do you plan to do with the giant rat's corpse?" Debeo said, "This is indeed the thieving heaven Laozu. No ordinary rat demon would have such a huge body. Only the thieving heaven Laozu who had advanced to the Dharma stage could do so. Although the Jiushuan Tower did not discover his death here, once we leave the thieving heaven's inheritance, that may not be the case, so I plan to take the corpse with me." Lu Ping nodded and saw Debeo step forward with a storage instrument in his hand. A yellow light enveloped the giant rat's corpse, and when the light faded, the corpse had already been stored in Debeo's storage instrument. After the giant rat's carcass disappeared, Lu Ping saw that there was a secret chamber behind the carcass. It was just that no one noticed it because it was blocked by the giant rat's carcass, not even their divine senses. Lu Ping used his divine sense to explore the entrance of the secret room, and found that this time his divine sense had successfully entered the secret room through the hole. Not only that, the thick spiritual qi in the stone room was also leaking out from this secret room, and the branch vein that the thieving heaven Laozu had drawn from the Jiushuan mountain spirit vein was in that secret room. Lu Ping turned to Debao and said, "After we return, before we bury the thieving heaven Laozu's corpse, see if there are any treasures hidden in it." Debao and Lu Ping had been partners for a long time, so he naturally knew what Lu Ping meant, so he nodded and said, "Don't worry." Although the stone room was huge, the secret room was extremely small, especially the entrance to the secret room, which was not high. Otherwise, it would not have been blocked by the corpse of the giant rat. Debao could be considered short and fat, but he still had to lower his head slightly to pass through the entrance of the secret room. However, the height of the door was about the same as that of the shriveled old man who had been the weapon spirit of the heaven-stealing divine axe. The two entered the secret room one after another, and the first thing they saw was a 5 feet tall pitch-black pill furnace standing in the center of the secret room. Lu Ping and Debao looked at each other, and they could see the excitement in each other's eyes, because both of them could see that the pill furnace in front of them was a magic treasure pill furnace that was fused with a treasure restriction. There were 2 big words engraved on the black and shiny furnace wall: Thieving Heaven. This was the most direct connection to Thieving Heaven Laozu that Lu Ping and the others saw after entering this treasure trove. Previously, everyone had almost confirmed that this treasure trove was left by Thieving Heaven Laozu, and there was also the giant rat corpse and the axe spirit treasure lying in the stone room. But after all, the cultivation level of the rat corpse could not be seen, and the spirit treasure spirit had long lost its memory inheritance, so there was no evidence that could directly prove that this treasure trove was left by Thieving Heaven Laozu. But now that this magic treasure pill furnace was engraved with the words, Thieving Heaven, it made Lu Ping very clear that this treasure trove was indeed left by Thieving Heaven Laozu. Lu Ping walked forward and slapped the wall of the pill furnace and the lid flew up. Debao jumped on the edge of the pill furnace, looked inside the pill furnace, then sniffed and said, "There were pills inside, but after such a long time they have already become useless pills." The moment the lid flew up, Lu Ping had already judged from the smell that the pills inside were already useless, but Lu Ping still carefully took out the 3 loose pills and 2 small piles of pill ashes, and put them into 5 jade bottles. From the reputation of Thieving Heaven Pill, this Thieving Heaven Laozu was definitely a top alchemy grandmaster. Whether these 5 useless pills were Thieving Heaven pills or not, it was worth Lu Ping to carefully investigate them. If they were really Thieving Heaven pills, Lu Ping could at least find some of the spirit herbs needed for the pill recipe from these useless pills. At this time, Debao was already lying at the bottom of the cauldron. There was a spirit gathering formation below, which should be used to nourish the spirit fire for pill refinement. However, the spirit stones embedded in the spirit gathering formation plate had already turned into ashes, and the center of the spirit gathering formation, which was originally used to ignite the spirit fire, was also empty. Debao sniffed at the center of the spirit gathering formation and sighed, "Boss, it's a pity the spirit fire ignited in this spirit gathering formation is at least heaven rank. It's a pity that the spirit energy has dissipated and the spirituality is lost. This spirit fire is also useless." Lu Ping looked at the traces of the spirit fire in the center of the spirit gathering formation and nodded. "It is indeed a pity, this is a heaven-rank middle-grade flying duck dazzling fire. Although its effect in pill refinement is not as good as the silver dew spirit fire, it is still a famous spirit fire in the cultivation world." When Debao heard this, he felt even more distressed. Lu Ping smiled and said, "To be able to find a magic treasure cauldron is already a heaven-rank pill furnace. Don't be greedy, don't push your luck." Debao looked around the secret room and saw that there were stone shelves on 3 sides of the secret room. On the shelves there were jade bottles of pills, jade boxes used to store spirit herbs, and dozens of different kinds of jade slips. Debao had already excitedly rushed towards the stone shelves, while Lu Ping walked towards the stone shelves containing the jade slips. Debao shouted, "Boss, don't you want to take a look at these spirit pills and spirit herbs? Maybe inside are the Stealing Heaven pill and the spirit herbs used to refine the Stealing Heaven pill." Lu Ping smiled and said, "After nearly 10,000 years, even if there is a spirit sealing talisman on the jade bottle, the medicinal properties of the pills inside have already lost and become useless pills. As for the jade boxes containing spirit herbs, I'm afraid it's the same, don't look at them." Unexpectedly, when Lu Ping said this and picked up a jade slip, the jade slip also broke into several pieces. Lu Ping was slightly surprised and picked up another jade slip. This jade slip was not broken, but the contents sealed inside had already disappeared without a trace. Debao's laughter came from the side and said, Boss, it seems that you didn't find anything there. Lu Ping pointed fiercely at Debao, then smiled helplessly. The passage of time was the most terrifying, even the jade slips sealed with all kinds of inheritance contents had broken. Lu Ping told Debao, whether there are usable spirit pills or spirit herbs in those jade bottles and jade boxes, take them away. If there is time in the future, this thieving heaven Laozu's attainments in pill refinement must be studied. With that said, Lu Ping's hand tightened. After more than 10 jade slips either broke or the contents sealed inside were annihilated, he finally found an intact jade slip. Lu Ping was overjoyed, and his divine sense immediately penetrated into the jade slip, but then the joy on his face froze. This was actually a blank jade slip. Lu Ping was annoyed and he was about to throw this jade slip away, but after his fingers pinched the surface of the jade slip, he was slightly stunned, then he raised the jade slip in his hand in front of his eyes. Green light flowed in his eyes, and his pupils even had a slight golden red color. Debao was surprised when he saw Lu Ping holding a jade slip in front of his eyes. Jade slips were usually imprinted with divine sense, and after being sealed, the cultivator could check the contents inside. It was the most intuitive and convenient method, but it was a bit strange for Lu Ping to look at a jade slip in front of his eyes. Boss, what's going on? Lu Ping's face also gradually showed a hint of surprise. Hearing Debao's question, he said, "This thieving heaven Laozu is very unique. The content of a pill recipe is not engraved in the jade slip with divine sense, but carved on the jade slip with the method of carving in the mortal world. But this carving is obviously much more subtle than the carving of mortals. If I didn't notice it when I touched it just now, even I would have missed it." Debao smiled and said, "Seeing boss is so excited, the content carved on this jade slip must be extraordinary." Lu Ping nodded and sighed. Thieving heaven old ancestor is truly a knowledgeable person. There are many different kinds of thieving heaven pellets in the cultivation world, but this one is probably the only one that can truly be considered as the thieving heaven. No, it's not just thieving heaven, it's heaven defying. Debao suddenly became spirited and hurriedly asked, "What is recorded on it?" Lu Ping threw the jade slip into Debao's hands and said, "Calamity Thunder Pill." Thieving heaven Laozu called this pill the Calamity Thunder Pill. You can look at the specific content yourself. As long as you use your eyesight a little, you will be able to see it. Calamity Thunder Pill. Debao looked at the jade slip suspiciously, just like how Lu Ping did, and after a while he exclaimed, This is impossible." Lu Ping smiled. "Why is it impossible? Otherwise, how could thieving heaven Laozu pass the first thunder trial and advance to the middle Dharma stage?" Chapter 1201. The Thunder Calamity Pill, as the name suggested, was a pill that could withstand the thunder calamity. However, this kind of heaven-defying pill could only be used to withstand one thunder calamity, and it could only withstand the 9th thunder calamity and the first thunder calamity. The others were useless. In other words, to use the Thunder Calamity Pill, not only could it only be used when a cultivator entered the mid-Dharma stage for the first Thunder Calamity, but it could only be used after the first 8th Thunder Calamity. I really didn't expect the thieving heaven ancestor to be able to refine such a magical pill. It's not that he could refine such a pill, but I didn't expect him to have obtained a relic from the creation of the heavens. A relic from the creation of the heavens? Debao exclaimed, turning the jade slip in his hand over and over again. He asked doubtfully, "That's it? This is a relic from the creation of the heavens?" Lu Ping took the jade slip from Debao's hand, weighed it in his hand and said, "Maybe it can't be considered a relic from the creation of the heavens. It's just that when the 7th patriarch opened the heavens, there were no jade slips passed down in the world of cultivation. The things used to record were just paper, jade tablets, or bamboo slips, and the recorded content was engraved on them. In order to make these things carry more content, the cultivators often used extremely fine characters." Debao said, "Yes, this can only prove that this jade tablet may be an item passed down from that time, but it can't be said to be a relic from the creation of the heavens, right? However, the quality of this jade slip is undeniable. The other jade slips had been turned to dust after nearly 10,000 years, but this jade slip is undamaged. This shows that it is extraordinary. Even if it is not a relic from the creation of the heavens, it is probably left behind by a powerful cultivator from the creation of the heavens." Lu Ping smiled faintly and said, "There's no need to rush to a conclusion. You have to take a look at the contents of this jade. Although the method to concoct the Tribulation Thunder Pellet is recorded in it, it's full of speculation and speculation. However, the last paragraph is very certain. It says that the Tribulation Thunder Pellet can be used to block the 9th lightning strike of the first lightning tribulation, but it has no effect on the 2nd, 3rd lightning tribulation, or even the 7th lightning strike of a certain lightning tribulation. This kind of certainty is completely different from the uncertainty and extreme hesitation in the introduction of the alchemy process. DeBeo said, "Boss, you mean these 2 paragraphs were not left behind by one person?" Lu Ping laughed and scolded, "Nonsense, can't you see that the font of the 2 paragraphs are different?" Obviously, the first person recorded this guess and the second person finally refined this kind of pill and tested its effect. However, there are still some things hidden in it. Your cultivation is not enough, so I'm afraid you can't see them. Lu Ping extended the jade slip to DeBeo again, but this time he did not hand it to him. Instead, a dense stream of spiritual essence surged in Lu Ping's hand, almost dyeing this warm white jade blue. Immediately after, a hidden sentence appeared in the upper left corner of this white jade. "Turtle Tao, ancestor of the South Sea, sit and listen." DeBeo was stunned. This was recorded by Taoist Gui's followers? Taoist Gui is the originator of alchemy in the world of cultivation. If this guess about the Tribulation Thunder Pill was written by Taoist Gui, and then meticulously recorded on jade slips by his followers, then it makes sense. Lu Ping nodded and said, "It should be so. It is said that Taoist Gui is fond of sleeping, and no one knows when he will come. In order to make it convenient for his followers to listen to his teachings when he wakes up, they almost always carry this kind of jade slip with them. Thus, when Taoist Gui, who is fond of sleeping, suddenly wakes up, he will only be awake for a day or two, or even an hour or two before falling asleep again. Therefore, his followers will try their best to record his lectures every time he temporarily wakes up, and then comprehend them later. Because most of the time, Taoist Gui will not repeatedly explain during his lectures, so these followers will not have the time to comprehend on the spot." DeBeo sighed, "This kind of heaven-defying panacea is only a record of Taoist Gui's guess. I didn't expect it to actually work. The 7th Patriarch of Heaven Splitter is really unfathomable and awe-inspiring." "But," DeBeo then asked doubtfully, "Boss, how do you know so much?" Lu Ping chuckled, "I was once instructed by a pure young Laozu, so I know a little more." DeBeo immediately exclaimed, "What? Boss, you were instructed by pure young Laozu? But how could I not know? Usually, DeBeo is always by boss's side, but he has never noticed that you were instructed by pure young Laozu." Lu Ping smiled but did not say anything. He turned around and began to read the other jade slips. On the side, DeBeo was still a little unwilling to give up. He said, "Boss, are we not going to refine such a heaven-defying panacea? This panacea is indeed amazing, but it's just a chicken rib." DeBeo shouted, "How can this be of little value? It can block a bolt of tribulation lightning. Have you seen the consequences of taking the Thunder Calamity panacea? Although your level of practice has reached the mid-Dharma stage, your lifespan will only increase by half. Not only that, but this kind of heaven-defying method also comes with a high price. The 9th lightning strike is the most important for the Dharma stage. Without the 9th lightning strike, the practitioner's ability will be lower than that of the same level practitioners, but the key is that they will not have a chance to improve further in the future. This Thunder Calamity panacea is actually a one-off deal." DeBeo was still unwilling to give up. He said, "I think this panacea is still useful, especially for those practitioners who are not very confident of surviving the lightning strikes." Lu Ping said, "Rather than risking your life to overcome the first 8 lightning bolts, it's better to give it a shot on the 9th lightning bolt. At the very least, you'll have a chance to improve after you succeed. Or you can make more preparations after you overcome the lightning tribulation and strengthen your foundation. It's better than failing at the last moment." DeBeo cried out, "Boss, do you think everyone is like you, hugging a treasure and summoning lightning strikes together to survive? There are thousands of practitioners in the world of practice, but how many of them can reach the mid-Dharma stage? How many practitioners reach the early Dharma stage as their limit? How many early Dharma adepts who summon their first lightning strike eventually fall at the 9th lightning strike? If there is a panacea that avoids the 9th lightning strike and a practitioner who is on the verge of death after surviving the first 8 lightning strikes, why would they care about their lifespan and the slowing down of their growth? Their priority would be to survive." Lu Ping thought about it and felt that what Zhou Donghuang said made sense. As he continued to search for a jade scroll that was still intact, he sighed and said, "What you said makes sense, but can't you take a good look at the contents of the jade scroll? How many types of spirit herbs are there in the world of practice today that are used to refine the Calamity Thunder Pill?" DeBeo was taken aback. He took a closer look at the various types of spirit herbs recorded in the Jade Scroll and gasped. He said, "My goodness, these are all priceless items that have disappeared from the world of practice a long time ago. If the Calamity Thunder Pill really needs to be refined with these things, then it's really not worth it." This time it was Lu Ping who said, "It's something that can save a life. How could it be worth it? It's just that the rare herbs used to refine the Calamity Thunder Pill might not have disappeared from the world of practice." DeBeo gasped and said, "Boss, you mean to say that these rare herbs only exist in the world of practice in the holy lands of the human race and the giant demon tribes? Could it be that the ancestor of the thieving heaven targeted the 9 mystical tower to steal the spirit herbs from the 9 mystical towers' herb garden to refine the Calamity Thunder Pill?" Lu Ping picked up a jade scroll and looked at it as he said, "That's just one possibility." After all, the thieving heaven Laozu was already in the mid-Dharma stage at that time. No one knows if he had used the Calamity Thunder Pill. However, he rarely fights with people in the world of practice and usually runs away when he sees people. So many people think that the thieving heaven Laozu is the weakest among the practitioners of the same level. After saying that, Lu Ping exclaimed, "The records on this jade scroll are also quite interesting." DeBeo saw that Lu Ping's gaze was not on the jade scroll and knew that this jade scroll was not like the previous one, where the contents were carved on the jade scroll. Instead, it was like a normal jade scroll, where the contents were checked using divine sense. DeBeo could not help but ask, "Is there anything unusual about it?" Lu Ping kept the jade scroll and said, "There's also an elixir recipe inside. It's a 6th grade Dharma pill." 6th grade? Dharma? DeBeo mumbled, "Could it be that this elixir?" Lu Ping nodded and smiled. Although a practitioner at the peak of the core forging stage who has condensed a 6th grade golden core still has a glimmer of hope of advancing to the Dharma stage, it's just too difficult. Practitioners often have to go through many hardships and pay a high price to fight for this slim chance of survival. Furthermore, advancing to the early Dharma stage is already the peak of a practitioner's practice. This 6th grade Dharma pill is a type of elixir used to forcefully raise the level of cultivation of a 6th grade golden core to the Dharma stage. Although there's still no possibility of advancing further after advancing to the early Dharma stage, it avoids many unknown pains and the price paid is relatively small. Also, the chances of success are higher. DeBeo said, "I'm afraid this kind of elixir is extremely difficult to refine, right?" Lu Ping nodded. However, compared to the time when Jinling had almost used the entire sect's power to push Qianlu and Tianjiang, the 2 Laozu from the 6th grade golden core to the early Dharma stage, the price paid for a 6th grade Dharma pill was much lower. This was also why Tianjiang and Qianlu, the 2 Laozu, were so determined to fight to the death for Jinling, especially Tianjiang Laozu who lived on his own will. Now, no one knew if the day Jinling's treasured ship would come to an end after it was repaired. Of course, this was partly because he had sacrificed his life for his ideals, but it was also because he was repaying a debt of gratitude. At this time, DeBeo's cheers came from the other side. He said, "Boss, come and take a look at these things." Chapter 1202. Compared to spirit grasses, spirit pills were easier for cultivators to refine and absorb, and they were the condensation of countless essences. But compared to spirit pills, it was easier for spirit grasses to maintain their medicinal properties, so they could be preserved for a longer period of time. Furthermore, thieving heaven Laozu created this secret room to store his pill refinement inheritance. It was just that too much time had passed. Close to 10,000 years was enough to erase all traces, but there were still some things left behind, including a portion of the spirit grasses that thieving heaven Laozu carefully preserved. Lu Ping was stunned when he saw the spirit herbs sealed in layers of spirit sealing charms. Then he was overjoyed. These spirit herbs were all rare and precious herbs in the cultivation world. Not only that, but they were also exceptionally mature. From the beginning to the end, all of them were at least 3,000 years old. Lu Ping carefully looked at the spirit herbs and said, "I'm afraid I'll have to use them as soon as possible." DeBao said, "That's right. Although a small portion of the spirit herbs have been preserved in the jade boxes, it is clear that the medicinal properties of the spirit herbs have reached their limit. After opening the jade boxes, I'm afraid they won't be able to hide for another 3 to 5 years before all the spirit herbs become useless. Let's keep them first." There were close to 100 jade boxes containing spirit grasses on the stone shelf, but the 2 of them only took away 10 jade boxes after searching for a long time. The spirit grasses in the other jade boxes were all wasted. In this stone room, of the 3 stone shelves on the stone walls, the spirit pills on the stone shelf were all scrapped. The stone shelf on the side with the inheritance jade slips only had 2 jade slips that recorded the pill formula. The stone shelf with the most harvest was the jade box that contained the spirit grass. DeBeo searched the entire stone chamber a few more times and found a bunch of random things. Naturally, none of them caught Lu Ping's attention. Even DeBeo couldn't bear to throw them away, so he kept them all into his interspatial mystic instrument. It's about time. We can't find anything else in this stone room. Let's go, boss. Outside the stone room, Jianghu and the rest, as well as Samling and the rest, had their own harvests. Thieving Heaven Laozu's inheritance was naturally very rich, but this Laozu clearly had a special hobby, which was to hide the treasures in pieces. No matter which corner they were in, they could find something. Sometimes an extremely valuable item wasn't hidden at all. Sometimes, after following a vague clue and racking one's brains, one could only obtain an ordinary item from an unimaginable place, which was a great disappointment. The treasures in the Thieving Heaven's inheritance have always been hidden for the sake of hiding, not because they are valuable. This is the nature of us spirit-seeking mice. Treasures are important, but it is more important to hide them well. DeBeo had previously been surprised by the endless number of treasures in the Thieving Heaven's inheritance, but DeBeo explained it like this. Therefore, no one can know the location of all the treasures in a Thieving Heaven's inheritance, and no one will know whether the treasures in a Thieving Heaven's inheritance have been searched or not. Therefore, every time a Thieving Heaven's inheritance is discovered, after a period of large-scale excavation, there will still be a continuous flow of people entering the Thieving Heaven's inheritance to search for treasures. Occasionally, someone will be lucky enough to find 1 or 2 items, causing every Thieving Heaven's inheritance to become a treasure land that will last for tens or even hundreds of years. It can be considered a miracle in the cultivation world. The secret room had 4 stone walls, 3 of which were filled with spirit pills, spirit herbs, and pill recipes. Only 1 stone wall was empty. It was just a stone wall, but at this time, Lu Ping's attention was attracted by this empty stone wall. DeBeo, go call the green fox here. One of Lu Ping's palms was already on this wall, and his eyes were no longer flickering with green light, but green golden light that illuminated the entire wall. His eyes had also turned golden red, and when he looked at DeBeo, DeBeo was so frightened that he took a step back. The group spent several hours in the treasure trove. Cyan Fox refined and nurtured the Sky Snatcher's divine axe for a while. When she was certain that the artifact spirit had been nurtured enough, she joined in the treasure hunt. When the green fox came in, Lu Ping's palms were already on the stone wall. At this time, not only DeBeo and the green fox, but the others also sensed that something was wrong. They all stood outside the secret room and looked in. They saw 2 dense bluish-purple lights flowing along the arms of the green fox and into the stone wall that Lu Ping's palms were on, and the front of the stone wall was dyed blue. Seeing the green fox come in, Lu Ping asked, "Can you use the thieving divine axe well?" The green fox looked at the stone wall and said, "I can use it well, but the more subtle monster trainers may need more time to practice." The green fox took out the thieving divine axe. The shriveled old man's appearance was obviously based on the appearance of the thieving Laozu from 10,000 years ago, but when he saw Lu Ping, he immediately nodded and bowed. Lu Ping asked, "Do you remember anything about this stone wall?" The thieving divine axe shook his head, and with a terrified expression he said, "No, I don't remember anything." Lu Ping nodded at the green fox and said, "Listen to my instructions later. Use the spirit treasure in your hand to cut a hole in this stone wall." Before the green fox could reply, DeBeo at the side already started to make a fuss. "Boss, is there some treasure hidden behind this stone wall? I said that 3 of the 4 walls in this secret room have stone shelves, and only this side is empty. Boss, your eyes are really sharp." Lu Ping waved his hand, and the Amethyst Wasp King was sent into the Golden House, and he scolded with a smile, "Stop flattering me, it is hard to say whether this stone wall is a blessing or a curse. In a while, the Green Fox, DeBeo, and Samling will follow me in, and the others will wait here and continue to search for the Thieving Heaven inheritance. If we do not return in 3 days, you will leave with everyone and immediately head north to Ingtian Courtyard and return to the Northern Sea." Lu Qiner wanted to say something, but the nearby DeBeo had already thought of something, and he said with a trembling heart, "Boss, behind this stone wall is the entrance to the 9 profound palace grotto heaven opened by the Thieving Heaven ancestor, right?" 3 5-colored rays of light rose from behind Lu Ping, and they stuck to the stone wall in 3 different directions. Lu Ping turned around and smiled, "You are right, Green Fox, do it, remember, cut not hack." The 3 5-colored rays of light stuck to the stone wall, and with the help of these 3 5-colored restriction-breaking talismans, the entire stone wall finally began to transform into a wave-like barrier. At this time, the blade of the thieving heaven divine axe fiercely slashed at the barrier, and a crack appeared on the barrier, but it quickly began to close up. Lu Ping's hands, which had been stuck close to the barrier, suddenly inserted into the crack that had yet to close up, and with a sudden pull, Lu Ping tore open a large hole in the crack. Spirit chi, denser than in the secret room, gushed out of the hole. Behind the hole was clearly a place with even denser spirit chi. Lu Ping entered the hole first, and Green Fox followed closely, followed by Debao and Samling. Then the hole in the barrier gradually closed up, and it became a stone wall again. In an unknown location, a spatial door suddenly opened. Lu Ping was the first to step out of the door, followed by two familiar presences rushing towards him from the left and right. However, these two presences were extremely strong, almost at the Avatar realm. Lu Ping was the first to step out of the spatial door, and he was the first to step out. Lu Ping was shocked, and he slashed out with his thin water-long stream sword, and the sharp sword aura rushed towards both sides like water from a broken dam. Then he heard two clear cries, and a large number of green feathers fell from the sky. This time it was Lu Ping's turn to be shocked. When these two auras had rushed down from the sky, the impact that each of them had on Lu Ping was no less than that of a mid-Dharma adept. How could Lu Ping be forced into such a pathetic state by two hasty slashes? At this time, Green Fox, Debao, Samling, and the others jumped out of the door one after another. Seeing the thin water-long stream sword circling around Lu Ping, they all felt as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Green Fox's strength was second only to Lu Ping, and she quickly discovered the two attackers. She said, "Each of us, let's deal with one each. Let's end this quickly or else something might happen." Unexpectedly, Lu Ping raised his hand to stop her. He said, "There's no rush, there's something fishy about this." The two auras slowly approached Lu Ping and the others, but they maintained a certain distance, as if they were extremely wary of Lu Ping's two slashes. At this time, Lu Ping raised his voice and said, "Elders Muluan, would you please show yourself?" Muluan? Green Fox was taken aback, and even Samling and Debao were surprised. Two middle-aged men dressed in green walked out slowly from behind a slope. The two of them, who had originally looked exceptionally tall and dignified, had two slashes on their chests and abdomen, and they looked extremely pathetic. The two of them looked at Lu Ping and the others with doubtful expressions, but they were also unusually cautious. The one on the left asked slowly, "You're not disciples of the Nine Shen Tower. Who are you?" Lu Ping did not answer directly but asked, "Are the two of you from the Muluan tribe that has lived here for generations?" The two Muluan looked at each other, and the one on the right was obviously impatient. He asked loudly, "Who are you? Tell us quickly, or we'll send out a warning and gather the Nine Shen Tower's disciples to surround and kill you." At this time Lu Ping finally calmed down. He chuckled and said, "I believe the two of you have already confirmed who we are. Moreover, if the two of you wanted to gather the Nine Shen Tower's disciples, I'm afraid you would have done so long ago. Why wait until now?" The two Muluan kept their mouths shut and only stood in the distance, facing off against Lu Ping and the others. They did not send out any warning or gather the Nine Shen Tower's disciples. Lu Ping seemed to have expected this, and he directly ignored the two Muluan. He beckoned to the one behind him and said, "Debao, this should be the Nine Shen Tower's grotto heaven that specializes in cultivating spirit herbs. Hurry up and pick the valuable, important and mature ones. Also, look for all the spirit herbs recorded in the two pill recipes you saw earlier. Remember, do not stray more than 30 li from me." Debao chuckled and said, "There are truly too many treasures here. I, Debao, have been waiting for a long time." As he finished speaking, a yellow cloud of dust rose from his feet. Debao had already used the earth evasion technique and disappeared. Chapter 1203. It was obvious that this was a grotto heaven in the Nine Profound Tower that was specially used to cultivate spiritual herbs. The terrain inside the grotto heaven was uneven, but it was filled with spiritual herb gardens. All kinds of spiritual herbs grew in different types, and they grew in different areas. Occasionally there were some medicinal trees that formed a lush forest. The rich spiritual chi nourished all the life in the grotto heaven. Lu Ping felt as if he could feel the vigorous vitality in the grotto heaven even as he breathed. Spirit-seeking mouse? The wood phoenix cultivator on the right looked in the direction that Debao had disappeared in bewilderment. It was unknown whether he was asking Lu Ping, the pale-faced wood phoenix cultivator on the left, or perhaps he was muttering to himself. Lu Ping seemed to know that Debao had not gone far. He said loudly, "Be careful. Don't make it too obvious. Only take what's useful. Don't give yourself away too much." The two wood phoenixes looked at each other. It was obvious that these people were treating them as nothing. Moreover, it seemed like they were planning to make a small long-term investment. Jianghu also looked at Lu Ping in surprise. "Are you planning to come again in the future?" Lu Ping looked in the direction of the two wood phoenixes and said, "Whether or not I can come again depends on these two seniors." When Jianghu looked over, the two wood phoenixes were already whispering to each other. She couldn't tell what they were discussing. Meanwhile, Lu Ping once again summoned the amethyst queen bee from the House of Gold. He ordered her to lead her subjects into the grotto heaven in a grandiose manner. Similarly, according to Lu Ping's orders, the amethyst bees would not leave the 30-kilometer radius that Lu Ping's divine sense could cover. Amethyst bees. The two wood phoenixes didn't even have time to discuss. They stared dumbfoundedly at the 3,000 amethyst bees charging into the sea of spiritual herbs under the amethyst queen bee's guidance. However, in just a short while, the two of them gasped again as they watched the three 14- or 15-year-old children walking into the cave. One of them exclaimed in a low voice, "Green sea snake." The other person muttered to himself, "Wind snake, water snake and ice snake. The descendants of the three strongest tribes of the green sea snake." Another two streaks of light descended from the sky. They were two attractive middle-aged women, both of them at the early Dharma stage. It was obvious that they had come to meet up with the two wood phoenix adepts because they had discovered the abnormality of this place. However, just like the two wood phoenix adepts, these two women did not attack Lu Ping and Green Fox. Green Fox was a little uneasy as she said, "What's going on? If these four were to join forces against us, I'm afraid they wouldn't be able to gain the upper hand in a short period of time. But they're all from the wood phoenix tribe. Once they warn us, we'll be like turtles in a jar." Lu Ping smiled faintly. If these people really wanted to hand us over to the 9 Mystical Tower, they would have warned the 9 Mystical Tower the moment we entered this cave. In fact, they didn't do anything at all. But when you came in just now, they attacked. Lu Ping nodded and said, "The two wood phoenixes indeed have strong training, but their abilities may not be that high. Even if you were to attack, those two might not be able to defeat you even if they joined forces." Green Fox was in disbelief. "How is that possible? The Wood Phoenix tribe is a top-level demon clan, and they are the direct descendants of the Yuan Daoist, who is as famous as the Fire Phoenix. With their level of training, they might not be weaker than me among the same level of practitioners." Lu Ping laughed loudly. "How many Wood Phoenixes are left of the Wood Phoenix tribe in the world of practitioners? I'm afraid the only ones left are the Wood Phoenix slaves that are raised in the caves of the various holy lands to cultivate spirit herbs. They are sacrificed at specific times to help the practitioners of the holy lands break through the bottleneck of their training. How strong do you think these Wood Phoenix slaves are? In order to control these demon slaves, why would the holy lands allow them to grow freely?" Green Fox naturally understood the logic behind this, but she still asked, "No matter what, the Wood Luan tribe is one of the most powerful tribes among the monster race. They have inherited their bloodline and memories, and this grotto heaven is rich in spirit chi and spirit herbs. It seems like the 9 Mystical Tower isn't controlling them but imprisoning them at most." Lu Ping laughed. "You don't know this, but although these top-level demons have inherited their bloodlines and memories, these things can only support their training before they reach the core forging stage. If they want to reach the Dharma stage and still maintain their advantage as a top-level demon clan, then they have to stay in the secret cave of the Wood Phoenix tribe for a long time. Otherwise, even if they reach the Dharma stage without the secret techniques and cultivation methods of the Wood Phoenix tribe, they can only gradually become mediocre. Furthermore, they have been imprisoned here their entire lives, and have never had any experience in fighting with others. Just now, when the two of them fought, they completely relied on their cultivation to win. How strong do you think they are?" The conversation between Lu Ping and Green Fox was not deliberately hidden, so the 4 Wood Phoenix cultivators heard it clearly. When Lu Ping finished speaking, the pale-faced Wood Phoenix cultivator could not help but ask, "Who are you? How do you know so many secrets of the Wood Phoenix tribe?" Lu Ping smiled. "In the end, you can't hold it in any longer. Naturally, we came in from outside the 9 Mystical Tower. As for what method we used to break through the protective array of the 9 Mystical Tower and enter, I believe that only the Wood Phoenix seniors know." The face of the Wood Phoenix cultivator with the silk scarf on his head immediately changed. He snorted coldly and said, "What are you talking about? We don't understand what you mean." Lu Ping did not comment on this person's denial. Instead, he answered the question of the Wood Phoenix cultivator, saying, although the Wood Phoenix tribe is on the verge of extinction, it is not extinct. I once had a good friend of the Wood Phoenix tribe, and he is currently cultivating in the secret cave of the Wood Phoenix tribe in the East Sea, so he knows a lot about your clan. Impossible. Is that true? The silk scarf Wood Phoenix and the pale-faced Wood Phoenix almost blurted out at the same time. The two of them looked at each other, both seeing shock and hope in the other's eyes. In the end, it was the silk scarf Wood Phoenix who said with a slight tremble, the Wood Phoenix tribe of the cultivation world really did not go extinct? Lu Ping shrugged and said, no, but I'm afraid it won't be long. Anyway, I've only seen one Wood Luan before. I've never heard any news about the Wood Luan clan in the cultivation world for the past few hundred years. Of course, there are rumors that there are ancient spirit birds and beasts like you in the sacred land. But I'm afraid your identities are a bit awkward, so no one will treat you as part of the Wood Luan clan. Lu Ping's words were extremely straightforward. The silk scarf cultivator's face showed anger, and the pale-faced Wood Phoenix became even paler. The two female Wood Phoenix cultivators also looked at Lu Ping with unsightly expressions, but there was also a hint of loneliness. Jianghu, on the other hand, became even more nervous, afraid that the Wood Phoenix would be angered by Lu Ping's sharp words and send a warning to the 9 mystical tower. Even though she still felt puzzled that the Wood Phoenix had not sent a warning to the 9 mystical tower, this was still what she hoped for. However, when she thought about infiltrating the inheritance cave of the 9 mystical tower, she felt an inexplicable excitement in her heart. Fellows, if you have anything to say, just say it. Looks like this sky grotto is a place specially used by 9 profound tower to grow spiritual herbs. You fellows must be the spiritual plant farmers here, right? However, given how important this place is, it is impossible for 9 profound tower to not send some cultivators to check on it frequently. In Jianghu's eyes, Lu Ping's words were as rude as possible, but the 4-aspect Azure Luan became calmer and calmer after hearing Lu Ping's words. It was truly strange. You came in through the passage opened by the thieving heaven Laozu? The 4 of them whispered to each other again. This time it was one of the 2 female Wood Phoenix cultivators who spoke. Lu Ping's expression was one of certainty. I didn't think that you would still be waiting after 10,000 years. It seems that the thieving heaven Laozu really did have some secret agreement with you when he entered this place. For you to be willing to keep this secret for almost 10,000 years, it must be because the thieving heaven Laozu promised to help you escape from the bondage of monster slaves. The female Wood Phoenix cultivator said fiercely, who would be willing to be a monster slave from birth? In every generation, other than leaving behind a few seeds, the rest of the clansmen would disappear. Needless to say, we know that they were killed by the 9 mystical tower and used to grow rare herbs to increase their cultivation. The other female Wood Phoenix cultivator thought of something and asked in surprise, You didn't know about this at all? Lu Ping smiled. That's right, but now I can roughly guess what is going on. The pale-faced Wood Phoenix cultivator asked, Then what's the deal with that spirit-seeking mouse of yours? Lu Ping said calmly, He is my follower and also my brother. Follower? Is there still such an existence in the cultivation world? You actually did not place restrictions on their divine senses? The silk turban Wood Phoenix was somewhat surprised and emotional. The other Wood Phoenix's expressions changed, even the green fox had a strange expression. Lu Ping found it funny. After placing restrictions on them, they can only be monster slaves and spirit pets like you. How can they be followers? How can they be brothers? Lu Ping did not care about what the Wood Phoenixes were thinking. He said directly, Back then, thieving heaven Laozu died from his injuries after leaving this grotto heaven. He naturally could not return to save you, and he also could not leave behind his last words to save you. Lu Ping did not care about their expressions. He continued, And if I am not wrong, the fatal injuries on thieving heaven Laozu's body were likely caused by your ancestor, right? Rather than saying that thieving heaven Laozu agreed to save you, it is more accurate to say that he was forced to do so. Chapter 1204. More than 9,000 years ago, the first time thieving Laozu stepped into the longevity grotto heaven, he was discovered by the Wood Luan demon slaves at that time. It was also at the place where Lu Ping and the rest appeared. The 2 mid-Dharma stage Wood Luan demon slaves joined forces and heavily injured Laozu, who had just entered. Having lost the inheritance of the Wood Phoenix clan after advancing to the Dharma stage, the strength of the demon slaves could only be considered mediocre among practitioners of the same level, but it was still not something that the thieving Sky Patriarch could withstand. Even though he was also a mid-Dharma adept, to be able to push his cultivation to the mid-Dharma stage, it was unknown how many tricks he had used, and how many coincidences he had encountered. With his cultivation and strength, it was not an exaggeration to say that he was the weakest among the practitioners of the same level, so how could he withstand the attack of 2 Wood Phoenix demon slaves? The heavily injured and captured thieving Laozu had no choice but to agree to the Wood Luan race's many conditions, the most important of which was that he would enter the Longevity Grotto Heaven in the future and bring the Wood Luan race's descendants out of the Grotto Heaven, so that they would not be enslaved by the 9 Shen Tower. For this, the Wood Luan demon slaves in the Grotto Heaven secretly helped thieving Laozu to steal a large number of rare herbs from the Longevity Grotto Heaven before letting him go. Of course, even if the Wood Luan demon slaves in the Longevity Grotto Heaven did not know the ways of the world, they still had to guard against thieving Laozu going back on his word after leaving the Grotto Heaven. Thus, they had a backup plan so that thieving Laozu would not be able to enter the Grotto Heaven again. Back then, when thieving Laozu entered the Longevity Grotto Heaven, he was captured by the ancestor of the Wood Luan demon slaves. However, at that time the Wood Luan demon slaves did not have any eggs that had not hatched yet, so they could not let thieving Laozu take them away. And after the Wood Luan race was born, they would be turned into demon slaves by the 9 Shen Tower's divine will. Even if they were not in the Longevity Grotto Heaven, their life and death were at the mercy of the 9 Shen Tower. With no other choice, the ancestor of the Wood Luan demon slave had no choice but to let thieving Heaven Laozu leave and agreed to enter the Grotto Heaven again to take the Wood Luan egg and raise it in the cultivation world. However, the Wood Luan demon slaves did not expect that the injuries they had inflicted on thieving Laozu, which were not considered serious, would be fatal. Thieving Heaven Laozu only had the cultivation of the mid-Dharma stage, but in reality he really could not take a beating. The plan of the Wood Luan demon slaves immediately came to nothing. This wait lasted for nearly 10,000 years. That year, the ancestor of the Wood Luan demon slaves had already become the meal of some powerful person in the 9 Shen Tower, while the Wood Luan demon slaves in the Longevity Grotto Heaven secretly passed down the information that there was a flaw in the Grotto Heaven left behind by thieving Heaven Laozu, hoping that someone from the outside could use this flaw to reopen the passage to the outside world. For this reason, every generation of Wood Luan demon slaves had been secretly preparing for this. Because thieving Heaven Laozu had entered the Grotto Heaven from here, the Wood Luan demon race built their nest in a forest not far from here. With regards to this request of the Wood Luan race, Lu Ping naturally would not refuse. Since he was already here, taking away some of the Wood Luan's descendants was just a matter of convenience. Moreover, this matter would only benefit Lu Ping. The sky above the forest was connected to form a huge nest. When Lu Ping and Green Fox arrived, the two discovered that this was actually a small colony of Wood Luan. Apart from the 4 Dharma stage Wood Luan demon slaves, there were also 3 pairs of Wood Luan demon slaves. 2 pairs were at the core forging stage, while the other pair was only at the blood condensation stage. We have already gathered all of our tribe members. There are 10 of them in total and they are all here now. However, we did not inform them of your arrival, so your followers will not meet them in the Grotto Heaven. The one who spoke was the Wood Luan cultivator with a silk scarf on his head. This person was Luan Xiao, and one of the 2 female Dharma adepts who came after him was his path companion, while the other was the path companion of the pale-faced cultivator. Lu Ping and Green Fox followed the 4 Dharma adepts of the Wood Luan race to the Grotto Heaven. They saw the pale-faced Wood Luan Qing raise his hand and slap an inconspicuous little tree near the nest. This little tree, which would at least be a top-grade spiritual material when it was fully grown, was instantly broken. However, the center of the broken little tree was hollow, and 2 snow-white eggs rolled out of it. Luan Qing carefully held the 2 snow-white eggs in his hands and caressed them for a while before handing the eggs over to Lu Ping under the dejected expression of his path companion. He said, "These are the descendants of my wife and I. Ever since our union we have only left 5 descendants. Other than these 2 who have been hiding in secret, of the remaining 3, 2 have hatched into adults, a boy and a girl. Both are now at the core forging stage. The girl was brought to the Wuxia school by the 9 mystical tower in exchange for a girl of the same cultivation level as the path companion of the boy. As for the other egg, it was taken away by the 9 mystical tower before it hatched. It is highly likely that it has already become someone's stomach." At this point, Luan Qing's path companion's voice was slightly choked as she said, "Fortunately, the Wood Luan race has a secret technique that allows us to preserve these eggs for almost 100 years. Otherwise, if you had come 10 years later, my 2 children would have died in the eggs before they hatched." Lu Ping received the 2 eggs and carefully placed them into the house of gold. Immediately after, Luan Xiao took out another egg from the heart of another tree and handed it over to Lu Ping. Wuxia had also given birth to 5 eggs with his path companion. 3 of them hatched, 2 were male and 1 was female. Of the 2 sons, 1 was exchanged for a path companion from the Purple Sun Palace, while the other had his golden core dug out by the 9 mystical tower after he advanced to the core forging stage. As for the remaining 2 eggs, 1 of them had died due to the passage of time. Only this one was still alive. Soon after, Wuxia took out another egg from the roots of another tree and said, "This is fellow Taoist Wuxia's descendant." Both husband and wife were taken away by the 9 mystical towers Zhu a few decades ago. I believe they were used to nourish her and help her break through to the pure Yang realm. I hope that you can take this egg with you and leave behind a descendant for fellow Taoist Wuxia. This wasn't the end of it. Qing also took out another 2 eggs from an unknown place. These 2 eggs looked much fresher than the previous 4. They should have been born not too long ago. Sure enough, Qing said, "These 2 eggs are the descendants of fellow Taoist Wuxia and I'll have to trouble you to take them with you." When Qing found these 2 eggs, Lu Ping had already noticed that there were 2 more eggs together with these 2 eggs. However, Qing didn't take them out. Lu Ping could guess that they were still somewhat worried about him. They were afraid that their descendants would enter the tiger's den right after leaving the wolf's den. Therefore, they didn't dare to hand over all of their descendants to Lu Ping. However, Qing and Wuxia's descendants had been eggs for too long. They couldn't keep them, so they had no choice but to hand them over to Lu Ping. However, they still kept some of their descendants. However, Lu Ping still asked, "Since fellow Taoist trusts me so much, aren't you afraid that I'll turn your descendants into demon slaves in the future?" Wuxia smiled bitterly, "There are demon slaves on both sides, how bad can it be? Handing them over to fellow Taoist can be considered a ray of hope. I can only hope that fellow Taoist compassion will allow the Wuduan clan to continue to exist in the cultivation world." Lu Ping put away the 5 Wuduan eggs and said, "I'll do my best." The 9 Profound Tower clearly didn't only have the Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven to cultivate spiritual herbs. However, without a doubt, the Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven was the 9 Profound Towers' most important place for cultivating spiritual herbs. Naturally, there were 9 Profound Towers cultivators stationed within the Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven. However, due to the existence of the Wuduan Yao slaves and the fact that the Heaven Grotto Heaven was incomparably vast, the cultivators guarding the Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven rarely paid attention to what was happening inside. Thus, with the help of the Wuduan Yao slaves and Lu Ping's deliberate evasion, the 9 Profound Towers' Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven remained undetected. The 9 Profound Tower had sent cultivators to guard the Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven. However, due to the existence of the Wuduan Yao slaves and the incomparably vast Heaven Grotto Heaven, the cultivators guarding the Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven rarely paid attention to what was happening inside. Thus, with the assistance of the Wuduan Yao slaves and Lu Ping's deliberate evasion, the 9 Profound Towers' Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven remained undetected. Not to mention, this was just one of the 9 Profound Towers' Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven. During these 3 days, Lu Ping's harvest could be described as a fruitful journey. Putting aside the fact that the 3,000 Amethyst Bee soldiers had brought Lu Ping several jars of Amethyst Bee honey, Zilan would have to spend a long time to brew the Amethyst Royal Jelly. Just the amount of rare herbs that Debao had brought back was enough to make Lu Ping overjoyed. In order to not leave behind too obvious a trail, Debao had to pick and choose what he wanted. If the One Chi Higher Sky had appeared, Lu Ping would not have been able to finish using it even after a few hundred years. Of course, it was impossible for him to collect so many spiritual herbs in the Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven in just 3 days. Other than this, what was even more precious was the 2 pill recipes that he had obtained from Laozu the Thieving Heaven, the Thunder Calamity Pill and the Grade 6 Transcendence Pill. All the rare herbs that were recorded in the Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven were collected by Debao. Of course, there were some rare herbs that Lu Ping did not recognize or that had already gone extinct in the cultivation world. Debao had also found many of them, allowing Lu Ping and Jinling to have a complete variety of spiritual herbs in their Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven garden. Lu Ping had also found a few rare tea trees in the Longevity Heaven. He had asked him to take their seeds and branches to see if they could be planted in the Golden House. The 3 days that Lu Ping had agreed on with Lu Qiner and the others had arrived. Before Lu Ping left the Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven, Qing and Wuxia had surprised Lu Ping again. "This is the 7 aperture pear and immortal root?" Lu Ping looked at the items in their hands. Even though he was surprised, he was very excited. These were all treasures that could be used to strengthen the physical body. Furthermore, this 7-aperture pear was clearly ripe. If he could find the 7-aperture pear seeds in the fruit, wouldn't he be able to use them to nurture the 7-aperture pear tree? He could also try to nurture the immortal root. In terms of preciousness, these two items were not inferior to the azure wood pure jade fruit that Lu Ping had once obtained. These are the two spiritual items that we have been secretly collecting all these years. Today we will give them to you. Lu Ping took the two items and said with a serious expression, "Rest assured, the Wood Luan race will definitely not go extinct." Chapter 1205. Lu Ping did not expect to receive such a pleasant surprise before leaving the Longevity Sky Grotto. The 7-aperture pear and immortal root were rare treasures in the cultivation world that could significantly strengthen a cultivator's physical body. While these two treasures could not be compared to the white jade lotus root and bloody skeleton flower in Lu Ping's possession, they were comparable to the verdant wood pure jade fruit. Furthermore, Lu Ping had discovered that the 7-aperture pear was sufficiently ripe. There might even be a 7-aperture pear tree seed inside. Moreover, the immortal root was also a hidden source of vitality. Perhaps it could take root again. If that was the case, it would truly be a blessing from the heavens. The Longevity Sky Grotto was vast. In just 3 days, Lu Ping had led Debeo, the amethyst wasps, Samling and the rest through the areas that might be guarded by 9 mystical tower cultivators under the guidance of the Wood Luan. Furthermore, they had to carefully identify the types and ages of the spiritual herbs. As a result, they had only covered a third of the Longevity Sky Grotto. However, they had already reaped such a harvest in a third of the Longevity Sky Grotto. If they were to search through the entire winter, especially those areas guarded by 9 mystical tower cultivators, who knew what kind of harvest they would reap? When Lu Ping and the rest entered the Longevity Sky Grotto, Lu Ping turned to Luan Qing, who had rushed over to send them off. "I am deeply grateful for fellow Taoists' help. However, although we have been cautious, quite a number of spiritual herbs have disappeared during the winter. Not to mention some of them are extremely valuable. If the 9 mystical tower investigates, I fear that fellow Taoists will not be able to escape responsibility." Luan Qing did not mind at all. She smiled. "So what? We will die either way. None of us with Luan Yao slaves raised in the Longevity Sky Grotto have a good ending. The 9 mystical tower will not waste the value of a single Wood Luan. It is only a matter of time before we die." Seeing the guilty expressions on Lu Ping's and the rest's faces, Luan Qing smiled and said, "Of course, we will do our best to save ourselves. However, at the very most, we can only say that we don't know anything. If the 9 mystical tower suspects you, we will need you to extricate yourself from this matter." Lu Ping nodded and turned to Azure Fox. "Let's begin." Qinghua swung the heaven-stealing divine axe forward and tore a rift in the dimension. Lu Ping did the same thing, pulling on the sides of the rift and tearing it open. Then the few of them rushed out of the rift and disappeared. Luan Qing was left staring blankly at the spatial crack closing before her, muttering, "I hope that the Wood Luan clan still has a chance." Outside 9 Profound Mountain, a stream of light, grand and majestic, descended upon the mountain, giving off an atmosphere that could topple mountains and overturn seas. The stream of light retracted to reveal a tall, bearded cultivator. Step by step, he walked towards the center of the mountain. The Tian-Yi Pavilion Master and San and Chang Sankai Chang smiled. "Qing. Brother." The other said with a cheeky smile, "Brother Wei is here." This unkempt cultivator was the #1 direct disciple of the 9 mystical tower, the brother in charge of the Yiyuan Pavilion, Wei Zhen. He was usually called Wei Yuan. Wei Yuan looked at the two of them and said in a low and hoarse voice, "What's wrong? You lost them?" Chang Sankai shrugged his shoulders and made an innocent expression, while the Yin and Yang brothel master revealed an ashamed expression and said, "Yes, we fell into their trap. They seem to have entered the thieving heaven inheritance for 3 days." Wei Yuan nodded. 3 days is not a long time. The treasures in the thieving heaven inheritance are hard to find. Usually, it takes decades to find all the treasures inside. Some greedy people even stay inside for a year or 2. Regardless of who entered, it seems that Azure Fox and Lu Tianping did not enter. Are there any traces of them now? The Tian-Yi Pavilion Master shook his head. "These people are very secretive, we have not been able to find them." Wei Yuan said, "That is to be expected. But once the people who entered the thieving heaven inheritance appear, Lu Tianping and Azure Fox will definitely come to their aid. At that time we will not be able to let them escape again." The Tian-Yi Pavilion Master said, "Don't worry, brother. This time we have made even more thorough arrangements. Lu Tianping and the rest will not be able to escape. Wei Jun glanced at the Tianyi Pavilion master and said, "Don't speak too early. I remember you saying that Lu Tianping and the rest will be captured before they can enter the thieving heaven inheritance, but what about now?" The Tianyi Pavilion master's face turned red. Who would have thought that the formation that fifth junior brother comprehended from the underworld void formation could be seen through by Lu Tianping? Wei Jun grunted coldly and said, that Lu Tianping probably possesses a miraculous eye technique, and it's very likely that it's one of the 3 branches of the Tripure True Pupils. Moreover, it's very likely that he's mastered it, so it wouldn't be strange for him to be able to see through old fifth's formation. Wei Jun explained, then asked Chang Sankai, "You have fought with that Lu Tianping before, how do you think his strength compares to mine?" Chang Sankai became more serious at this moment. He spat out the small stick in his mouth and thought for a while before saying, "From the situation at that time, he is only slightly stronger than me, but he must have hidden his strength at that time." In short, this person is definitely a formidable opponent. After returning to the thieving heavens inheritance, Lu Ping and the others did not leave immediately. Debao once again did a carpet search in this inheritance. Everyone had no choice but to stay and wait for him. At this moment, Lu Ping was not particularly anxious. He simply began to sort out the gains from the longevity grotto heaven in the secret room. At the same time, he also began to refine the magic treasure pill furnace thieving heaven cauldron that had condensed the treasure restriction. As for the 5 wood luan eggs, Lu Ping had already instructed Jianghu to conceal this matter. After returning to the thieving heavens inheritance, he recalled Lu Qiner and Lu Taohua back to the Golden House. There was a forest in the Golden House, but Lu Qiner still built her nest on top of the spirit demon peach tree. However, at this time, there were 5 wood luan eggs in Lu Qiner's nest. Seeing Lu Qiner's frown, Lu Taohua gloated, "Qin, looks like you really should get married. You haven't even become Wan Yu's Dao companion, but Big Brother has already given you the task of hatching the wood luan eggs. If Wan Yu finds out about this in the future, what will he think?" Lu Qiner fiercely glared at Lu Taohua. "Damn girl, you dare to talk nonsense, see if I don't tear your mouth apart." Lu Taohua giggled, "Don't worry, Big Brother will not talk nonsense. Moreover, if you really hatch a wood luan bird, Luan Yu will be overjoyed. I believe that Luan Yu does not want the wood luan race to be extinct more than anyone else, right?" Lu Qiner said, "This grandaunt is doing her best for the wood luan race. I hope these 5 wood luan eggs can hatch smoothly." Lu Qiner saw Lu Taohua holding many bottles and jars as she walked around her main body. She asked, "What are you doing?" Lu Taohua said, "These are the seeds of rare herbs that Big Brother brought out from Longevity Grotto Heaven. He hopes that they can be nurtured in the Golden House, so he asked me to take care of them." Lu Qiner smiled. In terms of nurturing spirit herbs, even the wood luan race might not be as good as Sister Peach Blossom. Inside Thieving Heaven's inheritance, Debao laughed like a madman. "Ha, found it, I knew it. Ancestor Thieving Heaven's dream was to raise the aptitude of the spirit-seeking mice. How could he not leave behind his inheritance before his death?" Lu Ping was also very interested in Thieving Heaven Laozu's inheritance. He quickly asked Debao for this beast skin scroll that was sealed by layers of spirit-sealing talismans. Weighing the beast skin scroll in his hand, Lu Ping exclaimed, "The beast skin of a pure young beastkin cultivator, this is a big deal." A beast skin scroll that was made from the fur of a pure young beastkin cultivator's main body was naturally not a small matter. Lu Ping carefully opened the beast skin scroll. His eyes flickered with a faint light as he carefully read the contents. His expression became increasingly strange, making Debao feel increasingly uneasy. Chapter 1206. "Boss, what is it?" Lu Ping threw the beast skin scroll to Debao. "See for yourself. Supreme divine ability, sky-stealing sun-shifting art. 3 basic divine abilities, flower grafting wood, palace shifting feather, stealing beam and swapping pillar." Debao covered the beast skin scroll. His small eyes glanced to the left, then to the right, only to find that everyone was trying hard to hold in their laughter. Only then did he realize that he was reading the contents of the beast skin scroll in a soft voice. Everyone was attracted by his shout of finding Thieving Heaven Laozu's inheritance, so they naturally heard everything he said. Debao said angrily, Okay, laugh if you want to, why do you have to hold it in so hard?" Everyone burst into laughter. Normally speaking, great divine abilities or supreme divine abilities were mostly offensive and defensive, but there were also many unorthodox divine abilities with all kinds of wonderful methods. Strictly speaking, even Lu Ping's 3 pure true pupils was considered one of the unorthodox divine abilities. And Debao's supreme divine ability inheritance cultivation method was even more peculiar. It could be said to be the most unorthodox of unorthodox methods. From the beginning to the end, this cultivation method inheritance did not aim to attack and kill enemies, but to teach people how to dodge, how to escape, how to hide, how to break formations, how to identify treasures, how to avoid tracking, in short, how to steal without anyone noticing. And among all these divine ability inheritances, the most profound was how to break formations. Back then, the reason why Thieving Heaven Lao Tzu refined the Thieving Heaven divine axe was to have some achievements on the path of breaking formations. There was no formation in the world that could not be broken, it only depended on the time needed to break the formation, the strength of one's strength and the clumsiness of the method. Sky-stealing sun-shifting art relied on the ingenuity and concealment of the formation, and the price to pay was mainly time. In order to covet the rare herbs and longevity grotto heaven, Thieving Heaven Lao Tzu spent a total of 50 years managing this inheritance, and finally avoided 9 profound towers' eyes and ears, secretly opening a gap in 9 profound towers' formation. But in the end, man proposes, heaven disposes. Thieving Heaven Lao Tzu actually died in the hands of longevity grotto heavens with Luan Fei race. All of his plans failed. With Debao's current cultivation level, he could barely cultivate the sky-stealing sun-shifting art. However, he could only focus on the basic divine powers at most. It wasn't easy to master all of them. Right now, I'm afraid that the 9 profound tower has already set up an inescapable net outside the 9 profound mountain. I'm afraid that once we reveal ourselves, we'll be surrounded and attacked by the entire 9 profound tower. Lu Ping and Green Fox arrived at the end of the tunnel. This was the exit of the Thieving Heaven relic. Then what should we do? Actually, it is not impossible to force our way out. 9 Mystical Tower does not know that all of us have entered the Thieving Heaven inheritance. There should be a group of people outside 9 Mystical Mountain guarding against the people who entered the Thieving Heaven inheritance. We can catch them off guard. Lu Ping shook his head slightly and said, the 9 Mystical Tower isn't a fool. They've already fallen for our trap once, so how could they possibly give us another chance? We're alone, and this is the 9 Mystical Tower's territory. No matter what, we don't have the upper hand. Green Fox said, then what should we do? Since the 9 Profound Tower has already confirmed that the Thieving Heaven relic is in the 9 Profound Mountain, they will find it sooner or later. Lu Ping smiled and said, it is easy for us to leave this place and the 9 Profound Tower cannot surround us. However, I am worried that the 9 Profound Tower's cultivators will chase after us after we leave. With the 9 Profound Tower's influence in the Central Plains, it is not an exaggeration to say that there is no place for us to hide in the Central Plains. Easy? Green Fox was slightly surprised and said, as long as we can avoid their attacks, how will they know that we have entered the Thieving Heaven relic? We were clearly chased out of the 9 Profound Mountain by them. I am afraid that they will still be guarding the 9 Profound Mountain, waiting for the person who entered the Thieving Heaven relic to come out. Lu Ping smiled and said, that is true, but it is inevitable that the 9 Profound Towers people will chase after us. Outside the 9 Mysterious Mountain, Chang Sankai was already so bored that he was about to fall asleep. The Yin-Yang Pavilion Master looked at the 5-element Pavilion Master beside him and said, over 10 days have already passed. Fifth Junior Brother, is there still no activity in the 9 Mysterious Mountain? Could it be that they have already left? The 5 Elements Pavilion Master's face turned stiff. From the Yin and Yang Pavilion Master's words, it was obvious that the Yin and Yang Pavilion Master suspected that the formation he had set up in the 9 Profound Mountain had already been avoided. Thus he said with dissatisfaction, the Thieving Heaven Lao Tzu is the best at hiding things. Perhaps the person who entered the relic is still looking for something inside. The Yin and Yang Pavilion Master was embarrassed, but after thinking about it he felt that the Yin and Yang Pavilion Master was right. Thus he asked the First Origin Pavilion Master, Wei Zhen, eldest senior brother, in my opinion, the sect should just send 1 or 2 great cultivators to guard this place. With our cooperation, when the time comes, Lu Tianping and the others will be easily captured. Why do we need to waste time here? Wei Zhen glanced at him and said, in the beginning when we set up the ambush on the 9 Profound Mountain, you were the one who was the most proactive. Now you are the one who has the least confidence. If the Thieving Heaven Lao Tzu is going to alarm the great cultivators of our sect just because of one Lu Tianping, then where do we hide our faces? The Yin and Yang Pavilion Master chuckled. Then Chang Sankai, who was beside him, said casually, in the end, the Thieving Heaven's relic is just not worth the attention of the sect. Although the thieving heaven Laozu was quite famous in the past, he was after all only a mid-dharma adept. He has stolen many things, but from the treasures that have been unearthed from the thieving heaven's relic, none of them are able to tempt the old demons of the sect. It's just that there are a lot of them. Naturally, they are not worth the attention of our dignified Holy Land sections. Chang Sansai's words were reasonable, but coupled with his sloppy demeanor, when these words were heard by others, it sounded like he was mocking and ridiculing their own sect. Fortunately, the people in the 9 Profound Tower seemed to be used to it. At this moment, the Yin and Yang Pavilion Master thought of something and said, "That year the thieving heaven Laozu really entered one of the caves of our sect. If these people found the traces left behind by the thieving heaven Laozu and sneaked into our cave again, what should we do?" Don't worry, that year the thieving heaven Laozu only entered the longevity cave after breaking through our sect's protective formation. Our sect has already learned its lesson, and not only did we strengthen the protective formation, every 50 years, the protective formation will be activated again and become unrecognizable. If we want to break through the formation, we will have to start all over again, Wei Jin said solemnly. But then again, recently, the whereabouts of the Laozu in our sect seem to be a little uncertain. Could it be that something big is going to happen? Chang Sankai spat out the wooden stick in his mouth and asked Wei Jin, "Boss, you should know something here, right?" Wei Jin chuckled and said, "Other than Mara, what else could it be?" Previously, the magic cloud city outside the Endless Mountains was destroyed by the Peacock royalty and Mara's army. Then it was occupied by the demon clan of the Endless Mountains. How could the Lingyun Valley suffer such a big loss? Both sides fought openly and secretly for the magic cloud city, but unexpectedly Mara's army took advantage of it. It was said that in a battle, both the human and demon clans lost more than 10 Dharma adepts under the siege of Mara, including 2 late Dharma adepts. In order to annihilate this Mara army, both sides had to temporarily put aside the fight for Magic Cloud City. The 6-winged Golden Cicada clan and Skyward Pavilion of the Endless Mountains joined forces with the other factions and finally defeated this Mara army. At the same time, both sides paid a huge price. After this battle, the calamity of Mara had gradually begun to spread deep into the heart of Middle-earth. The 9 Xian Tower could be said to be ready for battle. The great adepts in the sect were constantly sent out to patrol the territories controlled by the 9 Xian Tower, and at the same time, they gathered all the factions around the 9 Xian Tower to prepare for the upcoming calamity of Mara. How could they have the energy to put so much attention on the thieving heaven's inheritance? Furthermore, the 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 5th ranked direct disciples of the 9 Xian Tower were currently gathered at 9 Xian Mountain. If they still could not take down the thieving heaven's inheritance, the 9 Xian Tower would have nothing else to say. Stealing the sky and switching the sun, could this be what it means to steal the sky and switch the sun? Although the entrance to this treasure trove is within the 9 Xian Mountain, the truth is that the treasure itself is attached to the 9 Xian Mountain sect protecting formation. No matter how the formation operates, the treasure will not leave the formation. Hence, we will always be able to find the longevity paradise in this treasure trove. Thieving Heaven Laozu truly lives up to his reputation as an extraordinary person. The 9 Xian Tower naturally has no lack of formation masters, but they never discovered that the sect protecting formation has already been tampered with. This is truly a marvelous skill, worthy of the name, Thieving Heaven. Lu Ping and Qing, who discussed the stealing the sun and stealing art on the beast skin scroll while corroborating with the Thieving Heaven's inheritance. From time to time they would click their tongues in wonder. And the true inheritor of this divine ability was currently opening a cave on a wall that had been opened, and this cave was a branch of a large spirit stone vein. Although the 9 Xian Tower would change the operation method of their sect protecting formation every 50 years, they never thought that the Thieving Heaven's inheritance would be attached to the sect protecting formation in an unimaginable way and always be connected to the Longevity Grotto Heaven. And the most recent operation of the formation had placed the Longevity Grotto Heaven and a large spirit stone vein together. And Lu Ping and the rest who were about to leave, were once again stopped by De Bao. He wanted to steal the spirit stones in this spirit stone vein. Of course, he only had his eyes on top-grade spirit stones. As long as the 9 Xian Tower could not find this place, Lu Ping was naturally not in a hurry. Furthermore, stealing the spirit stone vein had become a technical job in De Bao's eyes. How could the 9 Xian Tower not discover that this spirit stone vein had never been stolen before? Stealing the sun and stealing art. This was the opportunity for De Bao to immediately start practicing this divine ability. Chapter 1207. How could he not leave any traces when he stole the spirit stone vein? It seemed that the sky-stealing sun-shifting art was the key to solving this problem. However, Debeo, who had just obtained this technique, did not seem to have the time to cultivate it. However, Lu Ping, Green Fox, and the others soon realized that they had underestimated Debeo's talent in this aspect. Although the sky-stealing sun-shifting art was a supreme divine power, Debeo seemed to be naturally familiar with this divine power. Even though he could not master even one of the basic divine powers in a short span of 10 days, the talent and achievements he had displayed in this aspect still left Lu Ping and the others dumbfounded. Debeo himself seemed to be extremely interested in this divine power, which formed a stark contrast to his usual laziness and cultivation. In more than 10 days, Debeo had mined most of the top-grade spirit stones in this branch vein. After another 10 days, Debeo began to remove the traces in the vein and backfill the robber's hole bit by bit. He also used a divine power that he had yet to master to disguise the robber's hole as a barren spirit vein. There are still many flaws in this method. If a mind seeker sees this, he will definitely notice that someone has touched the spirit vein here. If I can master the sky-stealing sun-shifting art, I can even change the location of the other spirit stones in the surroundings, making the distribution of spirit stones on the entire vein more reasonable. Even an ordinary mind seeker will not be able to detect it inadvertently. Debeo regretfully filled up the spirit vein tunnel, then restored the stone wall to its original state. Only then did he say, "Let's hope that the ore prospectors of the 9 mystical tower won't check this vein." As the saying went, the expert knows the ropes while the layman enjoys the show. Debeo clapped his hands and stood up. Only then did he see that everyone, including Lu Ping and the others, were dumbfounded. Lu Ping was slightly puzzled. "That's it? It's a complete spirit vein. Can a mind seeker tell?" It would have been better if he didn't say this, but as soon as he said this, Debeo's tail instantly rose to the sky and he said, "What do you know? If I was given a period of time to cultivate that, stealing a beam and replacing a pillar, divine ability, once I achieve initial success, then a half-baked or finder like Shen Wei would absolutely not be able to see through it." Everyone nodded like chickens pecking at rice. Amazing, amazing. Debeo was even more pleased with himself. However, Debeo's complacency only lasted for a moment. He saw Lu Ping divide up the small pile of top-grade spirit stones in the middle of the relic and said, Qing Hu, Qing Lang, and Qing Hu will take 50, Qing Hu and Qing Lang will take 30, and the rest who have reached the late core forging stage will get 10. As for the rest, they were all kept by Lu Ping with a wave of his sleeves. Debeo suddenly became anxious and said, Mine? You guys can't bully me like this. These spirit stones were dug out by me." Lu Ping glared at him and said, You're just a 4th stage core forging stage minor repairs. Do you think you can use the top-grade spirit stones? If you want the top-grade spirit stones, sure, but you'll have to increase your level to the late core forging stage first." Debeo's love for spirit stones was not because he was dissatisfied with Lu Ping's distribution. In fact, the number of top-grade spirit stones that Debeo had collected might not be less than that of Qing Hu and Qing Lang. It was just that Debeo's love for spirit stones was limitless, even if it was just a low-grade spirit stone. Perhaps this was a special characteristic of the spirit-seeking mice. The spirit stone vein that Debeo had excavated was only a branch of a large vein. It could not be compared to the top-grade spirit stones that Lu Ping had stolen from Yuanling Island. At that time, Lu Ping had stolen from the main vein, and the ratio of top-grade spirit stones was much higher than this branch vein. However, the number of top-grade spirit stones he had collected was still a huge amount. After finishing the exploration of the Thieving Heavens relic, Qing Hu asked worriedly, "How do you plan to leave this place?" The last time they had entered the relic, it was because Qing Hu and Lu Ping had continuously attracted the attention of the entire Jiushuan Tower. That was how Debeo had managed to enter the relic and use the divine space essence to successfully transport everyone here. However, it was actually easy to leave now. All he had to do was use the divine space essence. However, this way he would not be able to retrieve the divine space essence. Once the Jiushuan Tower found the location of the divine space essence, the divine space essence would definitely be exposed. Once the divine space essence was exposed, the consequences would undoubtedly be disastrous for Lu Ping. The theft of the Yuanling Island Spirit Stone Vein, the death of the Yuan clan's formation Grandmaster, Mr. Wen, the huge astronomical phenomenon in the sky above the divine space array, the resonance caused by the heaven creation relic, the death of the Yulin sect's great cultivator, all these mysteries would be revealed one by one. Thus, no matter what, Lu Ping would not take the risk of leaving this divine space essence here. After you leave the Jiushuan Tower's territory, head north and return to the Ying Tian courtyard. It just so happens that Zilan's cultivation is at a crucial point in her breakthrough, so I will have to stay here for a while. Furthermore, without you by my side, it will be easier for me to break out of the encirclement. Jianghu knew that what Lu Ping said was easier, but in reality if they stayed together, they would become a burden to Lu Ping. Even Jianghu herself could not say that she would be of any help in the battle against the Jiushuan Tower's heirs. Although Jianghu currently had the heaven-stealing divine axe, a spirit treasure that was far more powerful than her natal spirit treasure, the Xinhua Great Axe, which had reached the peak of spirit cultivation, the heaven-stealing divine axe's characteristics did not lie in its swift and fierce attacks. This did not match the characteristics of Jianghu's own cultivation. In her hands, the heaven-stealing divine axe could at most be considered a temporary spirit treasure. However, the reason why Lu Ping was willing to stay in the thieving heaven inheritance for a while was not only because of the large spirit stone vein, but also because the purple crystal queen bee was at a critical point in her cultivation. Who had ever seen a purple crystal queen bee at the mid-core forging stage? At the very least, Lu Ping had never heard of it. In fact, after coming out of the longevity grotto heaven, the purple crystal queen bee asked Lu Ping for a low-grade earth spirit object, then went into seclusion to brew royal jelly. Although the purple crystal queen bee had a bountiful harvest in the longevity grotto heaven, with the purple crystal queen bee's advancement, Lu Ping was destined to be disappointed. Most of the purple crystal queen bee's royal jelly was used by the queen bee to increase her cultivation. Half a month's time was not enough to support the purple crystal queen bee's advancement, and it was not enough to support her through the most difficult period. However, the thieving heaven inheritance, which was drawn from the Jiushuan Tower, was enough to support the purple crystal queen bee through the most difficult period of cultivation. Jianghu and the others left the thieving heaven inheritance one by one with the help of the spatial spirit. At this time, Lu Ping also let go of his hands and feet and prepared to do some meticulous preparations. After overcoming the first lightning tribulation, Lu Ping's physical body had once again improved significantly. However, it was now only as strong as a spiritual magic treasure. Although such a body was strong enough for cultivators of the same level, and was comparable to cultivators who had overcome the second lightning tribulation, Lu Ping naturally would not give up on the opportunity to further strengthen his physical body. However, whether it was the 7 aperture pair or the immortal root, the best way to use them was not for Dharma adepts like Lu Ping. Other than strengthening a cultivator's physical body, the 7 aperture pair and the immortal root also had another important function, which was to significantly increase a cultivator's potential. From this point of view, the value of the 7 aperture pair and the immortal root was slightly higher than that of the Ashenwood pure jade fruit. However, there was another point to consider. In order to fully utilize the effect of increasing one's potential, the cultivator had to be a blood refining minor repairs cultivator who had yet to enter the blood condensation stage. It would not work if the cultivator was old or had a high level of cultivation. Furthermore, once the cultivator had reached the Dharma stage, who would care about increasing one's potential? To be able to obtain such a treasure, other than those with heaven-defying luck like the blood-refining minor repairs, which cultivator was not a Dharma adept with a high level of cultivation. As the saying went, treasures could only be found by luck, not by searching for them. In fact, it also required one's ability as a foundation. And for the Dharma adepts who obtained such a treasure, unless it was for a close family member, who would be willing to leave such a treasure for the blood-refining minor repairs to improve their potential rather than use it themselves to increase the strength of their physical body. This was actually something that could not be helped. Rare treasures were already rare, and Dharma adepts often faced life and death situations with every step they took. In order to increase the strength of their physical body, they would not hesitate to give up or even waste the other effects of the spirit fruit. However, after thinking for a long time, Lu Ping decided to use the 7 aperture pair first. This was because this 7 aperture pair was ripe enough, and there might be some seeds left in the core. And in fact, Lu Ping's guess was not wrong. Within this 7 aperture pair, there were indeed 2 dark green seeds. After being carefully taken out by Lu Ping, he handed them over to Lu Taohua. Cultivating spirit herbs, spirit fruits, and spirit trees was not only something that the Wood Luan race was good at. Lu Taohua, who was born from the spirit demon race, also had a natural advantage in this aspect. Although Lu Ping had another refined Dharma alchemy furnace in his hands, Lu Ping was, after all, not familiar with the heaven-stealing furnace. Furthermore, the Nachuan cauldron had already condensed 2 treasures and had been nurtured by Lu Ping's inner yuan for more than 100 years. He was already very familiar with it. However, with a treasure-level alchemy furnace as a backup for an alchemy grandmaster like Lu Ping, he could use it to try out a new method of alchemy, and that was the continuous alchemy furnace division, secret technique. In short, in the process of alchemy, the Nachuan cauldron would be the main, and the heaven-stealing furnace would be the auxiliary. The 2 alchemy furnaces would cooperate with each other, and the heaven-stealing furnace would share the difficulty of alchemy with the Nachuan cauldron. In the end, it would achieve a method to increase the efficiency of alchemy and the success rate of alchemy. And this method was a secret alchemy technique that only alchemy grandmasters could come into contact with. For alchemy, it was undoubtedly a serious challenge that had to be faced. At the same time, it was also against the fact that the rare herbs used to refine Dharma-level elixirs were extremely rare. Moreover, the efficiency of alchemy was low and the success rate of alchemy was low. Chapter 1208. 4 Alchemy Grandmasters. The continuous furnace separation was a secret alchemy technique that they had to challenge. The main reason for this was that almost all of the spirit herbs needed to refine Dharma stage elixirs could be regarded as natural treasures, especially for some of the spirit herbs needed for elixirs with special effects. However, unlike the elixirs before the core forging stage, which had a fixed number of 10 elixirs in each furnace, a large portion of Dharma stage elixirs were not like this. After being successfully refined with a 100% success rate, only 3 or 5 elixirs could be refined out of the furnace. Some of the more precious elixirs could only be refined out of the furnace. Elixirs that could be used to enhance the strength of the physical body were often extremely precious and difficult to refine. The Ashwood Pure Jade fruit had only been refined by Lu Ping, and he had used the spirit water nourishing elixir cultivation technique. The reason why Lu Ping was able to concoct 3 spirit water body nourishing pellets from the blood skeleton flower was because the blood skeleton flower was mature enough and its medicinal effects were beyond Lu Ping's expectations. The 7 orifice pair in Lu Ping's hand wasn't enough to concoct more than 2 spirit water body nourishing pellets in one go. But if he used the continuous cauldron pellet separation, he might be able to concoct 1 more. There were naturally many things to pay attention to when using continuous furnace separation. At least the quality of the supporting elixirs could not be too different from the main alchemy furnace. Otherwise, the quality of the elixir would also be weakened. As for the spirit fire needed for alchemy, under the Nachuan cauldron was naturally the silver spirit fire, and the spirit fire under the heaven-stealing cauldron was a little unique. It was a 6-inch high-grade earth-level spirit fire. It was a strange spirit fire that Lu Ping had found in the North Sea volcanoes. At that time it was only 4 inches long, and it was called the 4-inch spirit fire. Now, after a period of growth, the 4-inch spirit fire had devoured a mid-grade and high-grade earth-level spirit fire in Lu Ping's hands, and had successfully advanced to become a 6-inch spirit fire. This method of growing by devouring other spirit fires was also an extremely rare type of spirit fire of heaven and earth, and it had a very deep understanding of alchemy. However, this type of flame had an extremely unique property. Every time the spiritual flame was upgraded, it could only be used to refine spirit pills that corresponded to the level of the spiritual flame. At this moment, the spiritual flame was 6 inches long and could only be used to refine late core forging spirit pills. If it wanted to refine early Dharma spirit pills, it would be impossible, unless the 6-inch flame could be upgraded to a 7-inch flame that could be used to refine Dharma spirit pills. At this time there was a flash of fire in Lu Ping's hand, and a spirit fire started burning in his palm. It was indeed a low-grade heaven-level spirit fire. However, this spirit fire was not very suitable for refining elixirs, and it was also slightly violent in the forging of weapons. It could only be used to refine spiritual items. And at the moment when this spirit fire appeared in Lu Ping's hand, the 6-inch spirit fire that was floating in midair suddenly jumped into Lu Ping's palm like a cat that had smelled fish. With a series of crackling sounds, the 2 sparks actually merged together. More accurately, the low-grade heaven-level spirit fire was actually slowly being devoured by the 6-inch spirit fire. The 6-inch spirit fire itself did not change much, but the line of fire gradually grew from its original 6-inch length to 7 inches. It's done. Lu Ping's heart leaped with joy. The 7-inch spirit flame was now a genuine low-grade heaven-level spirit fire. Moreover, in terms of refining early Dharma realm medicinal pellets, even the silver spirit flame could not compare to it. Although this kind of spirit fire could become the best spirit fire for refining elixirs at any stage of cultivation, it was a pity that this kind of spirit fire could only forever be used to refine elixirs of a certain stage. The true test of a cultivator's alchemy skills was whether or not he could split his attention to take care of the situation in the other alchemy furnace during the process of refining elixirs. This was a test of the cultivator's inner yuan, divine will, alchemy skills and willpower. Fortunately, Lu Ping had long been prepared for this. Although the process of refining the 7 orifices elixir was a kind of torture, Lu Ping still managed to persevere and successfully split the elixirs between the alchemy furnaces during the solidification stage. Furthermore, it did not cause any damage to the solidification of the 7 orifices elixir in the main alchemy furnace. Finally, the 2 alchemy furnace treasures opened at the same time, and 2 elixirs, one big and one small, flew out of the alchemy furnace and were collected by Lu Ping, who had long been prepared. The 7 orifices elixir was originally considered a mid-dharma stage elixir, but after using the alchemy technique, the 7 orifices elixir in the main alchemy furnace was still at the mid-dharma stage, while the smaller 7 orifices elixir in the auxiliary alchemy furnace could only be considered an early dharma stage elixir. Fortunately, although Lu Ping's cultivation level was at the mid-dharma stage, early dharma stage elixirs were only slightly less effective for him, but they were not completely useless. The 2 7 orifices elixirs were refined by Lu Ping in succession, and it took him another 10 days or so. Lu Ping could clearly feel that his physical body had been strengthened. Although it was not enough to break through the shackles of the spirit cultivation stage, it was much closer. At least in front of a great practitioner who had passed the second thunder trial, the strength of Lu Ping's physical body was nothing to be afraid of. From the time that the 7 orifices elixir was refined to the time that Lu Ping had completely refined it, another month had passed. By now, Jianghu and the others must have already left the 9 Shen Towers territory and were heading north. Furthermore, with the 9 Shen Towers methods, they must have already found out where Jianghu and the others were. Lu Ping just did not know if the 9 Shen Towers practitioners would have the patience to wait in the 9 Shen Mountain after such a long wait. Lu Ping waved his hand and a space door opened. The purple crystal bee king, which had grown to a size of 2 feet after advancing to the mid-core forging stage, flapped its wings and flew out of the house of gold. Big brother, I've advanced to the mid-core forging stage. The purple crystal bee queen's face was filled with joy, and Lu Ping's face was also full of smiles. Not bad. In the cultivation world, there had never been a purple crystal bee king in the core forging stage, let alone a queen bee that had advanced to the mid-core forging stage. When Zilan advanced to the core forging stage, she was able to brew royal jelly of higher quality. Now that she had advanced to the mid-core forging stage, Lu Ping wondered if she had gained some other abilities. Big brother, look. A small jade bottle was handed to Lu Ping. Inside the bottle was the royal jelly brewed by the purple crystal bee queen, which had advanced to the mid-core forging stage. Although Zilan had used most of the royal jelly brewed from the honey in the spiritual herb garden in the longevity grotto heaven to increase her cultivation, it was not easy for her to keep this much. Under the purple crystal queen's hopeful gaze, Lu Ping opened the jade bottle. The essence of 100 flowers, which was purer than the royal jelly from before, spread out from the jade bottle. Lu Ping's expression gradually changed from intoxication to surprise, and finally, a trace of shock. After Lu Ping quickly put away the jade bottle, he stuck a spirit sealing talisman on it. Then he asked excitedly, "Did you brew this after advancing to the mid-core forging stage?" The purple crystal queen was a little nervous when she saw the constant changes in Lu Ping's expression. At this moment, when she saw Lu Ping's irrepressible joy, the purple crystal queen smiled proudly and said, "Of course." However, as if she suddenly thought of something, the purple crystal queen was a little discouraged. It's just that after Zilan advanced to the mid-core forging stage, the amount of royal jelly that she can brew has been greatly reduced. Previously, she could extract 1 bottle out of 10 bottles of purple crystal honey. Although the quality of the royal jelly has increased, she may not be able to extract 1 bottle out of 20 bottles. At this time, Lu Ping had already calmed down. He nodded and said, "If such a heaven-defying treasure could be produced in large quantities, that would be a real problem." In this small bottle of royal jelly, Lu Ping not only detected the pure and thick taste of the purple crystal bee's essence of 100 flowers, but it also had a greater auxiliary and enhancement effect than the previous royal jelly. However, all of this paled in comparison to the new thing that appeared in the royal jelly. Lu Ping felt the power of vitality in the royal jelly brewed by the purple crystal queen bee, which had advanced to the mid-core forging stage. After the purple crystal queen bee advanced to the mid-core forging stage, it condensed the essence of 100 flowers to refine the purple crystal royal jelly. It actually melted the vitality of the 100 flowers into it, causing the purple crystal royal jelly to suddenly become a treasure comparable to a longevity pill. It could be used to directly increase a cultivator's lifespan. With Lu Ping's current knowledge as an alchemy grandmaster, he was 80 to 90% sure that he could use the purple crystal royal jelly as the base and combine it with some other spirit herbs to refine a new kind of longevity pill. In terms of the concentration of vitality contained in the purple crystal royal jelly, this kind of longevity pill with the purple crystal royal jelly as the base might not be able to increase one's lifespan as much as the myriad wonder jade nectar. However, with the purple crystal queen bee, Lu Ping could continuously obtain the royal jelly. In other words, once Lu Ping was able to concoct this kind of longevity pill, it would be an endless supply. In fact, the myriad wonder jade nectar could be produced continuously in the myriad poison nectar or the myriad poison source liquid. However, there was a harsh condition, and that was that Lu Ping had to constantly search for highly poisonous places so that the myriad poison nectar could absorb the poison and condense a drop of the myriad wonder jade nectar. Not only was this process dangerous for Lu Ping, but Lu Ping also did not have the time to search for highly poisonous places all over the world just for a few drops of the myriad wonder jade nectar. Moreover, the speed at which the myriad wonder jade nectar was condensing was extremely slow, and it was also extremely small. It was not as satisfying as the purple crystal royal jelly. Outside of the Nine Shen Mountain, the master of the Yin and Yang building could no longer remain calm. He spoke to Wei Zhen, who was beside him. "Boss Wei, waiting like this is not a solution. Who knows whether Lu Tianping will come or not? We have already received news that the Cyan Fox 9 bandits have appeared near the Yulon River and are heading north." Wei Zhen did not pay attention to the master of the Yin and Yang building. Instead, he reached out his hand and waved in midair. A sound-transmitting talisman appeared out of nowhere in his palm. Wei Zhen chuckled and said, "Second brother, the sect has already ordered that all disciples are not allowed to leave the sect's territory. Even if you want to chase after them, I'm afraid you can't go against the sect's orders, right?" At this moment, not only the master of the Yin and Yang building, but even Chang Sankai and the master of the Five Elements Pavilion had solemn expressions on their faces. They no longer cared about the fleeing Cyan Fox 9 bandits. They asked in a serious voice, "Something big is going to happen to the sect. Boss Wei, do you know what it is?" Chapter 1209. The Nine Mystical Tower had ordered all of its disciples to stay out of its territory. The Yin-Yang Tower Master and the others immediately frowned and asked, "Boss Wei, did the sect send out something big?" Wei Zhen nodded his head and said, "It said that during this period of time, the demonic Luo army has emerged from all over the Central Plains, causing the entire Central Plains to be in a state of panic. Recently, more and more demonic Luos have appeared within the Nine Mystical Houses' sphere of influence. The various patrol teams are simply unable to kill them all. Furthermore, there's already news that they've encountered at least 2 Azuras in the process of exterminating the demonic Luos. Furthermore, the demonic Luos within our sect's sphere of influence have begun to gather." What? It was not only the 2 Rites Pavilion Master, even the carefree Chang Sankai was startled when he heard this. He said, "The evil Luo sect has gathered on a large scale. What do they intend to do? Could it be that they intend to besiege the 9 Profound Pavilion?" Wei Zhen shook his head and said, "It's hard to say. It's not like Mara's army has never gathered to attack a sacred land in the history of the cultivation world. There's no guarantee that they're not targeting our 9 Mystical Tower." The Yin-Yang Tower Master trembled and said, "Even if they're targeting us, we'll just make sure they don't return." No one said anything. They knew that the Yin-Yang Tower Master was right, and the 9 Mystical Tower naturally had the confidence to do so. However, if Mara's army really did gather to attack the 9 Mystical Tower, then it wouldn't be a battle that would end in a short period of time. How could there be no deaths in a battle? There's another piece of news. Wei Zhen's expression was somewhat solemn. Someone has discovered the tracks of Jianghu and the others. They're already near the Yulon River and they're still heading north. Everyone looked at each other and in the end the Yin-Yang Tower Master said in disbelief, "That can't be. They still have companions trapped in the thieving heaven's inheritance." At this time, Chang Sankai interrupted and asked, "Is there any news of Lu Tianping?" A look of approval appeared on Wei Zhen's face. He said, That's the strange part. The news didn't mention Lu Tianping, which means that he isn't with Jianghu and the others. That's strange. Could it be that Lu Tianping wants to charge into the trap we set up himself? The five-element pavilion master asked curiously. He knew how much effort had been put into the 9 mysterious mountain recently. Wouldn't it be too much of a pity if it were to be wasted like this? The yin and yang brothel master curled his lips and said, perhaps Lu Tianping is no longer in the vicinity, and his companions have already left. How can he be our match by himself? Or perhaps the person who entered the thieving heaven inheritance has already secretly left. Impossible. The master of 5 elements pavilion was very confident in his trap and said, as long as the people who entered the thieving heaven inheritance are still in the 9 Shen mountain, there is no way they won't be discovered by me. I can even borrow the power of the sect's protective formation to monitor the entire 9 Shen mountain. They won't be able to escape. They all looked surprised. They didn't expect the master of the 5 elements tower to have reached such a level of attainment in formations. He was able to use the sect protecting formation for his own use, and they didn't even realize it. Just when everyone was thinking about their own matters, the master of 5 elements pavilion's expression suddenly changed. He said, oh no, someone suddenly appeared in the 9 Shen mountain. Everyone was shocked. Wei Jin opened his mouth and asked, where? The master of 5 elements pavilion pointed with his finger and said, northwest, he is currently escaping towards that direction. Wei Jin shouted, 5th brother, stop him. The rest of you follow me. At the bottom of the tunnel of the thieving heaven inheritance, Lu Ping was holding the key that Debao used to enter the inheritance. It was an axe that was less than a foot long. It looked almost the same as the thieving heaven divine axe, but it was only a high-grade magic tool. But at this time, Lu Ping was carefully playing with the axe in his hand. He smiled lightly and said, this is a bit interesting. I didn't notice it before. He slammed his palm against the stone wall at the side of the tunnel, and a series of runes immediately appeared on the stone wall. At the same time, a simple teleportation formation gradually took shape, and in the center of the formation, a small stone that was originally crystal clear suddenly became incomparably resplendent. Lu Ping didn't activate the teleportation array. Instead, he reached out and plucked the small stone from the center of the teleportation array. The glowing stone immediately turned back into a crystal clear void spirit, and the simple teleportation array began to crumble. Countless runes wandered on the stone wall and returned to their original positions. And at this time, Lu Ping slammed his palm on the stone wall. A bluish-purple light immediately entered the stone wall. With a loud boom, the giant stone in the valley outside the inheritance suddenly split open. A door opened and Lu Ping calmly walked out. The giant stone closed. Lu Ping looked around. Then light flashed under his feet and he immediately flew towards the northwest direction. Not long after Lu Ping flew out, the master of 5 elements pavilion immediately discovered Lu Ping. At this time, Lu Ping was slightly startled and said, what a brilliant formation. The master of 5 elements pavilion had set up many formation traps in the 9 Shen mountain and borrowed the power of the entire 9 Shen mountain's protective formation. After flying for a while, Lu Ping found that he was stuck in a swamp. His flying speed suddenly decreased by a lot. The 9 Shen tower's protective formation was not a short distance away from the 9 Shen mountain. To be able to use the protective formation as one's own, this kind of method was not simple. It seemed that the person who set up the formation was no doubt a formation master. Among the 9 Shen Tower's 9 direct lineage masters, the master of 5 elements pavilion, Ho Yang, was the most proficient in formations. Originally, when Lu Ping covered Debao to sneak into the thieving heaven's inheritance, he constantly avoided his surveillance. Moreover, he also discovered the hidden formation of 9 Shen Tower on the hill. This made the master of 5 elements pavilion lose a lot of face. This also made Lu Ping look down on him. But today he saw that this person's attainments and formations were really good. In the blink of an eye, Lu Ping's divine sense detected no less than 3 rays of light approaching him from different directions. But at this time, Lu Ping was deeply trapped in the spiritual energy quagmire of the 5 elemental array formation, unable to extricate himself. This is really troublesome. If I get surrounded, even if I don't die, a layer of my skin will be peeled off. Lu Ping flipped his right palm and the Linglong cauldron appeared in his hand. The invisible spiritual energy whirlpool around him was immediately drawn in and under the control of the Linglong wine cauldron, it was slowly smoothed out. Lu Ping also temporarily escaped from the formation quagmire. The ray of light under his feet suddenly brightened, and he continued to fly towards the northwest. However, before he could fly for more than 5 kilometers, Lu Ping's body suddenly became heavy, as if his entire body was suddenly pressed down by a mountain. Another formation. The spiritual energy under Lu Ping's feet quickly gathered, and a huge spiritual energy lotus suddenly bloomed. It was exactly the same as the rank 9 white jade lotus in Lu Ping's heart space, and it immediately blocked the formation below him. Lu Ping's body relaxed, and the ray of light under his feet shone even brighter as he sped up towards the outside of 9 Profound Mountain. However, just these 2 restrictions had greatly shortened the distance between Lu Ping and his pursuers. Although Lu Ping's successive escapes had greatly shocked the 9 Profound Towers cultivators, Wei Jin had already arrived several kilometers behind Lu Ping. He shouted, "Where do you think you're going?" The deafening roar brought with it waves of sound that caused Lu Ping to frown. Although Lu Ping did not care about this kind of sound attack, Lu Ping had already seen through the divine will hidden within the sound waves. Even so, Lu Ping had no choice but to be cautious. This person was obviously someone who had a high level of attainment in the practice of divine will. Although his level of practice was the same as Zhou Donghuang's at the mid-Dharma stage, the level of his divine will was no less than that of ordinary great adepts. If ordinary adepts of the same level fought with him, they would usually be at a disadvantage under this attack of his. Unfortunately, his opponent was Lu Ping. Not to mention that Lu Ping had a terrifying level of divine will that far exceeded that of ordinary great adepts. Just the cloud sails and the jade soul fire would be enough to render this level of divine will attack useless, and it could even cause him to suffer greatly. However, right at this moment, a huge bell rose above Lu Ping's head. It was an imitation of the first Calamity Spirit treasure, the vast ocean bell. With a loud dang, a similarly huge sound wave surged and rolled towards the sound attack caused by the roar behind him. The 2 of them instantly disappeared into thin air. Wei Jin's heart leaped with joy. This level of divine will was something that he was proud of, and the few remarkable powers that he had cultivated with his strong divine will were originally Wei Jin's trump cards. Wei Jin had originally wanted to use these few remarkable powers to gain the upper hand in the fight against the top disciples from the other Holy Lands. Unexpectedly, he had used them on Lu Ping first today. From Wei Jin's point of view, although the person who was escaping had used an extremely strange sound wave to cancel out his roar, the divine will hidden within the roar was his real trump card. However, just as Wei Jin was anticipating the person who was escaping in front of him to let out a cry of pain and then fall from the sky while clutching his head, he felt his divine will slash into a vast ocean. At most, it only made a few waves. Oh no! Wei Jin's heart trembled. As an expert in the divine will, he naturally knew that this phenomenon occurred because the person in front of him had a much higher level of divine will cultivation than him. This feeling of punching air was a sign that the opponent had set a trap and was about to counterattack. Wei Jin hurriedly withdrew his divine will. However, he was caught unprepared and had lost the upper hand. How could the opponent let him go so easily? A green flame suddenly lit up on Wei Jin's divine will saber, and a sharp pain almost drilled into Wei Jin's brain. It's the green soul fire. I was too careless. Fortunately, although Wei Jin's attack had caused Lu Ping's flight to slow down, Ho Yang, the master of the Yin and Yang Tower, had already charged at him. The pair of Yin and Yang flying swords in his hands hovered on both sides, covering each other up. It was an extremely wonderful divine will swordsmanship. However, the same 2 sword lights also hovered and turned into countless sword lights that intertwined in all directions. The Yin and Yang sword formation of the master of the Yin and Yang Tower was instantly broken. Lu Tianping of the North Sea, how could it be you? Chapter 12:10. The master of the Yin and Yang Tower was a genuine sword practitioner, and this set of Yin and Yang sword was also a rare divine swordsmanship inheritance in the cultivation world. However, it was instantly broken by the person in front of him. How could Ho Yang, the master of the Yin and Yang Tower, not be shocked? However, what really shocked him was not the divine swordsmanship of the person in front of him, but the pair of flying sword spiritual treasures. As Lu Ping continued to defeat powerful enemies in the Central Plains, his reputation as the North Sea Water Sword Immortal was now on par with the heirs of the sacred grounds. His pair of flying swords that flowed like a thin stream also became famous, and many sword cultivators knew about them. When Lu Ping revealed his pair of flying swords and broke Ho Yang's Yin and Yang sword, the master of the Yin and Yang Tower knew that the person in front of him was actually Lu Tianping. However, why was he in Joshuan Mountain at this time? Wasn't he forced out by their joint efforts? Then who was the person who entered the thieving heaven's inheritance? As Ho Yang pondered, Lu Ping had completely broken away from his control. With a flash of conveyance light, Lu Ping left Ho Yang behind again. However, at this time Chang Sankai had already arrived. We meet again. It was rare for Chang Sankai to be serious. The pair of symbols in his hands flew out and chopped toward Lu Ping one after the other. Then a sneer flashed across his face. Let's see where you can escape this time. However, the sneer froze on his face before it dissipated. His pair of symbols spun and chopped, but what they hit was a splash. Oh no, I've been tricked. Chang Sankai wanted to retreat quickly. At the same time, the symbols spinning around him suddenly grew bigger and protected him tightly. He was on full alert, ready to receive Lu Ping's thunderous blow. However, what Chang Sankai heard was the rumbling roar of galloping horses that seemed to come from the horizon. When he looked up, he saw a vast ocean descending from the sky. That ocean was basically a river of swords. This kind of surging momentum seemed to be able to completely shatter all obstacles. Without waiting for Chang Sankai to cry out in alarm, the river of swords did not break the pair of copper symbols protecting Chang Sankai. Instead, it wrapped around Chang Sankai, who looked like he was carrying a copper turtle shell on his back, and rolled him 3 miles away. Only then did the river of swords gradually disappear. What kind of divine ability was this? How come no one had ever mentioned it before? For a cultivator like Lu Tianping, the divine arts he usually used in fights of magical powers would naturally be specially collected by people who paid attention to him. After that, they would be obtained by many people who paid attention to him. Naturally, this included the direct lineage cultivators of the 5 great sacred lands of Middle-earth. This could also show how much importance they attached to Lu Tianping. However, the great divine ability that Lu Tianping suddenly performed now had great prowess, giving off an unstoppable aura. Chang Sankai was protected by the pair of copper symbols, and Lu Ping did not seem to have any intention of harming him. This sword river of raging waves was enough to completely tear Chang Sankai into pieces. What a brilliant sword art divine ability. A thought suddenly flashed through Chang Sansai's mind. He seemed to have seen this sword art divine ability before. It was in the forest by the Qingming River. It was just that back then Lu Ping did not use sword kinesis. Instead, he used spiritual qi to form waves, testing each other out. At that time, the celestial river of spiritual qi did not have such prowess and did not have the embryonic form of a great divine ability. At most, it was just a minor divine ability. It was only when Lu Ping performed it that its prowess became much greater. And what Chang Sankai had faced earlier was an authentic great sword art divine ability. This person was actually creating his own great sword art divine ability, and by the looks of it, he had already succeeded. This thought flashed through Chang Sansai's mind for no reason. Then this thought brewed in his mind more and more intensely. He did not notice that because he was repelled, there was a gap in the encirclement that surrounded Lu Tianping. Just when Lu Ping used his divine sense divine ability to make Wei Jin suffer a loss, and then used his sword art divine ability to repel Ho Yang and Chang Sankai, the encirclement that the 3 heirs of the 9 mystical tower had encircled Lu Ping was broken. However, at this moment, a faint protective array formation gradually formed around Lu Ping. The 5-element pavilion master slowly heaved a sigh of relief. He thought to himself, even if this hastily formed array formation cannot stop you, it only needs to delay your speed for a moment. Once Big Senior Brother and the others surround you again, you will definitely lose this battle. Although Lu Ping had the upper hand against the 3 heirs of the 9 mystical pavilion, the 5 elements pavilion master could already tell that Lu Tianping was no match for the 3 of them. Wei Jin and the others never expected that the one who escaped from the 9 mystical mountain would be Lu Tianping. The 5 elements pavilion master didn't expect Lu Tianping to be the one who escaped from the 9 mystical mountain. Just as the 5-element pavilion master finished setting up the array formation, he saw that Lu Ping had already forced Chang Sankai to retreat and was rushing towards him. The 5-element pavilion master laughed in his heart because he could already see that Wei Zhen and the others had already surrounded Lu Ping. Even if Lu Tianping could break the array formation, so what? Bao Wuxing was the 5th heir of the 9 mystical tower. He did not rely solely on his attainments in array formations to secure his position as the 5th heir of the 9 mystical tower. However, Bao Wuxing's expression changed immediately. A 4-colored light suddenly appeared on Lu Ping's body, and Lu Ping crashed directly into the array formation that Bao Wuxing had set up. 4-colored restriction breaking talisman. Amidst Bao Wuxing's exclamation, the protective shield of the array formation was torn apart like a thin piece of paper. Bao Wuxing, who had rushed up in a hurry, was unable to contend with the oncoming Lu Ping due to his lack of preparation. He was pushed back dozens of feet by Lu Ping's sword, making way for Lu Ping to escape. At this moment, the 2 Elements Pavilion Master and the 3 Elements Pavilion Master did not expect that Lu Ping would be able to break the array formation that the 5 Element Pavilion Master had set up so easily. The 2 of them had not yet recovered from the previous 2 sword attacks from Lu Ping. They could only watch helplessly as Lu Ping broke through their encirclement and swaggered away. Lu Tianping, eat my attack. It was Wei Zhen, the first heir of the 9 Mysteries Pavilion, who had a well-deserved reputation. Although he had suffered a loss in the Divine Thoughts attack, he was the first to be pushed back by Lu Ping. Now he was the first to recover and closely followed behind Lu Ping. However, if Lu Ping insisted on escaping, there was nothing he could do. He could only attack with all his strength in an attempt to injure Lu Ping. Wei Zhen was holding a black stone ball in his hand. He suddenly threw it up, and the black stone ball suddenly expanded in mid-air. Like a falling meteor, it smashed towards Lu Ping's head. In an instant, Lu Ping's figure was shrouded by the shadow of the huge stone. Lu Ping had already sensed that although the shadow could not confine Lu Ping's figure, it seemed to be guiding the huge stone in mid-air to smash towards Lu Ping. This black stone ball was actually a spiritual treasure, a second tribulation spiritual treasure. Lu Ping abruptly turned around in mid-air, but his body was still flying backward. The thin water flow swords swirled in the air and spiraled around each other. A monstrous sword wave swept up from the bottom to the top, sweeping towards the falling Hei Shimaru. Great River Flows East Sword Technique. This time he did not use the sword technique that Lu Ping had created himself. Instead, he used the fundamental great technique of the Sea of Hundred Rivers sword technique, which was the great sword technique that Lu Ping had learned from the North Sea wave listening technique. A monstrous wave rose into the sky, causing the huge black stone to sway in mid-air. However, it could not stop the huge stone from falling. However, Lu Ping did not expect to be able to stop the falling stone. All he needed was a split second of shaking from the huge stone. Lu Ping used his space magic and took advantage of the moment when the huge stone was shaken by Lu Ping. He took a step forward and immediately broke free from the shadow cast on Lu Ping's body by the huge stone. The huge black stone fell with a loud bang. The entire Ninshan Mountain could feel a huge tremor. A huge crater appeared in the middle of Ninshan Mountain. Water flowed out of the crater and swirled up muddy sand. Lu Ping spat out a mouthful of blood. However, his figure took advantage of the huge force brought by the huge stone to fly backwards at a much faster speed. In one fell swoop, he increased the distance between him and the 4 Ninshan Tower heirs. A moment later, he disappeared into the horizon. North Sea Lu Tianping really lives up to his reputation. Wei Zhen knew that it was too late to chase after him. He simply floated in mid-air and did not move. Instead, he stretched out his hand towards the crater created by the huge stone. A black stone ball the size of a thumb flew out of the muddy water and landed in Wei Zhen's hand. At this time the other 3 also caught up to Wei Zhen. Chang Sankai looked in the direction that Lu Ping had left and asked, "Boss Wei, are we still going to give chase?" Wei Zhen glanced at him and said, "Chase? Can you catch up?" The 5 Elements Pavilion Master sighed and said, "How embarrassing. The 4 of us joined forces and still let him escape." However, the 2 Elements Pavilion Master said, "You can't say that. Who knew that this person would actually hide in Ninshan Mountain? We were caught off guard and let him escape. Moreover, this person was already seriously injured by Boss Wei. This time we did not lose." Chang Sankai said with disdain, 4 against 1, and you still let him escape. You didn't lose the formation but you lost the people. The 2 Elements Pavilion Master's face turned red and was about to say something. However, the 5 Elements Pavilion Master said, "Strange, how did this Lu Tianping hide in Ninshan Mountain? We had already chased him away that day, so why did he suddenly jump out? How did he avoid my formation detection and our sex cultivators searching Ninshan Mountain?" At this time Wei Zhen suddenly said, "What else could it be? He must have already entered the thieving heavens treasure trove." Wei Zhen's words caused Chang Sankai and the others to be in disbelief. One after another they said, "That's impossible. When the treasure trove opened, this Lu Tianping was chased away by us. He didn't even enter Ninshan Mountain, so how could he open the treasure trove? Moreover, if that Lu Tianping really came out of the treasure trove, how could he not hear the loud sound of the treasure trove opening when he came out?" Chapter 12:11. Wei Jin didn't pay attention to everyone's nonsense and directly said, "Inform our sect's array masters, mine prospectors and the like. They must find the heavenly abode within half a month. I want to see what's inside." However, this first Origin Tower Master was destined to be disappointed. With the help of spirit-seeking Mouse de Bao, Lu Ping had already looted most of the treasures in the treasure. Even if they found it, they would not be able to obtain anything. However, the stone wall leading to the Longevity Cave and the Spirit Stone Mine at the entrance of the tunnel might be discovered by them. However, these things originally belonged to the 9 Mystical Tower. The only worry was that the 9 Mystical Mountain would become desperate and chase after Lu Ping and the others. Fortunately, these 2 spatial passages were well hidden. Hopefully, even if the 9 Mystical Towers cultivators found the treasure, they would not discover the 2 spatial passages leading to the 9 Mystical Towers' protective array. Of course, the first Origin Tower Master was more concerned about how Lu Tianping entered the Thieving Heaven treasure. However, he knew that since Lu Tianping was able to break out of the 9 Mystical Mountains encirclement, even if they found the Thieving Heaven treasure, Lu Tianping would not leave any traces of him entering the Thieving Heaven treasure for the 9 Mystical Towers people to investigate. Moreover, the 9 Mystical Tower would not even think of the Hollow Spirit. At this time, the 5 Elements Tower Master said, "Lu Tianping has been seriously injured by eldest senior brother's black ink bead. Even if we cannot catch up to him, he will not be too far away. Moreover, he will definitely find a place to heal his injuries. I think we should instruct our sect's cultivators to search everywhere. Once we find him within our sect's sphere of influence, we can immediately surround and annihilate him." Chang Sankai was silent, but the 2 Elements Tower Master clapped his hands and laughed. "Old 5, this is a good idea." However, this Lu Tianping was able to block Eldest Wei's black ink bead and escape. Although this ability is amazing, I am afraid that his injuries are now like an arrow at the end of its flight. Wei Jin hesitated for a moment before nodding. Just as he was about to open his mouth to agree, a sharp sound pierced through the air and rang in everyone's ears. Wei Jin was not the only one. Even the other 3 cultivators wore solemn expressions. When they turned to the northeast, they saw streaks of light of various colors rising into the sky, transforming into colorful clouds that formed a huge Xian character in the sky that could be seen by all cultivators within a radius of 1,000 kilometers. Wei Jin's face sank. Sect leader Shen Yun is giving us a warning. We need to return quickly. The Yin-Yang building master asked curiously, "Who has eaten the guts of a leopard, daring to provoke our building?" Wei Jin barked, "Shut up and return." Lu Ping had used Wei Jin's attack to speed up his retreat, but he did not expect that the power contained in that attack would be so powerful. Although Lu Ping also had a second Tribulation Spirit treasure, the 2 Broken Mantis Scissors, if the 2 spirit treasures were to clash head-on, the 2 Broken Mantis Scissors would definitely lose. Although Lu Ping had managed to escape the attack of Wei Jin's spirit treasure, he was still injured by the aura contained in the spirit treasure. His internal organs were injured, and he could no longer suppress the mouthful of blood in his chest. Fortunately, Lu Ping's body was strong. After consuming the 7 aperture pill in the Thieving Heaven's inheritance, his body's cultivation had risen to another level. Although this attack had injured Lu Ping's internal organs, his injuries were not as serious as the 5 Elements Tower Master and the others had expected. Lu Ping flew all the way out of the 9 Profound Mountain, and the 9 Profound Tower's direct disciples behind him could no longer catch up. Lu Ping then turned northwest, preparing to return to the North Sea through the Yingtian courtyard. However, just as Lu Ping reached the shore of the Qingming River, the scene in front of Lu Ping made him tremble with fear. Countless devil azuras plunged into the water from the other side of the Qingming River like dumplings being dropped into a pot. Deep gullies were left on the ground. Countless wind azuras were peeking out from the 3 tornadoes. The forest by the shore was ablaze. However, the forest was still green. The blazing fire did not destroy much of the forest. At this time, a thin layer of ice gradually formed on the surface of the Qingming River. This layer of ice also extended all the way to the other side of the river, as if a bridge had been built on the surface of the Qingming River. The countless Mara soldiers who had been waiting by the shore all stepped on the ice and headed to the other side. Big and small Mara were everywhere, and blood Mara could be seen everywhere. Traces of Jade Mara had also been detected by Lu Ping, and even the aura of Azuras had been detected by Lu Ping twice in a short period of time. What were they trying to do? After all, this place was still within the 9 Profound Tower's sphere of influence. How could the 9 Profound Tower ignore Mara's massive invasion? However, what if Mara's army was originally aiming for the 9 profound tower? Run. He absolutely could not let Mara's army entangle him. With such an overwhelming scene, if he really fell into Mara's heavy encirclement, Lu Ping would not even be able to cause a splash before he was swallowed up by Mara's army. Lu Ping did not dare to flee south. At this time, Mara's army was also heading south, and it seemed like their destination was very clear. If he continued to head south, he might attract the attention of some powerful existence in Mara's army. If he was killed, there would be no way for him to explain himself. Lu Ping could only head west in an attempt to shake off the pursuit of Mara's army. He hoped that this time Mara's army had gathered here with a purpose. If that was the case, there was a chance that he would not attract the attention of Jade Mara, who was at the same level as him, or even someone with a higher cultivation. Lu Ping followed the Qingming River for a few dozen kilometers in a single breath. The number of Mara's army on the river's surface gradually decreased, but Lu Ping did not relax at all. Instead, his expression became more and more solemn. At this time, within the range of Lu Ping's divine sense, he could clearly sense that about 30 to 40 kilometers south of the Qingming River, a large number of Mara's auras had appeared. Moreover, there was no lack of existences of the same level as Mara. Furthermore, further away, the auras of Mara's divine sense were even more rampant and tyrannical. However, there was a limit to the range of Lu Ping's divine sense. Even if he could sense it further away, it was still extremely vague. The northern Mara's army had crossed the river in large numbers, while the western Mara's army was heading east in large numbers. The intention of the Mara's army was already very clear. They were heading towards the 9 profound tower. Furthermore, if Lu Ping was not wrong, there were currently 2 groups of Mara's armies, one from the east and one from the south, working together with the other 2 groups to surround the 9 profound tower. This Mara's army was really going all out. Lu Ping's luck was evidently pretty good. Currently, he had been fleeing in the northwest direction for his life. Instead, he had fled all the way to the point where the northern Mara's army and the western Mara's army met. Without a doubt, this was because the 2 groups of Mara's army had suffered too much damage. Charge out, I must charge out. As the 4 sides of the Mara's army closed in, this area would gradually shrink and disappear. When that happened, Lu Ping would probably be trapped. Lu Ping had no time to worry about his internal injuries. The thin stream sword was like 2 green dragons that dove into the Qingming River. It alerted the Mara's army that was patrolling the river, and 2 Jade Shura came for Lu Ping. At this time, the Qingming River that Lu Ping was in was already upstream, and the river was getting more and more turbulent. But at this time, the entire Qingming River suddenly started to boil. As the 2 Jade Shura came for him in fear, the Qingming River under their feet suddenly rose by 3 feet. The entire Qingming River started to flow backwards. The Qingming River that the 2 sides of the Mara's army were combining to strengthen the 2 sides of the Mara's army. They did not expect Lu Ping to be able to use his own power to move the entire Qingming River. They were all shocked and they all fell back. The entire formation of the Mara's army was suddenly thrown into chaos. At this time, 2 green sword dragons emerged from the river, carrying the power of the Qingming River flowing backwards. They were coming for the 2 Jade Shura that were trying to kill Lu Ping. Before the 2 sword dragons even got close, their fierce power was already coming for the 2 Jade Shura. The 2 Jade Shura were scared before they could even fight. But how could Lu Ping's trump card be so simple? A giant praying mantis suddenly appeared above Lu Ping's head. Its 2 blades crisscrossed and slashed down like a pair of scissors. The 2 blades had already broken through the restrictions of space and were aimed at the 2 Jade Shuras. At the same time, the water ghost sword flashed a blue light in the air, and it appeared in the midst of the Mara's army, which had been thrown into chaos by Lu Ping. Every time the blue light flashed, a Mara would die. A rat jumped onto Lu Ping's left shoulder, its long tail coiled around a small copper hammer and swung it upwards. The copper bell that appeared above his head suddenly rang loudly, and the already disorderly battle formation was now in chaos. A few blood Mara wanted to come out and clean up the Mara army, but a loud voice shouted, "Kill them!" Lu Xiaoping took the lead. After Lu Ping had reached the mid-Dharma level, Lu Xiaoping's power had increased a lot, even though his training had not increased. At least this sudden attack was enough to put a few blood Mara in a difficult position. A jade demon had appeared behind the Mara army, and it suddenly spat in Lu Ping's direction. Lu Ping suddenly felt as if his will had been pierced by something like a nail. Lu Ping didn't mind it at all. His jade phosphorus soul fire flickered and the soul-devouring nail was instantly refined. The jade demon screamed in pain and saw a golden ping swooping down from the sky, its claws reaching for the jade demon's head. The jade demon hurriedly retreated and saw the golden ping suddenly explode in midair. It turned into a sky full of auspicious clouds that shrouded the entire sky. The jade demon wanted to use its divine art to counterattack, but it was suddenly blocked by the auspicious clouds in the sky. Its soul-devouring divine art was weakened by half every time it used it. Chapter 12:12. Mara's army was going to surround the 9 profound tower. Lu Ping had no time to be shocked. He had to escape from the encirclement first. The cloud sail had weakened the jade demon's harassment and sneak attacks. Samling, Lu Qiner, Lu Xiaohai, and the others no longer had any scruples. They joined forces and attacked. The surface of the Qingming River had already been turned upside down by the 2 sword dragons formed by Lu Ping's thin water flow sword. The 3 jade Mara were also being pinned down by Lu Ping. Lu Ping saw that the time was ripe. He had single-handedly thrown the Mara's army that was gathering on the Qingming River into chaos. He couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Lu Ping laughed bitterly to himself. No matter how vigorous his true essence was, he wouldn't be able to sustain such an intense consumption of true essence when he was seriously injured. This time his injuries were even more serious. But if he couldn't break out of the encirclement now, once the Mara's army came from 2 directions to reinforce him, not only would Lu Ping have no chance to escape, but he would also die. Lu Ping held his hands in the air and an extremely dense purplish-blue light began to condense. 12 5-colored stars flashed in the middle of the purplish-blue light. Then Lu Ping abruptly pressed the light down into the river beneath his feet. 12 5-colored pillars of light shot into the sky from the Qingming River, and 12 huge waves rolled up from different directions. Everything within a mile of Lu Ping was covered in water, and it was impossible to tell north from south. Countless Mara were suppressed and swallowed in this world of water. At the same time, under the cover of the huge waves, a blooming white jade lotus gradually appeared in the river and began to close up. The huge flower also began to gradually shrink until it disappeared. Just as the white jade lotus disappeared into the Qingming River, the 12 beams of colorful light that shot into the sky suddenly disappeared. The various spiritual treasures and the numerous cultivators who had been wreaking havoc in the group of Mo Luo also disappeared abruptly. The boiling river gradually calmed down, but the surviving Mo Luo still had not recovered from the earth-shattering scene. 3 jade Mara gathered together in a sorry state. While guarding against Lu Ping, who was hiding somewhere, they began to regroup the defeated Mara's army. At this moment, several beams of light came from the north and west. Several jade Mara and blood Mara came as reinforcements. There was even an Azura among the Mara that came from the north, which made all the Mara present worship. Looking at the doomsday-like scene, the Azura's furious roar made all the Mara present fall silent. They just knelt on the ground, not daring to make the slightest movement. As the Azura continued to roar, groups of Mara immediately moved. In the Qingming River, in the mountains on both sides, in the woods and even further places, they began to search for traces of Lu Ping. The Azura also followed the groups of Mara from time to time, trying to find Lu Ping who had just disappeared. However, no matter how hard these Mara searched, they never found any trace of Lu Ping. In such a short time, where did Lu Ping hide? At this moment, Lu Ping was hiding in the water vein of the Qingming River. Even he himself didn't know that he could break through the water vein of the Qingming River and hide in it. Just as Lu Ping used the natal gentian formation to activate this section of the Qingming River, there was a moment when Lu Ping actually discovered that as the Qingming River moved, the water vein hidden at the bottom of the Qingming River was also affected. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. The White Lotus formation caught the movement of the water vein and opened the spatial entrance to the water vein of the Qingming River. Lu Ping was overjoyed. Taking advantage of the chaos caused by the gentian formation, he instantly recalled Samling and the others. Without waiting for the Qingming River to calm down, Lu Ping and the others had already entered the water vein through the white jade lotus. However, Lu Ping still didn't dare to be careless. He activated the art of sea deception and worked hard to become one with the water vein. Indeed, moments later, the chaos caused by Lu Ping was discovered by Mara's armies in the north and west. When reinforcements arrived, an Azura followed. Everyone knew that the water vein was hidden in the Qingming River, but it was extremely rare to find someone capable of entering the water vein. Even Mara, who was thought to be an essence spirit, might not be able to discover the water vein of the Qingming River. However, the water vein was extremely fragile. If Lu Ping made any strange movements in the water vein, it could destroy the water vein's concealment. Not only could he be discovered by the Azura who was constantly monitoring the Qingming River, he could even cause damage to the water vein of the Qingming River. The two largest rivers in the Central Plains were the Nether River, while the other was the Yulon River. This was something that everyone knew. However, rivers were hard to find, and every single one of them was extremely hard to find. Even if you were able to find it immediately, it could disappear into the river at any time. In the world of cultivation, there were very few people who could capture a water vein and use it. Firstly, water veins were difficult to find. Secondly, it was difficult to keep a water vein under control. As for the two largest water veins, the Qingming River and the Yulon River, they were even more difficult to use. The only way to find these two water veins was by using the Yulon River vein that the Koi clan and Wuxia school used, and the Qingming River vein that the Nine Mysteries Tower and Skyward Pavilion used. Seeing that countless Mara were searching the Qingming River but were unable to find Lu Ping hiding in the water vein, the Azura grew impatient. With a whistle, the numerous Mara began to regroup and head towards the Nine Mysteries Tower. Compared to the great battle they were about to face, this lucky fellow who had escaped their search was nothing. Even though Mara had left, Lu Ping, who was hiding in the water vein, was not in a hurry to come out. This was because no matter which river it would always be erratic. It was not easy to find it. Moreover, Lu Ping specialized in water attribute techniques. A water vein was the condensation of the essence of a river. To Lu Ping, any water vein was a great opportunity for him to train. The effect was no less than Lu Ping discovering a large spirit vein and enjoying the benefits of it. What's more, this was the largest water vein in the Central Plains, the Qingming River. Moreover, when Lu Ping had used the art of sea deception to merge with the water vein, he had already discovered that his injuries were healing quickly under the nourishment of the Qingming River's water vein. Originally, the injuries Lu Ping had suffered from this technique would require at least 2 to 3 years of recuperation. Now, it seemed that he would only need a year at most to completely recover from his injuries. Moreover, he was fortunate enough to be able to control the Qingming River's water vein and make use of it. No matter what, Lu Ping would not let go of this opportunity. The water vein of the Qingming River was extremely difficult to control. It was easy for Lu Ping to enter the water vein for a while, but as time passed he would discover that the water vein was flowing away. Moreover, it was extremely difficult to find out where the flowing water vein was going. Fortunately, Lu Ping's attainments in the Tao of water were quite profound. The art of sea deception was also an extremely exquisite inheritance. After Lu Ping worked hard to merge with the water vein, he was finally able to control the Qingming River's water vein well. He had never missed the opportunity to control the Qingming River's water vein. Circulating the North Sea wave listening technique, the water essence of the Qingming River continuously surged into Lu Ping's body, healing Lu Ping's injuries and increasing his cultivation at the same time. Just as Lu Ping was hiding in the Qingming River's water vein and cultivating, the Nine Mystical Tower was facing its biggest crisis since it had established itself as one of the 5 sacred lands. Hundreds of thousands of Mara, led by nearly 30 Azuras and 5 heavenly demons, surrounded the Nine Mystical Tower from all directions. At the same time, an endless stream of Mara's army appeared from all directions and gathered towards the Nine Mystical Tower. The number of Mara's army attacking the Nine Mystical Tower continued to grow, and for a time the world was shaken. The other 4 sacred lands of the Middle Plains sent out orders to the cultivation world to reinforce the Nine Mystical Tower, calling for the entire cultivation world to head to the Nine Mystical Tower to kill Mara. This attracted the response of many sects and powers in the Middle Plains. However, just as the cultivators from the various sects began to gather and head towards the Nine Mystical Tower's territory, they encountered layers upon layers of resistance from Mara's army. Countless Mara fearlessly attacked the cultivators from the various sects and powers who came to reinforce the Nine Mystical Tower, blocking the reinforcements outside the Nine Mystical Tower. Mara's large-scale attack on the Nine Mystical Tower signified that Mara's calamity had begun again and had reached its climax. Fending off Mara's calamity was a righteous cause for the cultivation world. That was why the entire cultivation world responded to the request to reinforce the Nine Mystical Tower. Of course, the various factions that had rushed over to reinforce the Nine Profound Tower naturally had their own selfish motives. They naturally wouldn't do something that would cause them to lose 800 men in order to save the Nine Profound Tower. After all, the Nine Profound Tower wasn't their biological father. There was no need for them to risk their lives like that. What's more, while the other 4 holy lands of the Central Region were calling for the entire cultivation world of the Central Region to rescue the 9 Profound Tower, the Lingyun Valley and the Skyward Pavilion were confronting the demon clan of the Endless Mountain because of the Magic Cloud City. The Wuxia school was focusing on the chaotic situation in the northern cultivation world and the 2 large sects on the eastern coast. At the same time, they were also vigilant of the Crystal Palace's infiltration from the East Sea to the Central Region. As for the Purple Sun Palace, it seemed that the situation was not very good. The situation in the Western Wilderness had changed because of the rise of the Pegasus clan, and the sphere of influence of the Purple Sun Palace seemed to be affected. Although the other 4 holy lands had also sent reinforcements to the 9 mystical tower, they were all preoccupied with other matters. Thus, the amount of reinforcements they could send was not that great. Thus, the 9 mystical tower was constantly besieged by Mara's army. Even the other 4 holy lands were incapable of sending reinforcements to the 9 mystical tower. Naturally, even though the other sects had sent reinforcements, they would not go all out to fight Mara. Chapter 12-13. Lu Ping had been practicing in the water vein of Qingming River for more than a year, and the injuries on his body had already recovered. However, to be able to obtain the nourishment of a water vein was an extremely rare thing. Lu Ping naturally did not want to lose such a hard-won opportunity so easily, so he put all his attention into practicing. 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. Suddenly, an explosive sound came from the middle of the Qingming River, which had already regained its tranquility. Surging waves rose up from the bottom of the Qingming River, bringing along a cloud of dense spiritual energy. The clouds and water vapor in the surroundings quickly gathered together, forming a white mist in the sky above the Qingming River. A roar came from within the mist, and a strange blue flood dragon with the body of a snake, the legs of a crocodile, and the tail of a carp sprang out from the mist. It swaggered in the air, showing off its might. The strange dragon seemed very excited in the air, and the white mist spontaneously gathered around its body. Its slender body brought along the surging white mist in the air, and when it circled in the air, it would cause vibrations like water waves. From a distance, the strange dragon seemed to be directing the white mist to imitate the scene of the waves of the Qingming River under its feet. Okay, isn't it just condensing the Dharma idol one step ahead of us? Look at your proud look. A crisp voice sounded, and the tone was full of jealousy. Who else could it be but Lu Linger? Hee. The strange Jiao turned half a circle in the air, then disappeared into the white mist. After rolling for a while, Lu Hai walked out from inside and laughed complacently. Third sister, you can be jealous. Just the tone of your voice, your brother, am so jealous that my teeth are going to fall off. I'm so angry. Look at my move, icebound 1,000 miles. A white figure suddenly appeared from the Qingming River. It was a huge white snake stirring up a big wave in the river. Before the wave fell, it turned into an ice snake in the air that was similar to the white snake, and pounced towards Lu Hai. However, Lu Hai seemed to be dismissive of Lu Linger's little tricks and said, Hey, it's useless. In front of the absolute strength of my Dharma plane cultivation, your little tricks are useless. You will only be crushed. Lu Hai pointed at the ice snake that was rushing over, and with a series of splashing sounds, the ice snake had already turned into a pool of water and fell into the Qingming River. Seeing that her sacred art had been broken so easily, Lu Linger was extremely unhappy. She shouted towards the river below her, Big sister, Lu Hai is bullying me. Lu Hai stared at him and said, Can you call me second brother? Lu Linger made a face and heard Lu Bai's gentle voice coming from the river. She sighed slightly, I can't help you. Both of us have not entered the Dharma plane yet. Even if we join forces, we are not this guy's opponent. If we have the time to be angry, we might as well hurry up and cultivate. When we also condense the Dharma plane, will he still dare to show off in front of us? Lu Linger was very discouraged and complained, Father has not come out for so many years in the water vein. If Father comes out, let's see if he still dares to be so presumptuous. This guy is also lucky. He has been cultivating with Father in the water vein for 5 years. I didn't expect that he would be the first to break through the Dharma plane. Lu Hai said proudly, that is the water vein. Father himself also cultivates the water attribute cultivation method. Your second brother, am just lucky. Do you understand? Who told you to cultivate the wind and ice? Such a good water vein can't be used. Who can you blame? Lu Hai's pride made Lu Linger more and more angry, but her cultivation was firmly suppressed by Lu Hai at this time, and there was nothing she could do. Among the Samling, Lu Bai was diligent and steady in cultivation, and was the most trusted by Lu Ping. Lu Ping himself was a water cultivator, so he received the most care and guidance, and Lu Linger was cute and was the most loved by Lu Ping. Generally, she was the one who got the most good things, especially when Lu Ping also found the inheritance of the Ice Dragon clan for her, which made her cultivation greatly improved. Originally, Lu Linger thought that she would be the first to enter the Dharma plane, but she did not expect that Lu Hai would be the first to do so. Naturally, she was very unhappy in her heart, and her sarcasm failed. But Lu Hai himself, because after condensing the Dharma plane, his position was still different. Naturally, he would not take Lu Linger's childish words to heart, which made Lu Linger very angry. Lu Linger turned around and asked, "Big sister, how long will it take for you to enter the Dharma plane?" Lu Bai sighed and said, "We're just left with this last step. Among the three of us, you're the one who has improved the fastest, and your potential is also the best. If you weren't as playful as De Bao, you would have entered the Dharma stage long ago. Why would you still need to watch your second brother strut around now?" Lu Linger whispered angrily, "That's because I wanted to wait for you too. Who knew that your cultivation was actually ahead of me, and you didn't even tell me?" Lu Hai said, "Don't look for those reasons, but this time, it is not me who has benefited the most from following father, but Dague." Lu Linger remembered that after entering the water vein, Lu Ping released them. Although Lu Bai and Lu Linger were demon cultivators who liked water, their cultivation method was not compatible with the water vein, and it did not take long for them to be expelled by the water vein. Lu Ping practiced in it for 5 years and broke through to the Dharma plane. When he broke through, it caused a lot of celestial phenomena, and Lu Ping had no time to cover it, so he was expelled by the water vein. Only Lu Dague, the black tortoise, had been following Lu Ping to practice. In the blink of an eye, 10 years had passed. Although Dague is usually honest, his luck is always so good. Now his cultivation has probably advanced to the late core forging realm, right? Lu Bai said softly, "Practicing the water attribute martial arts, following by father's side will always be the most beneficial. Brother Dague usually works hard without any complaints, always giving way to us when there's a problem, so it's only right that he gets some benefits. Moreover, no matter how much benefits Brother Dague gets, can it compare to second brother condensing a form?" Lu Linger was still indignant. She was not jealous, but she was the last one among the 3 siblings. She was unhappy, so naturally she said everything without thinking. Lu Bai knew her temperament, so she continued, "Compared to Sister Qin, we are considered lucky. Lu Qin's aptitude and cultivation base weren't any weaker than the 3 of them, but unfortunately she couldn't find a wind-fire dual-elemental heaven spirit. Lu Qin was also a proud and arrogant person, so she wasn't willing to condense a high-grade golden core with just a wind-fire or wind-elemental heaven spirit. Hence, her cultivation base had been stuck at the bottleneck of the 9th layer core forging realm. And now, Lu Ping had given her a mission to hatch the 5 wood Luan eggs in the golden house. Sure enough, upon hearing Lu Bai's words, Lu Linger's unhappy expression immediately recovered, and she said excitedly, "I don't know what level father's cultivation has reached now. Will he attract the second thunder tribulation and enter the late Dharma stage in one fell swoop?" Lu Bai did not say anything, but Lu Hai thought for a moment and said, "No, with father's strength, even if he attracts the second thunder tribulation, it may not be able to do anything to him. However, father has always been cautious. If not for the fact that he has accumulated his strength to the limit when he was in the middle Dharma stage, he would not have summoned the second thunder tribulation." Lu Hai had now entered the Dharma stage, so he understood Lu Ping better than Lu Bai and Lu Linger. Moreover, Lu Hai had followed Lu Ping to train in the water vein for 5 years, so he could be said to be the most familiar with Lu Ping's recent situation. Lu Bai nodded and said, "Father's strength has always been the best of the practitioners of the same level. Moreover, father's vision will not be limited to the late Dharma stage. Even pure Yang Laozu may not be in father's eyes. His goal is higher, and he will not easily summon the thunder tribulation to increase his cultivation." At this time, Lu Linger rolled her eyes at the side and said, "Big sister, second brother, why don't we go somewhere else to play? It's boring to stay here all the time." Lu Bai hurriedly interrupted, "Don't even think about it, we still have to wait here for father to come out of seclusion. Moreover, we are now in the central region, this is the world of the human practitioners, and it is the time of Mara's calamity. What if we are discovered?" Lu Linger said, "Oh, big sister, do you still think we are children under father's protection? With the cultivation of the 3 of us, how many people in the world of cultivation can do anything to us? And with the identity of the three of us, who would dare to provoke us? Moreover, second brother has now broken through the Dharma stage. In the world of cultivation he is more or less a small master. We can't always live under father's wings, can we? Lu Bai did not say anything. Lu Linger turned around and said, second brother is the most powerful. Let's go out and play. It is boring to stay here all the time. Lu Hai laughed and said, I will listen to big sister. However, there was still a look of eagerness in Lu Hai's eyes. Lu Linger rolled her eyes and said simply, you are a Dharma adept, so timid. If you two don't go, then I will go play alone. Don't worry, I won't go far. After saying that, Lu Linger rolled in the water, and she was already a few miles away. Lu Bai had to interrupt her cultivation and float up from the river, and then she and Lu Hai chased after her. Outside the book, Lu Linger smiled at the two people who had caught up and said, I know you two also want to go out and play, but no one dares to disobey father's words. Lu Hai smiled foolishly and said nothing. He was originally the most straightforward person, but after his advancement he was also quite ambitious. Compared to Lu Linger, who could not bear the loneliness and wanted to play, rather than saying that he was tired of waiting, it would be better to say that he wanted to find someone to fight with and see what level his cultivation had reached. Only Lu Bai was the most steady. Seeing that she could not persuade the two people, she finally said helplessly, don't go far, father may come out at any time. In the Qingming River's water vein, Lu Ping, who had been in closed-door cultivation for 10 years, suddenly opened his eyes. A hint of surprise could be seen in his eyes as he said, what a strong water vein. What's going on? Could it be that someone is after the Qingming River's water vein? Chapter 12-14. There were usually only two situations in which a water vein fluctuated violently. One was when the river changed its course, and the other was when the river burst its banks and flooded. Usually, only these two situations would cause the water vein of a river to fluctuate violently. However, there were many people with remarkable abilities in the world of cultivation. There were naturally many methods to cause a water vein to fluctuate so violently. However, there were only these two methods that could be used to achieve such a result. However, this situation was usually when the cultivator was unable to find the water vein. If they could find the water vein of the Qingming River, and if there were a few cultivators with remarkable abilities, they would not need to change the course of the Qingming River and burst its banks to achieve the same goal. Of course, it was not an easy task to shake the water vein of a large river like the Qingming River. For someone like Lu Ping, it was not easy to even find the water vein of the Qingming River, much less shake the water vein of the largest river in the Central Plains. There were only two great sects that could make the water vein of the Qingming River work without damaging its foundation. One was the Nine Profound Tower, which was located in the middle of the Qingming River, and the other was the Skyward Pavilion, which was near the mouth of the Qingming River. If Lu Ping had not challenged many Mara with his own strength and caused a violent tremor in the Qingming River when he attacked with his full strength, allowing him to luckily capture a trace of the ripples in the Qingming River and enter the water vein, it would have been difficult for Lu Ping to enter the water vein after exiting the water vein, even with Lu Ping's level of cultivation. This was also why Lu Ping did his best to cultivate after entering the water vein. Even when he sensed Samling and the others leaving, he did not stop them. He did not want to destroy the hard-won opportunity to enter the water vein. Of course, Samling's strength was also an important reason why Lu Ping had the confidence to let them travel alone. In reality, in the 10 years since Lu Ping entered the water vein, there had been rhythmic ripples coming from the east side of the water vein. However, these ripples did not affect Lu Ping's normal cultivation. Moreover, Lu Ping also knew that the Nine Profound Tower was currently surrounded by Mara's army thousands of miles to the east of the Qingming River. The Nine Profound Tower was currently in a defensive position, so it was understandable that they would use the power of the Qingming River to strengthen the sect's defensive formation. Moreover, the power of the water vein that the Nine Profound Tower could use was extremely limited, so the ripples were not strong and very orderly. It could be seen that although the Nine Profound Tower had been surrounded by Mara's army for 10 years, the entire Nine Profound Tower was still able to deal with the attacks of Mara's army with ease. However, the ripples in the water vein didn't originate from the Nine Mystical Tower in the east. Instead, it came from the west side of the Qingming River. From the looks of it, the water vein wasn't too far away from Lu Ping's seclusion ground. However, Lu Ping didn't intend to investigate. Lu Ping guessed that there might be some powerful cultivators stirring up the water vein of the Qingming River. He naturally did not want to provoke them, so he did his best to prevent himself from being repelled by the ripples in the water vein. Another year passed and the ripples in the water vein became more and more frequent. Moreover, the ripples grew larger and larger, to the point where Lu Ping could not guarantee that he would be able to cultivate. If this continued, not only would he not be able to cultivate, but Lu Ping himself would also be thrown out of the water vein. Just who would be so bold? One had to know that although the water vein of the Qingming River was difficult to capture, and even more difficult to enter to cultivate, any cultivator who could enter was undoubtedly a powerful cultivator in the cultivation world. The water vein of the Qingming River had been stirred like this for more than a year. It was definitely man-made, and in the process, it would definitely affect many powerful cultivators who were hidden in the water vein. This action was undoubtedly making an enemy of these powerful cultivators. Relying on the wonders of the North Sea wave listening spell, Lu Ping could still barely maintain his body in the water vein under such violent ripples, but he could no longer enter a meditative state to cultivate. Under such circumstances, there was no point for Lu Ping to stay in the water vein. However, Lu Ping was not a powerful cultivator who could capture the water vein of the Qingming River at any time and enter it. Lu Ping really did not want to lose this opportunity to enter the water vein. Therefore, Lu Ping was not in a hurry to search for the direction of the ripples. Instead, he had been using the water vein to quietly sneak in the direction of the ripples. However, just as Lu Ping was sneaking in the direction of the ripples, no one would have thought that someone would be able to hide in the water vein after such a violent ripple. Therefore, when Lu Ping was about to reach the place where the violent ripples came from, he quickly discovered that this was a trap that had been set long ago, and the person who wanted to ambush him was very likely Lu Ping himself. At this time, Lu Ping also sensed Samling's aura nearby. It was obvious that the three of them had stayed here for a period of time. Moreover, the aura that was erratic, sometimes condensing and sometimes dissipating, made Lu Ping even more certain that Samling had deliberately left it here. This was a unique warning and rescue method of green sea snakes. Lu Ping had asked Samling about the characteristics of this method in detail. He did not expect that it would come in handy today. Lu Ping's heart sank. He thought to himself, I'm afraid that Samling is already dead. The person lying in ambush here has obviously sensed my presence through Samling. The violent ripples in the water vein earlier were probably to lure me here. Once I follow the traces left by Samling and find this place, I will fall into the ambush. However, they did not expect that Lu Ping had come here by hiding in the water vein. The North Sea wave listening spell could actually allow Lu Ping to hide in the water vein even after such a violent disturbance. He had managed to sneak into the ambush that was originally prepared for Lu Ping. Could it really be that Lu Tianping himself? A cultivator that seemed to be young and didn't seem to be particularly old was hiding beneath the aquatic plants at the bottom of the Azure Netherworld River. When he saw that Lu Tianping still hadn't arrived after such a long time, he couldn't help but feel slightly doubtful. It must be him. Don't forget that those 3 demon cultivators that senior brother Qin Wuliang captured earlier were all from the Jade Sea Spirit Serpent clan. Currently, in the entire cultivation world, other than that Lu Tianping, who else has a Jade Sea Spirit Serpent as a follower? A voice came from a large fish that was swimming back and forth in the river. It turned out that it was a cultivator who had actually mastered the ability to transform into a fish. It is rumored that Lu Tianping's strength is no weaker than that of a great cultivator. Even the green sea snake was able to accept him as a follower. It might be possible for us to defeat him if we join forces, but I'm afraid it will be beyond our power to trap this person. Don't forget that although only one of the 3 demon cultivators had just reached the early Dharma stage, it took a lot of effort to capture them. In the end, it was senior brother Qin Wuliang who made a move to capture the 3 of them. Now, with just the few of us? The cultivator who was hidden under the water reeds asked again, obviously not optimistic about the outcome. It's not just a lot of effort. It's funny that Yang Wuji is at the peak of the early Dharma stage and is ranked 11th among the true disciples of our sect. He vowed that he would capture those 3 green sea snakes, but he didn't expect to be defeated by the 3 green sea snakes. Moreover, 2 of the 3 green sea snakes are only at the peak of the core forging stage, and the one at the Dharma stage has only just advanced. This Yang Wuji has almost lost all the face of our sect. Another voice joined the discussion. It was obvious that this person rarely spoke, but the blatant sarcasm in his words seemed to indicate that the person who spoke seemed to be on bad terms with the practitioner at the peak of the early Dharma stage, Yang Wuji. However, the fact that this person had taken the initiative to join the discussion made everyone's interest rise a little. However, this person fell silent again, and other than mocking Yang Wuji, he did not speak again. Don't worry, this time it's Sister Shueijiro who is personally involved. She is one of the 5 great Juzi of our sect, and with the help of all of us, how can we not be able to capture Lu Tianping? Not to mention, as long as we can trap him right away, the other cultivators from our sect will immediately rush over. That includes senior brother Qin Wuliang and the others. It is said that senior brother Mu Changxing is already on his way over. Even our sect's second-generation cultivators, the great uncle masters, are already prepared to take action. It turned out that it was the practitioners of Wuxing School, and Samling had obviously fallen into the hands of Wuxing School at this time. Lu Ping was secretly shocked, but he could not help but wonder, why is Wuxing School stirring up the water of the Qingming River here? The water of the Qingming River has only become extremely violent recently, but this kind of fluctuation has already lasted for nearly a year. This is obviously not a trap that Wuxing School has specially set up for more than a year to set up for Lu Ping. Why has Wuxing School been continuously stirring up the water of the Qingming River for more than a year? Sister Shueijiro is personally involved? The few disciples of Wuxing School who participated in the ambush all seemed to be shocked. However, at this time, Lu Ping did not bother to stay here anymore. Instead, he continued to follow the water upstream and continued to search for Samling's aura, hoping to rescue the 3 of them first. As for the current scheme of Wuxing School, in Lu Ping's opinion, it was best to hide as far away as possible. However, this time Lu Ping had miscalculated. At this time he was getting closer and closer to the source of the water fluctuation. Previously, the North Sea Wave listening spell could barely keep him hidden in the water, but now, it could no longer completely hide Lu Ping's aura in the water. Who is it? A clear and ethereal shout rang in Lu Ping's ears. When Lu Ping looked up, he saw that a female practitioner in white had unknowingly appeared in the Qingming River. A pair of beautiful eyes were staring in the direction where Lu Ping was hiding in the water. Suddenly, a pair of bells appeared in her hands. With a crisp ding-dang-dang sound, Lu Ping's expression changed. He felt that his surroundings had loosened, and his whole body almost sank into the water. Lu Ping secretly felt that something was wrong. As he staggered, he had already been pushed out of the water by the sound of the bells. Under the influence of the sound of the bells, he could no longer stand in the water. Chapter 12-15. Wuxing School was divided into 5 branches: Metal Branch, Wood Branch, Water Branch, Fire Branch, and Earth Branch. The first heir of each branch was called Juzi. However, since the branch of Broken Water lost 2 of the meridian-guarding treasures left by one of the founders of Wuxing School, the branch of Broken Water lost something very important. Compared with the other 4 branches, it became weaker and weaker in Wuxing School. Later, although Juzi of the branch of Broken Water was the first heir, in fact, he was slightly inferior to the second and third heir of the other 4 branches. As a result, the disciples of the branch of Broken Water were often ridiculed by the other 4 branches in Wuxing School, and the position of the branch of Broken Water in Wuxing School had been declining. However, the reason why Wuxing School was called Wuxing School was that there were many common connections among the 5 branches, and these connections might even affect the foundation of Wuxing School. Therefore, the decline of the branch of Broken Water could not be simply made up by the other 4 branches becoming stronger. On the contrary, the decline of the branch of Broken Water would become a fatal flaw in the overall improvement of Wuxing School. The 5 branches of Wuxing School were interdependent and promoted each other. They were basically a school that shared prosperity and decline. Although the disciples of the other 4 branches of Wuxing School complained about the current situation of the branch of Broken Water, the high-level practitioners of Wuxing School understood this. Therefore, Wuxing School had never given up supporting the branch of Broken Water, and even tried to make up for the loss of the branch of Broken Water. Otherwise, Wuxing School would have long become the best among the 5 Holy Lands of Middle Land. The 5 Holy Lands of Middle Land and the Crystal Palace of East Sea were actually different among the 6 Holy Lands of the human tribe in the world of cultivation. The Crystal Palace had dominated East Sea for tens of thousands of years. Although East Sea was not as prosperous as Middle Land, it naturally had a unique advantage because of its dominance. Among the 6 Holy Lands, it even had the potential to rank first. This was why the Crystal Palace had always dared to infiltrate Middle Land at the risk of becoming the enemy of the Holy Lands of Middle Land. Among the 5 Holy Lands of Middle Land and the Crystal Palace of East Sea, the only one that could compete with the Crystal Palace was Xiang Palace. Similar to the Crystal Palace, Xiang Palace was close to West Wilderness. Although it was located in the west of the 5 Holy Lands and was extremely remote in the world of cultivation in Middle Land, Xiang Palace also occupied a sphere of influence that the other 4 Holy Lands could not compare with. However, at the same time, the Purple Sun Palace was able to occupy a sphere of influence that the other 4 sanctums could not compare to, especially in the West Wilderness. The Purple Sun Palace even treated it as their backyard. Although the vast sphere of influence was slightly barren in terms of training resources because it was far from Middle Land, the total amount of resources was not lacking at all. It was even more than the other 4 Holy Lands. Since the establishment of Xiang Palace, everyone in Xiang Palace had regarded themselves as the inheritors of Jiao Daoren. They were even known as the #1 sword sect in the world. This glory in Middle Land even surpassed that of the Crystal Palace of East Sea. If not for the appearance of Skyren's Xiao Baiyu a few hundred years ago, killing the pure Yang sword celestial Lu Taiqing of Xiang Palace with the cultivation of a late Dharma adept, causing the reputation of Xiang Palace to suffer. Among the 6 Holy Lands, Xiang Palace could even surpass the Crystal Palace and remove the word sword from the title of #1 sword sect in the world. For tens of thousands of years among the 6 Holy Lands, Xiang Palace and Crystal Palace were known as the 2 palaces, one in the east and the other in the west. They were the real leaders of the 6 Holy Lands that had never fallen. Below these 2 sects, Wuxing School, Jiushuan Tower, Skyward Pavilion, and Lingyun Valley were slightly inferior. For tens of thousands of years, although these 4 Holy Lands had always stood at the top of the world of training, they inevitably had their own ups and downs. They could never be as stable as Xiang Palace and Crystal Palace. However, in fact, before the loss of the Meridian Guarding Spirit Treasure of Wuxing School's reputation had never been weaker than Xiang Palace and Crystal Palace. Even when Wuxing School was at its peak, even the 2 palaces had to give way to them. However, after the loss of the Meridian Guarding Spirit Treasure, although Wuxing School still firmly occupied the position of the 5 Holy Lands, its strength inevitably declined, and it could no longer be on the same level as the 2 palaces. However, in the recent hundreds of years, except for a few great figures, the Water Branch no longer relied on the support of the school and the supplement of the inheritance of the Water Branch. Instead, they tried every means to completely revive the Water Branch, so that Wuxing School could return to the glory of the 2 palaces. Unfortunately, after the 5-element sect had schemed overseas for hundreds of years, they finally found out the whereabouts of the Broken Water Lineage's Pulse Suppression Spirit Treasure, but the Pulse Suppression Spirit Treasure had fallen into the hands of others in the end, causing the entire 5-element sect to be greatly disappointed. Fortunately, there was always a way out. Just when Wuxing School was extremely disappointed by the disappearance of the treasure, Hanya Laozu, a disciple secretly trained by Wuxing School, found another treasure in the Northern Alliance that was enough to replace the Water Branch, which made everyone in Wuxing School wild with joy. A relic of the world's creation stained with Yuan Daoist tears. In the eyes of Lu Ping and others, the real value of the relic of the world's creation should be the few words left by Jiao Daoren on it. However, Wuxing School did not think so. Although Jiao Daoren's handwriting was the world's treasure, they would rather have the few drops of Yuan Daoist tears in the relic of the world's creation. When Wuxing School planned to destroy the Northern Alliance and let Hanya Laozu return to the central region with the relic of the world's creation and half of the Northern Alliance's property, they not only failed in the end, but also fought a great cultivator with great potential who had been secretly trained for many years, which was really a double loss. In desperation, Wuxing School had to adopt this more extreme method, even at the risk of completely falling out with Jiushuan Tower. However, at the moment when Wuxing School's final plan was about to be carried out, they did not expect that it would be exposed by 3 green sea snakes, and these 3 green sea snakes looked like the 3 green sea snakes followers of Lu Tianping, the North Sea cultivator who had been in the limelight recently in the central region. In other words, this North Sea water immortal was very likely to be nearby at this time. If the Wuxing School's plan was leaked by this person, Shui Jiro's heart suddenly sank. If this matter was known by others after it was done, what was done could not be undone, and all the holy lands and sects could only pinch their noses and accept it. However, if this matter was exposed at this time, Wuxing School would definitely be the target of public criticism. Even if Wuxing School was one of the 6 great holy lands, in the face of the joint pressure of all the sects and holy lands in the cultivation world, perhaps it could only obediently give in. They absolutely could not let Lu Tianping leave alive. After hearing the news that the 3 green sea snakes had appeared and been captured, Shueijiro immediately expected that Lu Tianping would definitely chase after his followers to rescue them. The news about the relationship between Lu Tianping's followers and the Green Sea Snakes had caused an uproar in the cultivation world. Shueijiro was sure that Lu Tianping did not dare to give up on his followers, otherwise the Green Sea Snakes of the East Sea would certainly not let him go. Thus, Shueijiro immediately summoned several Dharma manifestation stage direct disciples of the Broken Water lineage as well as direct disciples of the other lineages to set up a heavy ambush here, waiting for Lu Tianping to step in so that they could attack together. At the same time, the first heir of the Broken Water branch was an extremely cautious person. She knew that Lu Tianping was an existence that could even defeat a great cultivator. Therefore, even after setting up this ambush, she still did not feel at ease. She also notified the several second-generation great cultivators of the Broken Water branch who were secretly carrying out the plan. Once the battle to ambush Lu Tianping began, 2 great cultivators of Wuxia school would find time to rush over and kill this person who could possibly expose the plan of the Wuxia school. Although Shueijiro had already set up an inescapable net and was confident that Lu Tianping would definitely fall into her ambush as soon as he came, Shueijiro still had a trace of doubt in her heart. How did Lu Tianping avoid Mara's army that was besieging the 9 Mystical Tower and appear near the Qingming River between them and the 9 Mystical Tower? It should be known that the Wuxia school had originally taken advantage of the time when Mara's army had gathered here to besiege the 9 Mystical Tower. As a place where Mara's army had passed through, they were able to confirm that there was absolutely no possibility of a cultivator in this area and thus began to boldly carry out their plan. But how did Lu Tianping appear here? How did he survive when Mara's army passed through this area? How did the sentries that the sect had set up within a radius of several thousand kilometers fail to detect any traces of this person? Just as Shueijiro's thoughts were running wild, she suddenly realized that after such a long time, if Lu Tianping was nearby, he should have arrived long ago. However, Lu Tianping still had not appeared. There could only be one reason. He had already arrived here and discovered the ambush that the Wuxia school had set up. How was this possible? It should be known that the ambush that Shueijiro had set up this time was absolutely exquisite. Even a great cultivator would not be able to discover her plan before stepping into the ambush. Although Shueijiro did not want to believe that Lu Tianping had discovered her plan, she still thought of something. She rang the raindrop bell in her hand and 2 invisible rays of light shot out from her eyes. Then Shueijiro let out a cry of surprise. A figure was actually hiding in the water vein and had already passed through her ambush. He was now not far from the place where the Wuxia school had set up their plan. Shueijiro understood. Although she was certain that the person hiding in the water vein was Lu Tianping, she decided that it was better to warn him before she could clearly see the person hiding in the water vein. Who is it? A voice made the nearby cultivators of the Wuxia school feel as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Then, the figure of Lu Tianping was completely forced out of the water vein by the ringing of the raindrop bell in Shueijiro's hand. Lu Tianping could actually hide in the water vein and hide so close to the place where they had set up their plan. However, he could not withstand the increasingly violent fluctuations in the water vein and was discovered by her. How did he do it? With a trace of doubt, Shueijiro took the initiative to attack Lu Tianping. For the rise of the Wuxia school and the future of the Broken Water sect, she had to kill the person in front of her. Chapter 12:16. There were 2 major rivers in the world of practitioners in the Central Plains. One was the Yulon River and the other was the Qingming River. In the world of cultivation, only a limited number of forces were capable of making use of these 2 rivers. The Yulon River's rivers were mainly controlled by the Koi clan and the 5 Elements sect. According to rumors, the Heavenly Arcana sect had already found and secured a portion of the Yulon River's rivers, intending to make use of them. However, due to the pressure from the 5 Elements sect and the Koi clan, they had always refused to do so. The other was the water vein of Qingming River. This water vein was jointly controlled by the 9 Mysteries Tower and the Soaring Sky Pavilion. However, the Soaring Cloud Valley in the middle had originally supported the construction of a canal between Magic Cloud City and Qingming River, and had also helped them communicate with part of the water vein of Qingming River to support the development of Magic Cloud City. Unexpectedly, the Demon Clan in the Endless Mountain had benefited from it. Perhaps some powerful cultivators in the cultivation world could also find the water veins of these 2 great rivers and hide inside to cultivate, but in the end they couldn't use the entire water vein for their own use like these sections. Moreover, with the power of these sects, as long as the area where the two rivers flowed was within the sphere of influence of these sects, there wouldn't be a single powerful being hiding in the water vein to cultivate. Because these sects monopolized the two river veins, if a powerful being were to sneak into the water vein within their sphere of influence, he would be quickly discovered, warned, driven away, or even killed by these great powers. Wuxia school had figured out this pattern. Taking advantage of the time when the Nine Mystical Tower was besieged by Mara, they came to dig a canal connecting the Qingming River and the Yulin River to steal the water of the Qingming River. And it just so happened that the location where Wuxia school dug the canal was at the edge of the Nine Mystical Towers territory. At this moment they were digging a canal here. Firstly, the Nine Mystical Tower was besieged by Mo Luo. Even if they sensed that someone was pouring into the water vein of the Green Netherworld River, they had no time to care about it. Secondly, this place was so close to the Nine Mystical Tower. The Five Elements sect could completely confirm that there were no great mediums who could dive into the water vein to cultivate between the canal and the Nine Mystical Tower. Thirdly, and most importantly, the Nine Profound Tower had been besieged by the evil Luo army for several years now. In order to resist the evil Luo army's siege, the Nine Profound Tower had long since mobilized the Cyan Profound River's water vein's power to strengthen its defenses. The entire Cyan Profound River's water vein was constantly in a state of turmoil. This was something that the entire cultivation world knew about. However, the Nine Mystical Tower had a deep foundation. Although they had used the water, they did not use too much power. Obviously, they could still deal with the siege of Mara's army with ease. Recently, the turbulence of the water had suddenly increased. At most, people would think that the Nine Mystical Tower was gradually exerting its strength under the siege of Mara's army. No one would have thought that someone would steal the water of the Qingming River right in front of the Nine Mystical Tower. By the time the entire cultivation world realized the truth of the matter, the Five Elements sect would have already succeeded in communicating with the Green Jade Canal and used the stolen part of the Green Netherworld River to make up for the flaws in the inheritance of the Broken Water branch of the Five Elements sect. The Five Elements sect would then be able to return to the glory of the Five Elements sect that was no weaker than the Eastern and Western palaces in ancient times. At this point, the wood had already sailed the boat. Which sect in the world of practitioners would still dare to step forward and challenge the dignity of Wuxia school? Even the Nine Mystical Tower could only pinch their noses and accept the matter. Moreover, everyone knew that after the siege of the Nine Mystical Tower by Mara's army, the Nine Mystical Tower would definitely suffer a great loss. What awaited them would definitely be a period of recuperation. There was no way that the Nine Mystical Tower would fall out with the Nine Mystical Tower over this matter. Wuxia school's plan could be said to be extremely meticulous. However, even a wise man would make a mistake. Wuxia school would never have thought that someone would be bold enough to sneak into the water to train within the territory of the Nine Mystical Tower. Shueijiro was very sure that after Mara's army had gathered to attack the Nine Mystical Tower, Wuxia school's forces had already swept through the area of the Qingming River where Mara's army had passed through. There was clearly no trace of human existence, and for the past few years, Wuxia school had been constantly patrolling this area. How did this person manage to do it? Although Shueijiro had doubts in her heart, she knew that as long as she could capture this person, all her previous doubts would naturally be easily resolved. Moreover, at this time, for the sake of Wuxia school's plan of hundreds of years and for the complete revival of the water of the Qingming River, she could not allow Lu Ping to escape from her hands. Be careful, this person is Lu Tianping of the North Sea. Although the cultivators of Wuxia school who had been lying in ambush here knew that the person they had to deal with was Lu Tianping, Shueijiro could not help but warn them at this time. This was because Lu Ping's sudden appearance from the water was clearly beyond the expectations of all the cultivators of Wuxia school. Moreover, the moment Shueijiro made her move, she had already clearly understood the gap between her and Lu Tianping. Shueijiro could be said to be the most outstanding direct disciple of the water of the Wuxia school in the past hundreds of years. Since the decline of the water of the Qingming River, she was the only direct disciple of the water of the Qingming River who was not the weakest among the five great Juzi of Wuxia school. Moreover, Shueijiro's natal spiritual treasure, the Raindrop Bell, was also a first tribulation spiritual treasure. The Raindrop Bell was originally a natal spiritual treasure refined by Shueijiro herself. After Shueijiro showed her outstanding talent and strength that far surpassed that of cultivators at the same level as her, the senior cultivators of the Qingming River of Wuxia school, who were extremely eager to revive the water of the Qingming River, helped Shueijiro upgrade her natal spiritual treasure soon after she reached the Dharma manifestation stage. She passed the first Thunder Tribulation and became a natal spiritual treasure. Among the relatively famous third-generation cultivators in the cultivation world, it was not rare for them to have spiritual treasures bestowed by their sections. Even Second Tribulation spiritual treasures were common in the hands of the chief direct disciples of those sections. However, among these direct disciples, it was extremely rare for them to be able to upgrade their natal spiritual treasures to the level of spiritual treasures. Even Lu Ping himself, with the 13 magic treasures of the original Genshin formation, had only condensed the 9th restriction and reached the peak of the spirit-nourishing magic treasures. The power exerted by using one's own spirit treasure and using other spirit treasures was on a completely different level. When a cultivator with his own spirit treasure fought against a cultivator with other spirit treasures, he would always have a certain advantage. This was because he could control the spirit treasure more skillfully, activate the divine ability more quickly, and display a greater power of the divine ability. However, when Shueijiro, who had all these, faced Lu Ping's Rain Bell, she saw a stream of concentrated bluish-purple real essence collide into her natal spiritual treasure. Shueijiro felt that her natal spiritual treasure seemed to have fallen into the sticky water at this moment. No matter how hard she tried to ring the bell, the power was greatly reduced because of the obstruction of the water. After being discovered, Lu Ping soared into the sky from the water vein. He first used the water control incantation to weaken the rain bell, then used the wave-treading art to step into the void, sending a huge force into the Qingming River. With a series of explosions, several disciples of the Wuxia school, who had been lying in ambush in the Qingming River to surround and kill Lu Ping, floated out of the water in a sorry state. Some of them even suffered internal injuries because of the huge force that invaded the water, and as soon as they floated to the surface, they spat out mouthfuls of blood. Shueijiro was furious. She never thought that Lu Ping could attack so fiercely and accurately in a split second, destroying most of the ambush she had carefully laid out in one fell swoop. Fortunately, it was only more than half of the ambush, and she still had a follow-up method. As long as she could hold him back for a while, when the great cultivators of her school, who were communicating with the water vein and digging the canal, arrived, Lu Tianping would have no choice but to surrender. Lu Tianping, don't you want the lives of your 3 followers of the Green Sea Snake? Shueijiro was sure that Lu Ping would not dare to give up the lives of the Samling, so she was going to use this to make Lu Ping give in. As long as she could stall for a while, the mistake made by the Wuxia school on Lu Ping would be made up for. However, at this moment, what Shueijiro saw was Lu Ping suddenly smiling brightly. Shueijiro was stunned. At this moment, Lu Ping, who was in the air, suddenly attacked. In a trance, even Shueijiro herself could not see how Lu Ping split the 3-sword cheese in the air into 3 directions. Afterwards, Shueijiro suddenly felt a sense of palpitation descend upon her. She clearly remembered the direction in which the 3 strands of sword chi had slashed towards. It was the location of the remaining 3 direct lineal cultivators who had yet to make a move in the ambush she had set up earlier. Shueijiro clearly remembered that these 3 direct line adepts not only had the cover of a formation, but they were also good at hiding their tracks. Originally, Shueijiro had stayed near the ambush, ready to attack the moment Lu Tianping joined forces to trap Lu Tianping. She did not expect that Lu Tianping would even know the location of these 3 people so clearly. The 3 green sword chis, with the horns formed by the 3 flying swords, flew towards the 3 hidden directions in the air. The 3 Dharma adepts of the Wuxia school had no choice but to appear in the middle of the void to block Lu Ping's attack with all their strength. Looking at the 3 disciples of her sect, whose faces had suddenly turned deathly pale, being knocked back by the 3 sword dragons, Shueijiro suddenly realized something. Although Lu Tianping was still at the mid-Dharma stage, his abilities were much stronger than before. Shueijiro knew that if she failed today, once the news that Wuxia school had stolen the water vein of the Qingming River was known to the practitioners, the other holy lands would definitely interfere, especially the Purple Sun Palace and the Crystal Palace. They would definitely not let Wuxia school, which had the same strength and status as their own, appear. With a crisp ring, Shueijiro rose into the air with a determined look on her face. After Lu Ping had defeated all the disciples of the Wuxia school who had ambushed him, she stood in front of Lu Ping alone. Lu Ping smiled and said, "You are still no match for me. Are you sure you want to stop me?" Chapter 12-17. Lu Ping had been practicing in seclusion in the water vein for more than 10 years. Although it was not a big deal for the gap between the mid-Dharma stage and the late Dharma stage, Lu Ping's own strength had improved by leaps and bounds in these 10 years. Shueijiro and the other practitioners of Wuxing school still used the strength of Lu Ping that they had known for more than 10 years. Coupled with Lu Ping's surprise attack, Shueijiro and the other disciples of Wuxing school naturally had their ambush broken by Lu Ping right from the start. However, looking at the female practitioner who was the strongest among the many disciples of Wuxing school in the ambush standing in front of him, even though she knew she was no match for him, Lu Ping's words were contemptuous, but his eyes were fixed on the bell spirit treasure that was hovering above Shueijiro's head and making a crisp ringing sound from time to time. She was able to upgrade her natal treasure to the level of a spirit treasure. Just this alone was enough for Lu Ping to not dare to be careless at all. Shueijiro looked directly at Lu Ping and said coldly, "Lu Tianping, you really live up to your reputation. However, your followers are in our hands. If you don't want anything to happen to them, please come with me. Our Wuxing school will definitely treat you like a distinguished guest. Once our plan is completed, Shueijiro will definitely apologize and send you back to the North Sea. What do you think?" Shueijiro could see the mockery in Lu Ping's eyes. She did not avoid his eyes at all and continued, "Please believe in the credibility of our sect, Lu Daoyu. Moreover, your 3 followers." Shueijiro deliberately did not finish her words. Presumably, Lu Ping also knew what she wanted to say. Lu Ping smiled slightly and said, "Rather than believe in the credibility of Wuxing school, I'd rather believe in you. Unfortunately, although I really hope to save Samling, I don't believe that your sect would dare to attack the 3 little guys at this time. The one who should be more afraid of the green sea snake is your sect." Lu Ping could see clearly that if he could escape, Wuxing school would be afraid that he would spread the news of the Green Jade Canal and would not dare to attack Samling. Lu Ping would also not dare to casually reveal the Green Jade Canal for the sake of Samling's safety. However, if he really fell into the hands of Wuxing school, then Wuxing school could decide whether to kill him or not. Moreover, Lu Ping did not have the habit of putting his life in the hands of others. Shueijiro only confronted Lu Ping but did not make the first move. Immediately, Lu Ping understood that Shueijiro was stalling for time. Perhaps the backup masters of Wuxing school had already arrived at this time. Lu Ping knew that he might not be able to rescue Samling today, but he also firmly believed that Wuxing school would definitely not dare to kill Samling at will. Therefore, he sneered and was about to leave this place with a conveyance light under his feet. How could Shueijiro let Lu Ping escape so easily? Although she was not a match for Lu Ping, she was confident that she could stall him for a while if she tried her best. Therefore, the rainstorm bell in her hand suddenly rang out a series of ringing sounds. Lu Ping felt that a curtain of rain was falling in front of him. The dense ringing of the bell was like the sound of a curtain of rain falling on a river, making it difficult for him to distinguish which direction was east, west, and which made it extremely difficult for him to break through the obstruction of the curtain of rain. At this moment, Lu Ping's surroundings had turned into a rainstorm world. Lu Ping sneered in his heart as he thought, "This is interesting. This skill is obviously Shueijiro's natal great skill with her natal spiritual treasure. And in this rainstorm world, hidden in the unknown darkness, Shueijiro's killing intent would be Shueijiro's hidden killing intent." Although Shueijiro only wanted to stall Lu Ping as much as possible, if he really underestimated her, Shueijiro naturally did not mind changing the entanglement into a sneak attack. However, a look of disdain flashed across Lu Ping's face. Then, under Shueijiro's incredulous gaze, the rainstorm in the sky began to violently fluctuate. At this moment, Shueijiro suddenly felt that her control over the rainstorm world formed by the great divine ability was suddenly snatched away. In that instant, almost 1/3 of the control over the rainstorm world was taken away, and the intensity of the struggle was constantly increasing. In a situation where Lu Ping could not use the sword of true spirit, Lu Ping did not have a natal spiritual treasure to increase the power of his great divine ability. Even so, this did not mean that Lu Ping did not have the means to resist Shueijiro's natal spiritual treasure. After Lu Ping used the art of traversing clouds and summoning rain, even without the enhancement of a natal spiritual treasure, Lu Ping could still fight against Shueijiro for control over the rainstorm world with his powerful cultivation. In the pitch-black rainstorm world, more and more of the rain began to scatter. Although Shueijiro did her best to resist, her divine ability was rapidly disintegrating in the face of Lu Ping's unstoppable strength. Finally, a ray of light shone through the pitch-black rainstorm world. Amidst the mournful ringing of the rain bell, Lu Ping finally broke through Shueijiro's great divine ability. However, this method of forcefully breaking the opponent's divine ability also caused Shueijiro to be heavily injured. Her chest tightened and she spat out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, Shueijiro was definitely at her weakest. It was the best time to take her life. Unfortunately, Lu Ping was not willing to stay for long. After disrupting this divine ability world, Lu Ping quickly discovered that someone was thinking about this area of Qingming River. Thus, his figure flashed twice and he was already several kilometers away. A ray of light descended from the sky. Mu Changxing's figure flashed out of the light and he was the first to arrive. Seeing Shueijiro's pale face, which clearly showed that she had used up a lot of vital energy and spiritual sense, he hurriedly asked with concern, "Junior Sister Ro, how are you?" Shueijiro did not care about Mu Changxing's expression and hurriedly said, "Quickly chase after him, that person is Lu Tianping. He already knows about our sex plan." Mu Changxing was shocked, but he could no longer care about anything else. A leaf flashed under his feet and instantly expanded to a radius of 3 meters. Then, carrying Mu Changxing, the leaf swayed left and right as it chased in the direction that Lu Ping had left. Although this leaf-like magic treasure was swaying left and right as it flew, making it look extremely slow, it was actually as fast as lightning. In the blink of an eye, it had already disappeared into the horizon. After Mu Changxing left, several rays of light flashed in the sky one after another, following behind Mu Changxing. Each ray of light that swept past could leave a trail of light that was tens of meters long in the sky. This showed that the owners of these rays of light were all true mid-Dharma adepts. In fact, the two most dazzling rays of light in the lead were both late Dharma adepts. Shueijiro glanced at Mu Changxing in the distance, and a complicated look flashed in her eyes. Then she swallowed some kind of elixir, turned around, and turned into a ray of light that merged into the Qingming River and disappeared. And just after Shueijiro left, the surface of the Qingming River, which had just calmed down after a fierce battle, suddenly rippled, and then 2 figures slowly rose from the river. If Lu Ping was here, he would definitely be surprised by the identity of these 2 people. One of them was the first direct disciple of the Nine Shen Tower, Wei Jin, who had seriously injured Lu Ping previously, and the other was actually the newly promoted second-generation pure young adept of the Nine Shen Tower, 8th Sister Zhu. However, at this time 8th Sister Zhu looked very disheveled. Her face was pale as if she had just been seriously injured. It was unknown how these 2 people had managed to escape from the situation where the Nine Shen Tower was surrounded by Mara's army. 8th Sister Zhu's expression was fierce and she said in a sinister voice, "Very well, this bunch of trash from Wuxia School actually dared to take advantage of the situation. Not only did they plot against the water vein of the Qingming River, they actually dared to be so arrogant in front of the Nine Shen Tower. Do they really think that this is their backyard?" At the side, Wei Jin hurriedly said, "Uncle Master, please calm down. A little impatience will spoil the great plan. At this time, it is more important for us to think of a way to break the siege of the sections. As for the despicable acts of the Wuxia School, when the sects recover, they will naturally take revenge." With great difficulty, 8th Sister Zhu suppressed the anger in her heart and said fiercely, "We can't just let it go like this. The fact that Wuxia School plotted against the water vein of the Qingming River must be leaked. At this time we can't care about the water vein of the Qingming River, and others can also forget about taking advantage of the situation. I don't believe that the sects like the Purple Sun Palace and the Skyward Pavilion will allow Wuxia School to replenish the water vein of the 5 elements and improve their sect's strength." Wei Jin laughed bitterly. How could he be willing to be taken advantage of like this? He even suspected that this time, the sieging army had strangely gathered on such a large scale to besiege the 9 mystical tower. Could Wuxia School also be behind this? However, this time, they had used the backup plan left by their sects and paid a huge price to escape from the siege of Mara's army without anyone knowing. Their plan was extremely secretive, so they were not only hiding from Mara, but also from the cultivators of other sections. However, at this time 8th Sister Zhu wanted to expose the fact that Wuxia School was plotting against the Qingyu Canal. This was extremely inappropriate in Wei Jin's opinion. However, 8th Sister Zhu was a senior of the sect and one of the most powerful pure young Laozu in the 9 mystical tower. Even if Wei Jin wanted to, he didn't dare to do it openly. Moreover, in Wei Jin's opinion, perhaps after the fact that Wuxia School was plotting against the water vein of the Qingming River, ordinary people might not be able to detect that it was a cultivator of the 9 mystical tower who leaked the news. At the same time, dozens of miles away, Lu Ping looked at the person in front of him and couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "Senior, what do you mean by this?" Xiao Baiyu laughed and said, I want you to join us. How about it, do you want to join us? Lu Ping didn't even think about it and said, no. Xiao Baiyu still had a smile on his face and said, don't worry, think about it again. It will take the people of Wuxing School a while to catch up. Don't worry, when they arrive the old man will leave. It definitely won't affect the fair fight between you two. At this time, Lu Ping's divine thoughts had also sensed the several fleeting lights coming in his direction from a distance. Seeing that the old man in front of him still refused to give in, once Lu Ping refused, Lu Ping could even guess that the old man in front of him would definitely leave the moment the cultivators of Wuxing School arrived. Without exposing his own identity, he would deliberately cause Lu Ping to fight with the two cultivators of Wuxing School who were chasing after him. This was what he wanted to see. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.